Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of WhatIf Shouko Todoroki found her voice amidst childhood's denial. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It was a peculiar thing, Shouko thought, being a girl. At home, it was rarely mentioned after her quirk manifested. As a child, the women of the household matched the men in numbers. Mother and Fayumi would dote on her in her earliest days before she gained her power. Fayumi was 7 when she was born, 9 when Shouko was old enough to play fashion models with her. The two of them would strut down a fake runway in far too big high heels and dresses, Shouko having no clue what was going on but eagerly mimicking her sister's motions as she spun and twirled, their mother laughing and clapping for them. Those memories were her favorite, much preferred to the times she would walk past the training quarters and hear Talia and her father in a screaming match before the heat of flames picked up and a maid would materialize out of seemingly nowhere to scoop her up and move her away. No, the memories of being young, dressing up with Fayumi, having her hair pulled into high pigtails by her mother, running outside and squealing in joy when Natsuo would pick her up and spin her around. Shouko preferred those. Then one day in late December, Talia left. He was there and then he was not. There were no answers for her. 6 days later, Shouko's quirk manifested at dinner, fire and ice bursting from her head after she sneezed. Her father's face lit up, and her mother's dropped in anguish. From that point on, gender was a non-factor. There was no difference between male and female on a battlefield of unbelievable superpowers, nor was there in her father's training room. He insisted her hair be cut short, long locks cropped to her ears. Shouko's childish complaint that she looked like a boy was met by a harsh slap across the cheek by her father, her young body skidding across the floor from the impact. She didn't complain about it again. Her days consisted of training until she was ill, tears falling down her face as fire and ice shot from her body erratically. She was 3 when her quirk came in, 4 when she started training, and 5 when her last point of female contact was removed from her life in a flash of pain and tears, of screeching tea kettles and melting flesh. Fayumi was hardly allowed to talk to her anymore. Not since that fateful late December dinner, and now her mother was gone. Shouko had nothing but her power and her father, 2 things she was rapidly learning to despise. Her heart started to grow cold, ever colder. Her elementary school was all girls, very much an elite affair for wealthy daughters. Shouko didn't stand out much, ignoring the other students entirely. Why should she care about joining in on soccer games, choir clubs, lunchtime chats? She lived in a different world from all of them. These girls who talked too loud, laughed and cheered for each other, had access to frivolities like dolls and game consoles. Shouko couldn't relate. Comments about her physical appearance and gender never started until middle school, when her schooling became co-ed and boys became a part of the scene. Shouko didn't care about boys in the same way she didn't care about girls. They weren't a part of her world. Her world of pain and burns and a father she loathed so much that she had stopped using his power entirely. Her first year of middle school was the one that made her remember that, right, she was female. The stares in elementary school had been ones of confusion and irritation, often born of Shouko brushing everyone off without even a verbal response. The ones she got now, though, they were leers. Suddenly, she was the one staring in confusion as male classmates eyed her body over, often stopping at her chest or legs where her sailor uniform skirt rode up a bit past her knees. It was both surprising and enlightening. She was different from her father in this way, different from the overpowering and intimidating giants he saw as the ideal heroes. The leers may have disgusted her, yes, but Shouko had a weapon stronger than her ice now. "I need a bra," she said one day before training, about a month after middle school started. Internally, she whooped in laughter at the way her father's face tightened up in discomfort. "Didn't see that one coming, did you, you piece of trash? All the other girls wear them now. I need one too. Then we'll tell a maid to get you one." Endeavor looked like he didn't know what else to say, something Shouko relished in. She didn't need a bra that badly, though she was on the tall side. A mix of intense training and a highly monitored diet meant she'd remained almost entirely muscle, her sturdy yet lean body looking more androgynous than anything else. A few nights after that particularly harsh session, a maid sent to measure her confirmed that all she really needed was a training bra. Fine by her. That by itself was what set off a light bulb in her head. Her femininity was something she could use to get back at her father, the bastard who'd robbed her of her childhood. Slowly, she started growing out her hair. The boy's cut she'd worn since 4 years old gave way to chin-length locks, and Shouko relished in the subtle twinge of irritation her father wore after her hair finally brushed her shoulders. Long enough for her to tie back with a pink elastic, not a color she particularly cared for, really, but wasn't it supposed to be for girls or something? Her ultimate goal was to grow it to the length she'd remembered her mother's being, rib length or so. The more she could resemble the parent whose quirk she planned to use for her entire life, the better. the more she could remind him which parent was allowing her to succeed. It was all out of spite, frankly. Shouko's heart remained coated in frost, barring any sort of real happiness. Her world was still so harsh and violent that she knew a moment of genuine softness would mean her downfall. She'd seen what had happened to her mother. All she knew about Taoya was that he'd had a meltdown and run off. And most of all, she pretended she was asleep on the nights a shaking Fayumi would crawl into her bedroom, nestle up next to her to whisper sobbing apologies, and ask the heir why it had to be like this. The Todoroki bloodline was full of wires ready to snap at any moment, and Shouko knew she was being pulled taut. This would not happen to her, not if she had anything to say about it. She didn't particularly want to be a hero defined by her gender. People like Midnight always made her roll her eyes, but if it could be something that would separate her further from her glorified sperm donor, then she'd happily adjust her appearance. God knows her behavior wouldn't change. That was beyond Shouko's realm of ability. The thought of wearing big smiles and making squealing noises at cute things and acting cheerful was just undoable. But if she could emulate the subdued aesthetics of an elegant woman, oh, her mother was elegant. I miss you, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you. Then she would achieve her goal. One-san, please teach me makeup. Fayumi jolted up from her homework in the dining room, eyes widening at the sight of her sister. The older girl was a second year in university now, studying hard at something or another. Shouko didn't really talk to her that much. Didn't get the chance, aside from those nights when she'd crawl into her room, and that was just Fayumi talking to herself next to Shouko. The bicolored girl stared blankly ahead as Fayumi struggled for words. That's right, you want to learn cover up for yourself. Their few interactions over the years had often involved Fayumi covering bruises and burns for her little sister, something she'd learned to do for everyone else in the house. Shouko briefly pondered over the fact that Fayumi had essentially become the mother to the children at barely 10 years old before shaking her head. No, I want to learn makeup. Real makeup like you have. The other girls wear it now. That was a slight stretch, but now in her second year of middle school, the other female students certainly seemed to at least be interested in. Fayumi looked like she didn't know what to say before offering a hesitant smile, tapping her phone screen once and checking something. Okay, yeah, Dad won't be home for a few hours. I can show you some. Getting up, Fayumi brushed off her jeans before leading Shouko to her bedroom. It wasn't as big as her own, but it was more furnished. A few posters from what Shouko vaguely recognized as a popular singer decorating the walls. She also didn't have a vanity like her older sister did, small and covered with products. So I don't really have that much in regards to fancy makeup. But Dad's business associates usually bring gifts for everyone when they meet here, so but you probably know that already. Haha, I bet you haven't touched yours much. Shouko furrowed her brow in confusion. Wait, what do you mean about yours? They bring gifts. Now it was Fayumi's turn to look confused. They do. You know, like when he had that meeting with Gang Orca and his PR team last month. Shouko did remember that, actually. Their estate had a meeting hall built into it, so meets with other pros weren't uncommon. As per usual, she and her other two siblings had been ushered in to greet Gang Orca and exchange pleasantries with a few people before being told to scuttle back to whatever they were doing beforehand, just routine etiquette. Honestly, the hero had seemed nice enough, though Shouko didn't really care that much about the whole ordeal. I remember, yeah, like how Dad passed those courtesy gifts along to us. I got a really pretty set of teacups. Natsuo got this neat little phone speaker, and I think they got you. Oh, you got that nice pink lip gloss. Fayumi snaps her fingers as she recalls it. Remember, the thing in the silver packaging. I literally didn't get anything. I've never gotten a present from any heroes before. Shouko blinked, confusion turning into hard understanding. Father must intercept anything meant for me. That's maybe, never mind. Fayumi's face fell, awkwardness resounding throughout the room until she let out a nervous chuckle and clapped her hands together. Alrighty, let's show you how to use makeup. Then, Shouko's anger over this revelation turned into an opportunity for spite. So he was denying her the chance to choose the type of person she wanted to be. Not fucking shocking. That had been her entire life. But the shitty old bastard wasn't here right now, and she was going to wear makeup no matter what. Allowing Fayumi to guide her over to the vanity. The older girl pulled Shouko's hair back into a loose, low ponytail before pinning back her bangs. Yes, so I'm gonna do your makeup so you get an idea of how it goes on. So first things first, we'll get your hair out of the way. It's gotten really long. It's past your shoulder blades now. Fayumi was trying too hard to make the atmosphere light again, but her efforts were commendable enough to get a response out of Shouko. I've been growing it. It looks so pretty. The pitch in Fayumi's voice indicated her relief at getting a reply. Shouko knew too well that she didn't always indicate that she'd heard people past a nod or flick of the eyes. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a primer. That basically gets your skin ready for makeup and ensures it stays on. Fayumi talked Shouko through all the steps, the younger girl content simply to listen to her sister as she spoke about different products and how each one went on. The only small pause was during the application of foundation, Fayumi's voice trickling to a pause as the makeup started to reach the edge of her scar. Shouko knew it wouldn't be enough to cover it if the chemical products developed by Japan's best skincare specialists could hardly fade it despite how hard her father had pushed for it in her youth. It wasn't going anywhere. Just go around it. Eye makeup can go on it normally, but it'll be too hard to cover it up. Alright. Stumbling a bit, Fayumi fell back into rhythm shortly afterwards, moving on to contouring and explaining how to seal the makeup. Shouko watched in content silence as her face changed gradually, internally realizing how she couldn't recall the last time she'd blushed as the pink powder of the same name was applied to her cheek. She wasn't too interested in the makeup itself, but for a little, it was nice, doing something an ordinary girl her age would do. Did her classmates have big sisters of their own to show them how eyeliner is applied? Did they also shirk and caution away from the eyelash curler until it was explained? This was a world of normalcy. One she'd been denied her entire life, one Fayumi had been denied. The older girl looked like she was actually having fun, making little jokes about the names of the products and chatting idly about her day. Turns out her major was childhood education. Shouko was learning more about her older sister in the span of an hour than she had in the past 7 years. At one point, Fayumi had excused herself for a minute, coming back in with a small black speaker in her hands. This is that speaker Natsuo got from Gang Orca and his firm. He let me borrow it. Turning it on and fiddling with her cell phone for a minute, the room soon filled with music. It wasn't anything special, some pop song, but Shouko found herself tapping her foot nonetheless. Maybe it was just because she was enjoying this entire atmosphere, comfortable, lighthearted, with hands on her skin that touched her softly with no intention to harm. It was nice, really nice. Despite herself, her lips curled up slightly, small smile on her face as Fayumi returned to her makeup. It's almost done, Shouko laughed. There was a pause as Fayumi realized what she'd done, the girl making a meep noise and pulling away even as Shouko missed the feeling of the hand on her cheek. I'm sorry. That slipped out. No, one-san. It's okay. Shouko's heart had jumped at the nickname. God, how long had it been since she'd heard it? At least 6 years, probably more. It came from Natsuo originally as a very small child. Shouko's love for Zarusoba was only tempered by her love for chocolate, milk chocolate specifically. Given how much easier it was to be given a piece of chocolate than it was to be cooked a full meal, she ate it a lot more, too. Having noticed her adoration, Natsuo teasingly knighted her Shouko lat because looky Fayumi, looky mama, doesn't it sound like chocolate when you say it fast? Let's call her Shouko lat. And it had stuck up until her cursed quirk developed. Until she was pulled away from that love and warmth and forced onto a strict diet with no room for sweets. God, she hadn't eaten chocolate since she was 5. Please, you can call me that. Fayumi looked hesitant. If you're sure, then. Okay, Shouko lat. Hiding the warmth that spread through her body at the name, Shouko settled back into the routine of makeup and chatter, occasionally interspersed with a word from herself. It wasn't like she had much to say. Not much of a life to talk about. But she did recount a story about a boy from her class pranking the teacher with a blackboard eraser over the door only for the teacher's laser eyes quirk to instantly disintegrate it. Though she hadn't found it particularly interesting at the time, Fayumi's overjoyed belly laughs brought that small smile back to her own lips. Maybe it wasn't the makeup she was after. Maybe it wasn't the urge to spite her father that drove this afternoon. As Fayumi offered to style her hair, Shouko's agreement stemmed from something entirely different. Maybe she just wanted to experience an ordinary moment of happiness. As she actually chuckled due to the way the hairspray made Fayumi sneeze, Shouko could forget her burden as an object created to overcome the current number 1. She was a normal kid having fun with her sister. All good things, though, must come to an end. And in the Todoroki household, it was always an end of flames and tears. Just as Fayumi was digging through her vanity drawer to find the perfect accessory for her newly styled hair, the music was just loud enough to drown out the stomping footsteps. Loud enough to ensure neither of them heard Fayumi's phone buzz with Natsuo's warning text. Loud enough that they didn't suspect a thing until the door slammed open, shattering their happy moment. Fayumi yelped and Shouko jumped at the sudden noise and heat. Endeavor stood in the doorway, blazing gaze looking down upon both his daughters. Eyes flickered around the scene, seemingly stopped in time. Fayumi, frozen in shock, bent over her vanity drawers, diamond hair clip in one hand. Shouko, deftly still with her hands in her kneeling lap, face done in full makeup with her hair curled. The music played on, too cheerful for a situation of this level. Shouko, Endeavor spoke evenly, never a good sign. Get changed. We're training in 20 minutes. Your Shouko's voice caught in her throat for a moment. You're home early. Her father's eyes turned harsh. Work ended early, and I don't see how that negates my previous order. And as for you, Endeavor's gaze turned to Fayumi, who was visibly trembling under his stare. I need to talk to you. Father, it was my idea. The reality of the situation crashes down on Shouko all at once, and she's scrambling to get to her feet and get between Endeavor and her older sister. "You can't, I asked her to do this, don't." And she chose to agree to your childish whims. A hand wraps around her wrist, and Shouko bites back a scream as she feels the heat burn right through her sailor uniform's long sleeve and onto her skin. This is not your world, Shouko. This is not the life you were created for. Now wash the crap off your face and meet me in the training hall before you make this worse for all of us. Shouko, honey, please just go. Fayumi pleads, and Shouko can feel her own heart break at the tone in her voice. It'll be okay. Please, please just go. She can't even bring herself to look back as the shame as to what she's put Fayumi through hits her. Yanking her hand away from Endeavor, she steps around him and out into the hall. As soon as she's out of sight, she books it for the furthest bathroom from this wing of the house. Shouko learns that it's harder wiping makeup off when you're crying from something other than immense physical injury for the first time in maybe 4 years. She learns many things that evening. She learns Endeavor is not above threatening to burn that goddamn hair off if she doesn't understand her position as his creation. She learns his attacks become infinitely harder to block when there's anger fueling him. She learns the healing quirk user employed privately with the vast funds belonging to the Todoroki family can keep an unaffected face while puttering away at the fabric that melted into her skin from the sheer force of her father's fire. And the next morning, Shouko learns crushing guilt as Fayumi, poorly concealed black eye and all, hugs her and apologizes for not being more careful. "Shouko lad, I'm so sorry, I didn't protect you." Shouko's hatred for her father grows like a pillar of ice. She'll never let that bastard win. Months pass, and it was more of the same. More isolation, more acts of rebellion that lead her to violence, and more charred skin Shouko hid under her uniform. Idly, she wondered if the fact that most of her father's violent attacks were aimed at her upper body was a coincidence, or if it had something to do with the way UA's skirt wouldn't cover much of her legs. It had been the understanding her entire life that she would attend the most prestigious hero school in Japan just as her father had. Honestly, when Shouko thought about it, she wasn't sure if it had even been said aloud at any point. It had been the unspoken truth. She'd been made to ramp up her studying in her 3rd year of middle school, growing more and more isolated. There was a joke in her school that the mysterious and silent daughter of Endeavor might secretly be a ghost considering how little they saw of her outside of class itself. Honestly, Shouko didn't think they were too far off with that one. In regards to her own feelings, well, Shouko knew damn well at this point that trying to delve into the emotions she'd buried so deeply in ice would only cause her to implode. At best, she'd be a mess in a hospital ward like her mother. At worst, she'd suffer whatever fate Taoya had out in the world. So if you were to ask, no, Shouko did not have feelings one way or another about the things that had been done to her. Her only moods were haughtiness and rage expressed through spiteful acts she knew would bring her self-punishment. She tried not to think of her afternoon with Fayumi the year prior. Happiness was reserved for those in the other world. Her trying to cross over would only bring innocent people pain, and what kind of hero would knowingly force others to suffer? The days rolled by, and it was suddenly the UA entrance exam. She'd been recommended, yes, but that didn't mean the prestigious school didn't still require her to prove her worth through a specialized exam. Male and female applicants were separated to Shouko's understanding. The school accepted 2 boys and 2 girls through recommendations. Once upon a time, she had dreamed of failing this exam just to spite her father, to show him she wasn't the perfect tool he'd tried to shape her into. But, aside from how he'd almost certainly beat her within an inch of her life, heroism seemed like perhaps the only path on which she could reasonably go. What else existed in the world for a girl forged together with unbelievable power sizzling under her skin, someone hardened by fire and ice and hate? This was her only option. Lining up at the starting line and listening to present Mike, one of the few famous pros she hadn't met in person, explain the rules, she simply mentally repeated that truth drilled into her over the years. This is my only option. The buzzer went, and she was gone in a flurry of perfectly practiced ice, pure power soaring from her feet as she scaled the course like it was a children's playground. There was no hesitation in her movements after all. This was precisely the event she'd been training relentlessly for over the past month. Each step was as natural as breathing. She finished a full 30 seconds in front of the other girl, a tall dark-haired beauty who seemed to be missing her top. She forgot that, but didn't forget the motorcycle she was riding. Whatever, she offered Shouko an exhausted smile, and the bicolored girl simply looked away in disinterest. She had achieved her goal, and she'd done it using only her mother's eyes. She sincerely hoped they showed the tape to her father, present Mike's congratulations being drowned out in her spiteful thoughts. She flipped her hair over her shoulder. It reached the top of her ribcage when she pulled it in front of her ears. Exactly the same as her mother had hers the last time Shouko saw her. Yes, today had been a victory, even if the person she was claiming her win for thought her a monster as hideous as her father. Yue is, well, about what she'd expected. Shouko takes her assigned seat without questioning. There's a boy with bright red hair and a pink girl with inky black eyes chatting excitedly with each other near the front, and their conversations halt as they both lean back with an enthusiastic wave and a greeting. She nods, which is essentially the Shouko equivalent to a big grin and a hello, before proceeding to watch the others fill in with considerable disinterest. A plain-looking boy with a tail, a charmingly frog-like girl, a stoic boy with a bird head who nods at her before taking the seat directly in front of her. So these are her classmates, HM. She couldn't remember a single name out of her middle school classmates. This seemed like it would be more of the same. Some stood out more than others as they piled in. The other girl from the recommendation exams gives her a smile of recognition before taking a seat next to her. This time, it looks like she didn't forget her shirt. Shouko gives a nod in return. Meanwhile, the far too loud and boisterous boy with glasses and wildly waving hands has an air about him that she can't quite place. She certainly doesn't think she's met him before, but he's familiar in a way. The next boy to come in short with purple balls dotted along his head in lieu of hair makes a whistling noise as he looks from Shouko to Ponytail Girl. Ponytail's face scrunches up in revulsion as Shouko merely blinks. She doesn't get it, but in any case, it seems like the last of the class was starting to file in. The glasses boy seemed to be speaking with a peppy brunette and green-haired girl near the front of the room, the latter seeming wildly embarrassed over something. She's not sure why her eyes hold onto that scene for longer than the rest or why something stirs in her chest, but her focus is quickly pulled to the strange caterpillar man shambling into the classroom. His attitude is one Shouko can work with, and she's one of the first out on the field in her gym uniform. Quirk assessment is chugging along easily, giving her a look at everyone's quirks. The other recommended girl, and she actually remembers this one's name, Yaoyorozu. Doesn't her father's PR firm do business with a corporation of that name? Indirectly confirms why she was missing her shirt during the exam. Her quirk seems to allow her to create things from her body mass, which is actually pretty impressive. Negating gravity, talking to animals, explosions, leg engines, and that's where she knows him. Ingenium has been to her estate once or twice for business affairs. He's not old enough to have a son, so this is likely a brother or other relative. Shouko wouldn't be the only legacy hero here, which is comforting in an odd way. She wouldn't be the only one living up to expectations. Speaking of expectations, the ones she's set for the green-haired girl have to be the lowest. She hasn't demonstrated any quirk at all yet, and the way she's practically radiating anxiety doesn't say many positive things about her. There's a brief incident between her and their teacher before his capture weapon releases and allows her to take the ball throw after a miserable first attempt. Shouko genuinely has no clue what her quirk is or if it's useful in any of these tests. Looks like she'll be the fur. Shouko's hair is pushed back in a gust of wind as the girl launches the ball like a rocket. Many years later, Shouko Todoroki will recall this as the moment she'd felt a twinge in her chest that she'd never experienced before, not knowing what to make of it at the time. For now, though, all that runs through her mind is what the fuck. There's shouts and cheers from Engine and Gravity, the rest of the class murmuring excitedly at what kind of quirk could possibly do something like that. Aizawa has to stop Explosion from charging the girl, who looks like she's cradling a broken finger. Erasure seems like an incredibly useful quirk when dealing with superpowered students, and it's oddly satisfying to see Bakugo shout and uselessly attempt to set off explosions. Despite his strong quirk, it's clear the boy is driven entirely by his emotions. Just another person from the other world, the world where people don't beat the feelings out of you. Sighing, Aizawa drags Bakugo back to the group before ordering the girl back to the crowd, though she walks meekly, head down and body crouched to make herself seem smaller, which was just odd considering Shouko doubted the girl even reached 5 feet standing straight up. Deku's shaky smile brings to mind a certain hero she was engineered to defeat. There's that twinge in her chest again. How odd. Shouko keeps looking her over to try and figure out why that might be. Now that she's within a few yards of her, Shouko can definitively say this Deku girl must be around 4'11" at the most. That said, she's clearly highly athletic underneath the gym uniform. Shouko notes she looks like she built herself for strength rather than endurance, like Shouko herself was crafted. Her biceps are visible as she cradles her broken hand, and the bicolored girl feels an emotion that she's certain must be jealousy, as she has no other classification for the pressure in her stomach that rose up so suddenly. All that said, the girl has a remarkable baby face, teary green eyes and chubby cheeks flanked with freckles. Her hair is a huge mop of wild green, tied up in a high ponytail that snuck all the way down to the small of her back. It was a peculiar contrast, honestly, but strength and sweetness somehow felt right on her. At some point, Deku seemed to have noticed her staring and gave the other girl a confused look, but Shouko's eyes remained fixated on her until she awkwardly stepped behind Engine Boy. What was so special about this ordinary girl? Shouko honestly didn't know, and the feeling soon passed as the tests move along. Deku comes dead last in the apprehension test, which is just confusing to Shouko. Surely a girl with that much muscle could have bested well over half the class in the grip test and overtaken most in the running portion. Not to mention how far her pitch had gone. The fact that the invisible girl or the purple boy staring at said invisible girls but in the gym pants somehow did better than her is just peculiar. Luckily, it turns out the expulsion threat was entirely false. The girl is sent to the nurse's office crying tears of relief, and Shouko pushes Deku from her mind as she meanders back to class. Whatever peculiar feeling is in her chest can be ignored in favor of the reason she's here. The day goes by in a flurry of teachers greeting them and syllabuses Shouko tucks neatly away in her backpack. Though much of the class sticks around after the final bell rings to chat, she has no time for that, leaving as soon as she can. There will be training tonight, she's sure of it, and she wants time to get her homework done first. She's learned over time that it's much harder to focus on school while you're trying not to strain exhausted muscles or lean against a fresh bruise. As soon as she opens the front door to her house, Fayumi pops her head out of the kitchen at the end of the hallway. Shouko, can you come here for a second? It's been a while since they were able to have a long conversation. The guilt over 2 years ago still aches from time to time. Shouko's heart cautioning her about putting her sister in the line of fire because of her own selfishness, no matter how much she craves a gentle touch or a chilly hand brushing through her hair gently. The words of her father on that day ring through her head like funeral bells. This is not the life you were created for. Even so, if Fayumi is beckoning her, Shouko walks forwards, hanging her backpack on the hook in the hallway before turning into the kitchen. The scene that greets her is a surprise in the way that finding an elephant wearing a top hat in your bathroom is a surprise completely unbelievable and entirely unprecedented. Fayumi is beaming at her, pink apron tied over her work clothes. Natsuo is seated at the kitchen table behind her, and he's smiling and offering a wave too. 3 beautifully presented bowls of zaru soba are set out on the table, and one is right in front of Shouko's chair as if it's waiting for her. You trying to catch flies or something? Natsuo teases, and Shouko belatedly realizes her mouth has been hanging open in shock. The girl quickly closes her mouth, but the bewilderment over the whole situation is still leaving her wide-eyed. It takes her a moment to even allow her eyes to flick to Fayumi in search of answers. Surprise! The older girl chuckles. Dad got a call today. They needed him for a situation way up in Miyagi. He's gonna be gone until tomorrow, so I figured we could have dinner together to celebrate your first day at UA. Shouko wants to pinch herself. How is all of this happening? Her siblings are here. It's her favorite food. The night is free of the bastard. They're all smiling at her, smiling like she isn't a cursed child who lead to their neglect and loss of their mother. Shouko, Fayumi's voice breaks through the spiral, and Shouko realizes her hands are trembling. It's real. All of this normal family life is real and it's happening to her. It looks really good. It's only her years of practice that allow Shouko to speak without her voice wavering and cracking. Really good. One-san, Oni-san. Thank you. Good. Fayumi wipes her forehead, giggling. I thought you were upset or something. How about we get to eating? Natsuo waves his hand in the air with a grin. Is UA still as crazy as I remember? Is Recovery Girl still there? Both her siblings had gone to UA too. Shouko remembers this, but they were both in general studies thanks to a number of factors. Their father had forbidden them from trying for the hero course. There was going to be just one heir to the Todoroki legacy, and it was going to be his perfect creation. Neither of them had much desire to be a hero in the first place, and despite Fayumi's ice quirk being on par with their mother's in sheer strength, in Natsuo's case, well, there'd never been a quirkless hero before. Sometimes, Shouko wondered if perhaps it was better to be the isolated child turned into an object for her father's prideful goals instead of the shameful burden kicked out on his 18th birthday and forced to change his surname to his mother so that he would no longer taint the family line. It wasn't the time to dwell on that, though. For now, Natsuo was back in the house, and they'd get to be a real family if only for a little bit. Taking a seat next to him and across from Fayumi, Shouko hides how she wants to freeze time and stay like this forever when Natsuo ruffles her hair affectionately. She'd spent less time with him than even Fayumi, the boy wisely choosing to hide himself away from their father's rage by either locking himself in his room or avoiding being home at all. Honestly, that and the fact that he was funding his own way through university might be the most she knows of Natsuo past their childhood playing. Even so, he's always been affectionate and kind, giving hugs and big smiles, and Shouko marvels at the fact that her siblings emerged from this cursed household so kind, so full of life, so loving. Over the taps of chopsticks, a scene from nearly 2 years ago replay. Natsuo became less of an acquaintance she sometimes saw around the house and more of a proper big brother over the slurping of noodle. She learnt that he was attending the same university Fayumi did and that he was majoring in biology, minoring in psychology. He wanted to become a doctor eventually. He has a girlfriend who was all the way from Nagasaki, and her quirk let her change her hair color to whatever she liked. Recently, he's been learning sign language because it seemed interesting. Shouko could only listen, taking it all in. In turn, she offered what meager information she had on herself. She hung a bird feeder outside her window lately to watch the robins. Her new teacher is a pro she's never heard of. One of Ingenium's relatives is in her class. The table filled with life, Fayumi joining in. Shouko still wasn't fully convinced this wasn't a dream she was having. A normal family dinner, normal sibling talk, normal. Briefly, she excuses herself to the restroom with Natsuo's teasing call of "call us if you get lost," prompting a secret smile as she exits their line of sight. Now, washing her hands and staring into the mirror, Shouko is alone with her thoughts. Did they ever feel jealous? Asks one. Jealous of me? Because although her childhood was hell, the burning hell that sometimes led her to bite at her own wrists to try and express her own helpless rage in the only way she was ever taught, she was at least acknowledged. Natsuo got it worst of all. Obviously, the mere concept that one of his own children could be quirkless seemed to drive Endeavor to fury. But Fayumi had been ignored unless she was somehow important to Shouko's development. Her quirk was powerful, but their father had very little interest in ice alone. She was the mother after her own left, forced to learn to cook and clean and tend to wounds. Of course there were maids and other employees, but their numbers dwindled as Shouko got older. Shouko figures it was probably to keep loose lips from spilling the truth about this hell house. Had they ever looked at Shouko, showered in attention and given first priority in any situation, sent to the best private schools and given the best tutors, raised to have the career just about everyone dreamed of? It was possible. Shouko knew she was often jealous of them. In any case, she'd been a bit jealous of Taoya when she was extremely small, considering all the attention he got from their father. Now she knows what a foolish thing that was to envy. This was a curse, and he just got out in time. She's not so lucky. Did her siblings miss him? Do they know where he went? Shouko was far too young and hardly saw him. She was less attached. But he would have been Natsuo's older brother, someone to look up to and pester out of love. And Fayumi, well, he was her twin. Shouko can't imagine how badly Taoya vanishing must have hurt her. Does she think about him sometimes? She realized that she'd been staring blankly into the mirror with the water running for a bit too long. Turning off the water and drying her hands, Shouko swiftly returned to the dining room. Negative thoughts could be pushed aside for now. This was a rare good day, and she wasn't about to let thoughts about her doomed legacy ruin it. Taking her seat, she managed to smile gently back at Fayumi. Welcome back, Shouko lad. You guys still use that nickname? Natsuo beamed. When it's just the two of us, sometimes. Shouko nodded. Though it wasn't really something punishment-worthy, she had no idea how Endeavor might react to the cutesy nickname. What if he took it as a sign Fayumi was interfering too much with his prized creation? Best to just not use it and avoid unnecessary conflict. Natsuo laughed between slurps of his soba. I'm sure whoever came up with it was devilishly handsome and brilliant. Shouko lad. They've exchanged more words within the span of an hour than they have in 8 years. Shouko realizes numbly, and a part of her heart that managed to escape her eyes twinges with sadness at the realization that they won't get to be a normal family like this for a very long time. It could have been different, couldn't it? Things like this could have been their version of normal had they not all pulled the short stick when it came to their birth family. Imagine if they didn't all have to memorize each floorboard that creaked in the house and instead lived a life where getting scolded didn't mean the two grown-up big sister treating burns and covering bruises. That was a reality that could have been theirs, once. Well, she could focus on what if some other time. Fayumi's genuinely happy smile. Natsuo's presence, Shouko's free night without training. These were rare moments, as were most of Shouko's voyages into the normal world she was denied. She was going to hold on to these precious memories as tightly as she could. The peace brought on by their dinner was temporary, even as Shouko's heart ached for it to last longer. The next day, Natsuo was gone. He had to be. Endeavor returning while he was there would have been a disaster, and the house was Shouko's alone. Fayumi having left early for work with an apology note on the kitchen table and the encouragement that she have some toast for breakfast. Shouko leaves without food. She doesn't feel particularly hungry right now. The next day is normal school, mostly. Things she's done her entire life. Math and science never interested her, but she can handle all of it fine enough. What is new is when All Might enters the room with a bang loud enough that Shouko subconsciously tenses. Her mechanical pencil creaking as it's coated in frost from how hard her hand is clenching it. All Might is no threat, she reminds herself, but it takes a minute for her ears to stop ringing. She doesn't like the sound of doors slamming. There are plenty of noises Shouko hates, really. Nails on chalkboards, people chewing out loud. They're given their hero costumes. Shouko smiling slightly in the dressing room when she realizes it's been built just as she requested. Though she was honestly more comfortable in something subtle and loose. That was also what her father's design team had recommended when talks about a potential costume arose last year. Though he'd been displeased with her choice, he couldn't stop Shouko from submitting her request for a skin-tight bodysuit in pure white, the left side of her body encased in an ice-like armor. The heater is on her back, looped around both shoulders and under her chest, and she can feel the idle warmth as she slips it on, ensuring one half is tucked under her ice armor suitably. It only heats, never cools. She won't ever need it to cool. Your costume is very nice, Todoroki. A voice from beside her speaks, and Yaoyorozu is smiling at her. Her own costume is fitting for her quirk. A bodysuit sits slightly lower around her hips than an average bathing suit, a yellow belt of unopened pockets sitting around her waist. The costume goes up to her neck, a long closed zipper running from there to below where her belly button presumably. A white cape graces her shoulders, and Shouko briefly wonders if she had a professional team aiding her in the design. The Yaoyorozu family certainly had the money for it. Thank you, so is yours. Shouko can compliment a good design when she sees it. The rest of the girls are mulling about excitedly, complimenting each other's costumes as they finish getting them on. Shouko's eyes drift to Deku's green, skin-tight suit as the girl pulls her wild green ponytail through a hole in the back of her head covering. The whole thing looks a little tacky and hastily made, frankly. Skin-tight seems to be the norm among female heroes, herself included, so she's not surprised that a quick glance leaves earphone girl and the floating pair of gloves as the only outliers. Shouko doesn't have much time to focus on that, though, as everyone else is piling out of the change room, and she's not about to be left behind. Just about everyone else is outside. Shouko instantly noticing Engine Boy and his ingenium-like costume. So he'd be carrying on that particular legacy, Just another thing to differentiate her family from most other heroic households. There's a twinge of disappointment, of maybe someone would have understood before Shouko quickly squashes it, turning to All Might. Battle Trials sounded decent enough. Shouko finds herself paired up with Amizo Shaoji, who nods as they search the crowd for each other. They won't be going for a while, and the other two they'll be paired up against Masaru Ajiro and Toru Hagakure don't seem like any sort of significant threat. As the first groups are sent off to their posts, Deku is shaking in her sneakers, it seems, and the stare Bakugo gives her is downright feral. Shouko has a bad feeling about this. We should formulate a plan of action. A voice interrupts her thoughts, and she turns to find Shaoji towering over her. Shouko's a bit tall for her age and ethnicity. 5'6" last time she measured, and she still finds this guy huge. Those were mutant quirks for you, she supposed. Perhaps. Shouko takes a moment to cast an icy glare at the great boy whose eyes are locked firmly on her rear. The boy blanches and skitters back good. She knows she can give a mean scowl when she wants to, but she settles her expression into her normal one of neutral distaste as she turns back to Shaoji. Can you explain your quirk? My quirk is called Dupli Arms. Shaoji starts, raising his 6 interconnected limbs up. I can recreate my own body parts on the ends, and they have enhanced abilities when compared to the original. To demonstrate, he creates a mouth on the end of one of his limbs, which then begins talking for him. I can manifest many different parts at once, as well. It's creepy to watch, but it's nonetheless going to be useful for what Shouko is already planning. I see. Her eyes flick briefly to the screens around the room as the teams start off. Deku and Gravity Girl climbing in through a side window. Can you determine where people are by their footsteps? If you make an ear, that is. Generally, yes. Shaoji nods. Good. Do that when the match starts, and I'll handle the rest. At her response, Shaoji cocks an eyebrow. Are you sure? What's your quirk? Shouko figured she couldn't really afford to lie about her quirk, but she could stretch the truth in regards to what it was capable. My quirk is half hot, half cold. I can generate large amounts of ice. I'll freeze the building and keep them in place while I get the bomb. She could almost feel Shaoji's apprehension at both the name and the described ability, but he seems content to leave it be for now, turning to the screens as Shouko does. It looks like Bakugo has found Deku, and Shouko finds herself cringing at the cruelty of the situation. There's no reason for him to brutalize her like that, and she feels an unpleasant memory crawl up her spine and tingle at the back of her neck. Electric Boy Kaminari makes a comment about Bakugo not holding back at all against a girl, and she'd roll her eyes at the dated commentary if she could pull her eyes away from the screen. An enormous explosion covers the camera in smoke, Bakugo ignoring All Might's warning, and Shouko releases a breath she didn't realize she was holding in when Deku stumbles to her feet, parts of her costume torn and skin reddened in familiar burn patterns. For an awful second, it genuinely didn't look like she was coming back from that. Shouko finds herself echoing the same opinion as multiple of her classmates. Why isn't she using her power? Deku is being beaten to the ground, picked up and thrown like a rag doll, and it's almost infuriating. Did she just forget what she did to the baseball the other day? The pink girl in the eye-straining costume makes a noise between a gasp and a whimper as Deku braces for an impact. The entire upper floor shatters with the combined force of an explosion and a punch, rubble flying wildly and disrupting multiple camera angles. Ida and Gravity are blown back, though the girl takes the opportunity to quickly grab a pillar and launch a flurry of debris at the boy. Shouko's barely paying attention when Gravity jumps onto the bomb like the rest of the class, Her eyes are fixated on Deku's broken body, arm bent back so far and burned so deeply that she feels her stomach twist. She collapses in a pile of rubble, legs equally twisted, and Bakugo can only stare, slack-jawed, at the girl who broke herself just to set up a convoluted plan. Even so, she wins. She won like that. Even so, that kind of attack. Shouko thinks she knows why she was so interested in this girl now. She's not sure her current theory is correct, but if it is, things are going to get complicated. The rest of the matches and their results are no shock to her. Her own match with Shoji is over in a heartbeat, Shouko barely acknowledging the frozen Hagakure and Ajiro as she went to claim the bomb. It also turns out that the girl is not named Deku, but Izumi Midoriya. That makes more sense. Shouko learns this through the concerned whispers of Uraraka Gravity Girl, apparently in Ida, which she finds herself ignoring Team G and Team C's battle in order to eavesdrop. Midoriya's quirk is called Superpower, and it apparently has a bad habit of injuring her whenever she uses it. That seems like an inconvenient limitation. Shouko knows the pain that comes with quirk overuse, but decimation on that level is really bad. She wonders how long Midoriya will last in the hero course like that, and then takes a moment to puzzle over why the thought leaves a bad taste in her mouth. As the exercise wraps up and Shouko finds herself in the change room, she ponders over the results. Who was her biggest competition here? It had been drilled into her mind that every other student was a rival, someone she'd have to overcome eventually to become number one. Honestly, the biggest threats from what she'd seen as of yet were Yaoyorozu, Bakugo, and Tokoyami in descending order. Yaoyorozu had easily the most versatile quirk in the classroom, and she'd even come ahead of Shouko in the assessment test the day before. She was the one to watch out for the most. Bakugo's power level was completely insane, but his entitled attitude was clearly holding him back. If Shouko was lucky, he'd eventually get himself expelled and she could tick him off the list. Tokoyami was more of a dark horse, but she'd seen his careful steps and planned out maneuvers during his combat trial. Not watching him would be a mistake. She was caught up in her thoughts as she changed, ignorant to the world around her. Stupid mistake. Shouko didn't even realize someone was trying to get her attention until her bare back was prodded right where her spine still ached from a vicious kick during last week's training with her father. Reflexively, Shouko spun around, grabbing the offender's wrist and wrenching it upwards. It was a simple move, one that had been beat into her when she failed to perform it correctly, so it was instinct to perform. Until she heard the pain yowl and remembered that this was the change room, not the training room, she was fully prepared to follow through with the traditional knee to the sternum. Shouko blinked once, and the attacker vanished, replaced by a squirming girl with horns and pink skin. This was Ashido. Shouko promptly releases her, and the girl makes a sound between a wheeze and a laugh as she rubs her wrists. Geez, Todoroki, you sure don't mess around. Sorry. Shouko takes a little too long to respond, something she hopes escapes the attention of the rest of the change room, who are staring in bewilderment at the scene. It's okay. Straightening up as she stretches her arms out, Ashido beams at her, black eyes lighting up as she leans in. She got over that fast anyways. I was trying to ask you something, but you were totally spaced out. Shouko knows she has a tendency to do that, and doesn't see it as apology-worthy when she's already said she's sorry once. What was it? Who do you think the cutest guy is? Ashido leans in further, prompting Shouko to take a step back. Our classic Japanese beauty must have an opinion. Blinking, Shouko wonders if she somehow misheard all of that. The sound of something getting swatted in front of her brings her back from the inside of her head, which is currently playing the Wii channel theme and swirling with question marks, and to the present, where Ashido is pouting after earphone girl smacked her with an earlobe. At least let the girl get dressed, Ashido. Ah, boo. Ashido pouts, big and overdramatic. You're no fun, Jiru. Jiru, if that turns out to be her name, rolls her eyes. I'm reasonable. We don't even know the guys yet, but we know their faces. If we were just judging attractiveness based off faces, Bakugo might win. But he's way too cruel to ever really be cute. Ribbit. Well, Sue doesn't hold anything back. Shouko has lost interest in the conversation. In fact, she didn't have any interest to start with. Everyone was going to be in for a rude awakening if they thought something as trivial as romance could happen in the cutthroat world of heroism. Why even bother? She's seen how relationships blend with heroics. They go together like gasoline in a lighter, water in a grease fire, screaming teapots, and the face of a terrified little girl howling, "Mama, stop! Mama, please! Mama, why?" Shouko wants to stop thinking about this. It's not their fault they don't know. They'll learn one way or another, and it's not her responsibility to teach them. She ignores Yaoyorozu's concerned glance at how tight her expression has gone as she changes and leaves the dressing room first. Midoriya doesn't return to classes that day. Shouko leaves at the last bell without waiting for anyone else. Why would she? There's training at home, and she can't afford to be late. The next few days are more of the same. Sans one of their classmates almost killing another, and Shouko has no problem keeping up with both the physical and academic portions, even with burns and bruises distracting her. She wished her fool of a father could acknowledge that perhaps he could tone down his training now that she was at UA. She's running laps and improving her quirk each day at school, so there's no need for more at home. At the very least, Shouko wishes he'd learned to tone down that damn flame to prevent little burns she's changing around other people now, and bandages and cover-up can only hide the truth for so long. She almost doesn't air that opinion until the cruel voice that seems to follow her around just to jab at any exposed weak points whispers, "You're a true Todoroki woman, weak and cowed into silence. HM. And the next thing she knows, she's snapping at her father about it, and Fayumi is left to help her cover up another black eye. Whatever. The only remotely exciting thing to happen is Thursday. They elect a class president, and Shouko votes for Yaoyorozu with little hesitation. She herself has zero desire for the role, and so far, the other girl is the only one who hasn't demonstrated either complete incompetence or extreme irresponsibility. She gets vice president, and Midoriya winds up class president. Not shocking, considering that these things were always based on popularity. The small girl already has a close-knit circle of friends, and there's no doubt most of the class feels sympathetic for her after the training incident with Bakugo. What is surprising is the way Midoriya gives up the position to Ida after a very confusing lunch hour. It's a strange opportunity to squander. But if she wants to decrease her chances of making it big, that's not Shouko's problem. Friday comes, and there's apparently going to be a special exercise today, rescue training at the USJ. Shouko's never gotten that down past the basics. Her father isn't a rescue hero primarily. His quirk is too oriented towards combat, so she's looking forwards to learning how her ice might be useful when it comes time to save others. So naturally, everything goes to hell in about 5 seconds. In a confusing cloud of panic, Shouko learns several things. 1. Aizawa is apparently an underground pro called Eraserhead. 2. These villains intend to kill them. And 3. Bakugo and Kirishima are complete morons. She ruminates in irritation on the last bit as she's pulled into a warp gate and landing flat on her back in the landslide zone of the USJ. The villains are nothing. Honestly, Shouko barely even feels a hint of adrenaline as carefully practiced ice floods over the ruined ground, stabilizing it and trapping each of the hired thugs up to their chins. Shifting gracefully to the side as she senses movement behind her, Shouko grabs a spear mid-attack, ice shifting down the weapon and holding the struggling villain in place. He looks genuinely terrified, but Shouko feels no sympathy as she leans in to glare at him. "You're encased fully in ice. I'd give it 10 minutes until frostbite starts to kick in. From there, your cells will die slowly. It starts in your hands and feet before it creeps up your entire body, killing all sensation beyond repair. Unless you're interested in becoming a quadruple amputee, you'll be answering my questions." If she wasn't so focused on the battle, Shouko might have been disturbed by the way she spoke too much like her father and his cruel manner of handling villains. But she's too busy to draw attention to the troubling parallel, and her glare only darkens as the villain whimpers in fear. Well, time's ticking. Shouko almost wanted to laugh as she learned of the villain's plans, knocking them out before allowing a slight amount of warmth to sneak past her palm, kick-starting the process of thawing them out. Kill All Might. Seriously, what a bunch of prideful idiots. It was All Might, and, given that the hero in question had just burst in seconds ago, it looked like things were going to be resolved quickly. Even so, when that monster appeared, well, Shouko couldn't explain what triggered her to freeze herself a bridge of ice, rushing to the plaza. Call it heroic instinct, but something felt wrong here. And as she watched the battle between the monster and All Might, she knew her assumptions were correct. He was pinned down between the warp gate villain, and if she didn't act now, Shouko swings her arm out, firing out her ice in a controlled sheet that encases half the monster like a blanket. It makes a horrifying screech at the impact, and it gives All Might just enough time to free himself from its grasp. Sighing in relief, Shouko stands guard by the warp gate villain, who has been pinned down by Bakugo. Regarding the misty void with furious eyes, her gaze is quickly drawn to All Might, and her eyes widen. She's never seen him hit something so many times, with so much force. Shouko feels her mouth hang open in amazement as the symbol of peace himself takes down a foe that she'd seen destroy her teacher only minutes earlier, sending it flying with a victorious smash as the creature goes straight through the USJ's ceiling. A childish flurry of glee overcomes her even as her face stays blank. She'd seen All Might help in person. She'd even helped, somewhere in a cold heart, a little girl with bicolored hair and high pigtails squeals in happiness. Even so, it's not done yet. There's so much smoke, something isn't right with All Might, and the hand villain charges, and Midoriya screams, full power filling her body as she flies forwards, arms extended in a punch. Even from this angle, Shouko can see the girl's legs flopping unnaturally, no doubt horribly broken. That villain with the disintegration powers if she runs into him. The pang of fear in Shouko's heart, however, is interrupted by gunshots, and the hand villain goes down as Midoriya skids out on the ground. Ada's voice booms across the USJ, and as Present Mike's scream is heard, Shouko realizes the teachers have arrived. All Might is fine, Midoriya is fine, she's fine. The following events are all a blur. Shouko and her classmates gathering outside, surrounded by police and paramedics. Shouko's fine, not a scratch on her, and spends the bus ride back to school in pointed silence. Fayumi texted her earlier, saying she saw the news and was on the way to pick her up from school. Her sister brings back the realization that, oh, right, she has a house and a family to return to after her entire class found themselves the victims of attempted murder. She has mundane things to worry about, even as everyone else seems to find their worlds turned upside down. Will her father hold back on the training tonight, knowing how today went? Later that evening, Shouko learns he will not. There is another incident the day school starts back up, and even though it's not nearly on the level of a large-scale villain attack against a group of first-year students, it manages to shake Shouko to an uncomfortable point. It was the middle of heroics history, midnight going over something about an addition to hero law in the 80s. Shouko honestly wasn't paying attention. She knows most of this already, having grown up with a pro who grumbled endlessly over paperwork and incident reports, and something else had her attention. Namely, her stomach hurts. She'd been trying to grit her teeth and bear it for the most part, but this was just unpleasant. It was like something is gnawing at her from the inside out, heating her up to a point where even her attempts to regulate her heat with her ice weren't helping. Was it something she ate? Breakfast was rice, miso, and smoked salmon, so it wasn't out of the ordinary for her at all. It could just be a random ailment, and Shouko sighed internally as she imagined her father forcing her to train through it because heroes don't have sick days. Shouko. Whatever. In fact, she didn't take any sort of action until she felt an uncomfortably cold feeling on her legs. Looking down, Shouko's eyes widened as she realized that not only was there a red stain on the front of her skirt, but she was sitting in a small pool of blood that made a disgusting squelching noise as she shifted in surprise. What the hell? Was she injured somehow? They hadn't had heroic fundamentals yet. It couldn't have been from that. Shouko's brain racked itself for answers. Could training last night have resulted in internal bleeding of some kind? She found that unlikely, as last night was comparatively easy. She'd only had a bruise on her arm to cover up, nothing that could cause a slow flow of blood the day afterwards. Running through a few other scenarios, Shouko came to the conclusion that she had no clue what was going on, but it couldn't be good. She raised her hand, Midnight looking at her quizzically. Is something the matter, Todoroki? Shouko must have looked mildly distressed. She could feel her brow furrow, lips pursed tightly. May I go to recovery, girl? I believe I've been injured. Injured? Midnight asked, looking concerned. Eyes are on her now, the peculiarity of her statement drawing looks. She could hear Yaoyorozu gasp from her left. Where are you hurt, honey? I don't know. My stomach was bothering me, and when I looked down there was blood on my. What are you doing? Shouko cut herself off as Yaoyorozu stumbled to her feet, eyes wide with frantic concern as she yanked her own jacket off to throw it over Shouko's lap. Todoroki, it's stained, she yelled, looking worried. Shouko's face remained the same, but internally, her tension was rising. Was it bad? Yes, I am aware. Shouko heard Satu stumble over words to her right, and as she turned her head, he was very pointedly turned away from her. To her front, Takoyami quickly swivels back around. Dark Shadow makes an embarrassed-sounding chirp. Yaoyorozu looked confused, and there was a gasp of recognition from Midoriya as she, too, clambered to her feet, rushing over. Todoroki, don't worry, I have a stain remover in my bag. We can just... Why does everyone seem to know what's going on except me? Shouko cuts Midoriya off, irritation sneaking into her tone. She doesn't like being left out of things when they're pertinent to her. Miss Midnight, there's blood between my legs and on my chair. I can't determine the cause. There was a multitude of awkward squeaks and sympathetic oof sounds throughout the room. Midnight looked thrown off guard, to say the least. Todoroki, it's okay. I'm going to come with you to recovery, girl. Alright. That made sense, at least. Shouko still didn't understand why half the males of the class were either blushing or staring at literally anything else. She heard Minta make a faux gagging sound to her side. You, gross. Are you 10 fucking years old? Grape shit. An unexpected ally comes in the form of Bakugo, who turns around and stares Minta down with a glare that could melt icebergs. If you're gonna be a dumbass over a period and still expect the girls to even glance at your shitty little face, you're even stupider than I thought. Minta makes a meeping noise, staying quiet. Shouko breaks the brief silence. Period. What do you mean? Once again, silence falls. Yaoyorozu and Midoriya both look bewildered at her, and the other girls who had started to stand look equally as surprised. Midnight looks confused for a moment before shaking it off, heading towards Shouko. It's all right, honey. Let's go to recovery, girl. Please, allow me to come as well. Yaoyorozu barks out, blushing as she realizes how loud she was. She's my classmate too, and me too. Midoriya abruptly raises a hand. Miss Midnight, let me come. I got a tone for scaring her in the change room the other day. She needs some aid through this, Ribbit. I mean, it isn't like we'll be learning without a teacher, so I'm coming. I don't you know what. Screw it. I'm coming along. I have extra middle. I'm coming too. Before Shouko knows it, the entire female population of Class 1 has gotten to their feet, insistent on following Shouko to the nurse. Midnight calls out for a somewhat flustered-looking Ada to keep the peace as she comes along. She still has no clue what the hell is going on as she's ushered down the hallway. The first person to question her is the invisible girl, who turns to her with a predictably unreadable expression as they travel in a pack down the first stairwell. Todoroki, is this your first time getting your period? 15's super late. Hagakure. Yaoyorozu scolds as she finishes tying her own jacket around Shouko's waist, something she'd been working on doing since they left the classroom. That's impolite. It's fine, Yaoyorozu. Shouko hates herself for the sudden unsure tone that creeps into her voice. She hates sounding vulnerable. I still don't know what you all mean by period. The looks on everyone's faces are nothing short of gobsmacked. Though she rarely feels embarrassed, Shouko feels something adjacent to that at their stares. Midnight hums sadly, placing a hand on her shoulder. The touch is gentle, almost maternal, and Shouko resists the urge to lean closer. Menstruation, darling. Do you know what that is? No, whatever she's missing is clearly important if the concerned expressions being sent her way are anything to go by. Midnight rubs her shoulder gently, and Shouko allows herself to inch slightly closer to the teacher, close enough to faintly feel body heat. That's all right, hon. Recovery girl can go over it with you. This is normal. Normal. She's bleeding. Shouko masks her confusion with a nod, and instead focuses on Jiru and her slightly awkward cough. What about your mom? She didn't bring it up to you. My mother is out of the picture. It's not exactly private knowledge that Endeavor's spouse mysteriously stopped being present for all public events, so Shouko doesn't feel nervous revealing that. What does make her nervous is talk about mothers while she's so close to midnight. Her useless brain is chirping at her like a bird, making associations between the gentle hand on her shoulder and a touch she's missed for the better half of a decade. And it's taking all of Shouko's energy to shut it up. Oh, Jiru's cheeks were pink already, but her blush deepens further at the response. Sorry, it's fine, Shouko says, because it is. By this point, they're standing outside of Recovery Girl's office. Midnight leaves to go talk to the other woman and explain the situation, and that leaves Shouko and the rest of the girls waiting just outside. A voice catches her attention, and Shouko's gaze turns to Midoriya. The girl is wearing a nervous smile as she speaks, and a fluttering feeling shoots through Shouko's chest. She bets it's because of how ill she's feeling already. Don't feel embarrassed, okay? This happens sometimes. Yeah, don't worry. Uraraka's cheerful tone feels a bit forced with how much enthusiasm her voice is carrying, but the bass is still quite genuine. When I got my first period, I was in class 2. I didn't even realize until I got up to answer a question on the board. Oh, that's rough. Ashido winces sympathetically. I got mine wearing white shorts. It was super bad. I'm sure we all have stories about ours. I don't. Suyu speaks placidly as always, and Shouko can't help but find her neutral expression and croaking voice a bit comforting right now, even if she doesn't know what exactly they're talking about. Is this blood normal? I'm transgender, but I try to carry painkillers or pads just in case someone else does. Ribbit. Shouko actually knows what that means this time. It's a well-known fact that the current number 3 hero, Hawks, has been open about being a trans man since his debut. He's funded multiple charities for transgender youth, something she finds reassuring in the way that it at least proved to her that not every high-ranked hero was hiding a beastly interior. Shouko has met him, and likes him well enough, even if her father seems irritated by him. Jiru makes a surprised noise beside her. Wait, you're also... I thought I was the only trans girl in the class. Her voice is a mixture of surprise and relief. So it's 2 of us now, Ribbit. How nice. Like Hawks. Ashido smiles brightly. Well, not exactly, but you know. Uraraka beams. It's so nice of you to come anyways. Girls supporting girls. Stories of identities and badly timed events are interrupted as the door opens, Midnight walking out with Recovery Girl. The old woman smiles understandingly at Shouko before nodding to the other girls. Well, let's get this all sorted out, shall we? You girls can go back to class. Wait, we can't leave her. She's probably really confused. Ashido says something accurate for a change, though Shouko's not sure why them sticking around would help any. Recovery Girl sighs, waving a hand. Then I can explain everything to her. Don't you have a class to be in? How about you ladies return when I'm all done here? Provided Miss Midnight gives you her permission, of course. The older woman casts a gaze up to the pro, who nods with a smile. With some final grumbling and offers, Shouko is ushered into the nurse's office, the older woman inviting her to sit on the bed. Seeing the way the girl hesitates, Recovery Girl chuckles, patting the bed. It's lined in paper, sweetheart. Don't you worry about a stain. A stain of any type on a couch at home would have been disastrous, and even with this reassurance, it takes Shouko a moment to sit down, shifting Yaoyorozu's jacket to cover her front and to avoid sitting on it. There's a few moments of near silence, Recovery Girl humming slightly as she digs through a drawer before emerging with a notepad and a warm smile. Now, dearie, can you tell me what you know about menstruation? About 30 minutes later, Shouko leaves the nurse's office embarrassed and enraged. Not at Recovery Girl. Of course, the old woman was as sweet as could be. There was no reason to be upset with her. No, she's angry at, well, her situation in general, but mostly at her father. Recovery Girl had gone over a lot with her, teaching her what a period was, why it happened, how to deal. It was entirely new for Shouko, a girl whose closest female contact was often too nervous to meddle with their father's precious creation in any way. At one point, the conversation had veered into other aspects of her health apparently. Hagakure's earlier comment about 15 being late for your cycle to start was very much true. Hugh taking her height, weight, inquiring about her exercise and eating habits. Recovery Girl had made a humming noise as she delivered her results. Well, Todoroki, I'm going to tentatively state that you haven't been eating enough for most of your youth, and that added to your exercise routine has delayed your period well past the average age. If this keeps up, you're at risk to developing what we call the female athlete triad, and that's going to affect your health negatively for the rest of your life. While it's good for a hero to be firmly in shape, not taking breaks and exercising moderation can be very bad for you. The doctor had tapped the girl's thigh, taut with thin muscle. Shouko had known her eating patterns weren't the best. Her father strictly regulated what she ate, and denying her food was not at all uncommon when she underperformed. Over time, she'd gotten good at hiding stolen snacks around the house, some crackers tucked in rolled-up socks, a pocket stitched into her futon that often hid granola bars, and so on. But feeling full was something she often found herself being denied. Recovery Girl had continued on, scribbling something on a piece of paper before handing it to the student. Here's my recommended treatment, dearie. The supplements aren't expensive and can be added to your food. Make sure you tell your father you shouldn't exercise at home for longer than 40 minutes a day. Not until you've put on at least 20 pounds in fat. You'll be training at school anyways. It's important we allow your body to catch up. Your fertility could be damaged if you keep going. Please don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions about women's health. I know it must be hard with just your father. Oh man, didn't Shouko ever know that? Apparently most girls were taught about this in the third grade. Shouko's school didn't have a sex ed program. Both her elementary and middle schools had been private and high-price affairs, places where parents didn't want to encourage delinquent behavior by teaching the students about basic human bodily function. Her own body had always been a tool for the man who created her. She knew this, but it was still the body of a human. Why was she never told about this? Her thoughts swirled in her rage, trying to find her answers. Did her father just forget? Did it slip his mind that his perfect creation was also the bearer of 2 X chromosomes, would eventually reach maturity and have her first period in the middle of class? Shouko's mind shot back to her life not long after her quirk. It manifested: the hair being cut, only being permitted a skirt when it was a school uniform. The makeup, the burns and Fayumi's black eye, all in the name of some powders and creams. Had he wanted a son all along? She didn't know, but the mere prospect was enough for deep rage to simmer in her stomach. It was not the first time Shouko wanted to explode at her father, consequences be damned, and it would not be the last time. Recovery Girl had offered to call the other girls back as they'd initially wanted to do, but Shouko had declined. She was feeling ashamed. She'd never known she was supposed to before today. The embarrassment of having basically shouted into an air horn that her period had started to her entire class now itching under her skin. Shouko didn't even want to go back. But it wasn't like she had a choice. When she marched into the classroom, a new skirt and an aching stomach soothed with painkillers, there was an uncomfortable silence. Shouko nodded absent-mindedly as Midnight asked her if she was feeling better, walking over and dropping the freshly washed blazer in her arms on Yaoyorozu's desk before sitting down, returning to her notes and doing her best to sink into the cold as she always did, blocking off feelings and hiding away from the poorly disguised stares in a cloak of ice. Shouko was waiting in the front room when her father got home, sitting next to the kotatsu and dressed in comfortable sweatpants and a tank top she'd gotten as a hand-me-down from Fayumi. Speaking of the eldest Todoroki daughter, she had texted Shouko to say she'd be working later than usual, so the younger girl was fully prepared to confront Endeavor alone about this. Her rage had not cooled despite her best efforts. Ideas of how she'd go about this swirling and rendering any hope of taking coherent notes for the rest of the day moot. Now, though, she had a pretty good idea. Even if the sound of the garage door made her hands instinctively tighten, Shouko held steady as the man walked through the door. I was in Recovery Girl's office today. Endeavor paused as he slipped off his shoes, probably having changed at the office before coming home. God knows all the attention he'd draw in full regalia. And why are you telling me? I'm not allowed to exercise out of school for longer than 40 minutes a day until I gain at least 20 pounds. Shouko fixed him with a stare. In fact, not in muscle. Her father raises an eyebrow, irritation clear on his face. And just why the hell would you need to do that? Shouko grits her teeth, meeting his bright blue eyes. I learned what a period is today, and how strange it is to start yours at 15. I learned it because I got my first one in the middle of class and humiliated myself in front of everyone by not knowing why the hell there was blood on my skirt. Taking advantage of her father's flabbergasted expression, the one he always wore when their sad excuses for conversations inched towards femininity, Shouko continued, raising her voice and channeling the anger and embarrassment from earlier. Recovery Girl said I have to put on 20 pounds. Or I might be sabotaging my own process. Shouldn't you have known this when you decided on my regimen? Don't you dare take that tone of voice with me, Shouko. Endeavor snaps back, recovering from the shock of recalling his child was female quicker than Shouko might have liked. You really think you're going to rise to the top spot if you take breaks where the male heroes around you don't? You're already fighting at a disadvantage as is. Even if this is dangerous, even if she knows how it's going to end, Shouko bares her teeth and allows more rage to seep into her voice. Expressing anger has never done anything but gotten her beaten, but she is so tired of holding everything and learning to bandage her burns. Scars. The raw bite marks digging into her forearms as she expresses her fury in the only way she was ever shown. Getting to her feet, she stands 5 feet away from her father, her nostrils flaring. What disadvantage? Is it because you think women are weaker? You've already driven any hope of being a normal girl out of me, and you think continuing to destroy my health will do anything but lead me to retiring in my 20s. She hates him, and the rising heat in the front room may not be from Endeavor alone. A part of Shouko is screaming to stop. She intended to make him uncomfortable, not to do this, but she can't stop her rage from billowing out. She is a Todoroki, a legacy built on tears and fury and destroying anything in your way. She should have known it would end in violence. She is bound to feelings of lividness. A cursed child who was too stupid to see past her own disposition. Endeavor moves much quicker than Shouko ever could. And there's a slap across her face, strong enough to send her skidding backwards in a sick recreation of a certain argument over hairstyles when she was 5. Fuck, he's pissed. She's sent flying on top of the kotatsu. The electric heater making a creaking noise as it breaks under her weight, wood splintering while her body crashes through it onto the floor. A sharp pain runs up her back, and she shrieks. Endeavor grabs Shouko by the collar, eyes blazing in every sense of the word. You should have been a son. The man roars, shaking her. Shouko tastes blood. She thinks she bit her tongue. Your quirk should have been Taoya's, Natsuo's. Instead it went to an ungrateful brat who can't understand what I've sacrificed to try and level the playing field for her. You think you can afford a day off. You think you're deserving of special treatment. That villains care that you're a woman. Then you've thought wrong. Fuck you. Shouko screams like a trapped animal. Ice she summons being melted instantly by the sheer force of her father's hellfire. The rage overshadows her fear, the girl baring her bloodied teeth. You think I can control how my body functions? I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to be a woman. I didn't ask to have this quirk. I don't twist and turn in the ways you want. I'm tired of being your fucking legacy because you weren't good enough. I'm your daughter, and I'm the best you're ever going to have. There is a silence, a moment of calm before the storm, as 2 hateful sets of eyes meet. Shouko is braced for impact. Almost craving the validation of a broken nose or handprints around her neck, she's hit a nerve, and she wants nothing more than for her father to prove that she's lost the battle but won the war. Instead, Endeavor does something strange. He drops her. Shouko tumbles back onto the wreck of what was once the kotatsu, staring up at him in confusion as he stands silently. Why isn't he hitting her? What are you? Her father looks pensive as he looks down at her, but there's no sorrow or anger. Instead, he looks like he's just understood something. So you want to be treated like a woman, do you? If you're going to turn your back on the hand I offered that would have pulled you out of that fate, then so be it. Even though he doesn't sound angry, there's a threat in his voice. Shouko doesn't know what she did, but she knows she fucked up, unable to do anything but stare up at Endeavor in confusion as he leaves the room with a parting word. Go see the healer. No training tonight. Don't say I didn't warn you, Shouko Todoroki. Shouko has no clue what the hell just happened. He'd never reacted like that before, and she's not sure that it's any better than being left with an eye swollen shut. She didn't mean to get that aggressive, nor for it to go this far. She's an idiot for thinking she was anything but blood and rage. For a moment, all she can think is poor Kotatsu as she lies in the ruins of the heated table. Shouko's anger runs wild. It runs deep, and she should have known better than to pick a fight when she's too full of bitterness and brutality to bring it back down. Now her father is planning something. And not knowing what that man is going to do never leaves Shouko feeling anything but paranoid. Cringing as she got to her aching feet, Shouko spat blood from her tongue onto the wreckage of the kotatsu before slowly limping to their healer's private quarters. She wouldn't go there unless her father instructed. The tight-faced woman being paid per use of her quirk, meaning they'd quickly run up wild bills if she went there for every bruise and scrape that she could have otherwise taken care of herself. But since it was his order, something made Shouko very anxious about disobeying him right now. The rest of the night had been, well, technically it had been peaceful. Fayumi had panicked when she'd gotten home and fretted over Shouko, but the younger girl dutifully did not reveal the reason the kotatsu had met an untimely end. After that, she'd done her homework and gone to bed early, the extra hours not consumed by her exercise routine too eerily empty to do anything but sleep. There wasn't anything in the morning either with the lack of an enforced morning run. Shouko hesitantly did stretches in her room before breakfast in an attempt to fill her hours. It wasn't like she had hobbies, wasn't allowed them. What was she supposed to do now? School was school, with the exception of a couple of the girls asking her if she was feeling okay after yesterday's incident. Shouko told them she was fine, and offered nothing else when prodded for information. The only notable incident of the day was an encounter with a horde outside their classroom. Other courses trying to scope out the competition after 1A's unfortunate incident at the USJ. It was of no concern to her. They weren't going to be any sort of issue for Shouko, especially not the strangely deadpan boy with purple hair and eye bags of the same color. Bakugo, as he was prone to do, made everything worse. Whatever. Eating her lunch alone, Shouko distracted herself from the uneasy feeling by scrolling absent-mindedly through her phone, letting her thoughts melt into nothing as she read the news concerning an impressive rescue mission in Kagoshima headed by the wild pussycats. There was no such thing as peace in Shouko's life, and that fact left her on edge all day. She was waiting for some sort of disaster to strike and throw her entire world on its head, a paranoia that, at least for today, turned out to be justified. When she came home, Fayumi was in the kitchen, leaning back to greet Shouko as the girl passed. "Oh, Shouko, how was your day?" "Fine." Her response is simple, because she genuinely doesn't know how else she can explain the bizarre tenseness of this Tuesday. Fayumi nods, used to Shouko's one-word responses by now. "That's good. Dad wanted me to tell you that he left something for you in your room. He dropped by about an hour ago before heading back to work." Something in Shouko's gut twists. That definitely feels like it's going to be the instigator that shatters her fragile peace. Thanking Fayumi before hurrying up the stairs, feet finding the quiet floorboards more out of instinct than actual fear. Sliding open her shoji door, Shouko's heartbeat picks up in fear as she sees a letter sitting on her futon. Approaching and unfolding what turns out to be a printed-out email, the bicolored girl's eyes widen like dinner plates as she reads the letter. No, she reads it again, praying that maybe this time, the words will rearrange themselves into another option. No, just try it again. No, again. No, again. There is a change that time, but only one word, which becomes a blurred mess as one of her tears drips onto the paper. Holding the paper that may as well be the proclamation of her death sentence, Shouko reads it one last and desperate time. "Mr. Todoroki, thank you for submitting your daughter's profile for review and matchmaking. Your generous donation has ensured we have the funds to prioritize Miss Shouko's omiai ceremony over other company clients. Your request sheet was dutifully attended to, and we are pleased to report that we have found a match suitable for your daughter's needs. Our suggested match is Mr. Hideyomi Ando." Another hopeful who responded enthusiastically when shown Miss Shouko's profile. Attached is Mr. Ando's profile. Please review it with your daughter and respond with your interest level in an omiai. Although Miss Shouko has yet to reach marriageable age, should both parties find themselves interested in pursuing that path, we are happy to facilitate the engagement and wait until Miss Shouko's 16th birthday for the wedding. Thank you again for choosing our company, and we eagerly await your reply. Sincerely, Kaiose Matchmaking Service, an omiai, a meeting between a man and a woman, facilitated with the intention of the two of them discussing marriage. Shouko thinks she's going to throw up. Trembling hands look at the attached sheet detailing Ando's profile, and she genuinely does have to swallow back vomit. He's 27. Oh God, oh God. His quirk is temperature resistance, and she understands now. Shouko knows exactly what her father meant. She understands what it is to be a Todoroki woman. Shouko drops the sheet, pressing her hands over her mouth and screaming. The noise muffled and raw as her panicking mind attempts to process everything. Her father is punishing her by forcing her into a quirk marriage. A child with half hot, half cold and a resistance to temperature weaknesses, burns and frostbite. They'd be unstoppable. She could always decline, try to push back, but Shouko knows how much money her father would be willing to spend to get his way. According to Natsuo, on the rare occasions she spoke to him after her training started, it was how he managed to get their mother to agree through money at the family until she was all but his. This is going to happen. If she doesn't bend back, become her father's perfect golden girl, push herself past safety and health and sanity to become the top hero. Oh God, she's becoming her mother. That's all it takes. Shouko breaks down in tears, body curling up next to the futon as she tries to muffle the noises of sobs into her knees. Maybe her anguished and bitter mind supplies. Maybe you're like her already. Can you really say you aren't crazy? Shouko can't answer, and that's what terrifies her to her core, a heart of ice shattering. What the fuck is she going to do? To say Shouko had thrown herself back into her training would be an understatement. She would run in the morning until she was almost vomiting, her sessions with the punching bag now stretching until she could hardly hold a pencil the next day from the deep ache in her knuckles. And she'd practiced with her quirk after school until a teacher actually had to come in and tell her to go home. Her father was no longer helping her, seemingly insistent on this bizarre form of punishment, so she did it all by herself. She needed to prove herself, had to save herself from the worst type of fate. And the sports festival would be her opportunity to show her father it wouldn't be worth it to force her into a marriage. There was, though, one thing Shouko knew was holding her back but was unable to bring herself to use her fire. It was illogical not to, she knew that. If Endeavor saw her use her flames, he'd surely reconsider, wouldn't he? And there was so much on the line. God knows her father would make her drop out of the hero course, if not out of school entirely, if it meant he'd get what he wanted. But Shouko remembered being in middle school, curled up in her futon and biting her lip to avoid crying as she rolled over onto yet another raw burn. She remembered swearing to herself that she would not become him, that she'd win using only her mother's power. The only fate worse than turning into her mother would be to turn into her father. She cannot use his quirk. Shouko has a strange relationship with her feelings towards her mother. She loves her, she really does, in the way only the youngest child really can adore their mother. Rei Todoroki was a victim, put through hell all because of her quirk and the egotistical drive of a man with more money than morals. How could Shouko not mourn for both the loss of their relationship and for her mother's stolen life? She was a martyr, someone Shouko tried to emulate in appearance in order to remind her father of his failure as a husband, remain a ghost of the happy marriage he could have had if he wasn't obsessed with power. But on the other hand, her mother's betrayal left Shouko scarred, vision in her left eye still noticeably cloudy despite the surgery. She couldn't take it any longer, and lashed out at a vulnerable and terrified child. Shouko had watched her take beatings without protest, and mixed with her sympathy was a bitter resentment. Fight back, Mama, fight back. Get us out of here. Use her ice, Mama, please. You need to fight. But she never had. Her mother had abandoned whoever she was before marriage, and Shouko's love was matched by her desire to resemble her mother in aesthetics alone. She would love the woman forever, but Shouko couldn't be her. Her rigorous training is interrupted only once 1 week before the sports festival, the date of her first omiai. Fayumi knew what was going on. And if the bruise Shouko saw sneaking out of her older sister's sleeve was any indication, she'd tried to talk her father out of it. Regardless, as Fayumi tries to offer her a supportive goodbye as Shouko and her father stepped into the chauffeured car, all the bicolored girl can think is that she really wished her older sister wouldn't smile like she was holding back tears. It's a silent ride over to the Omiai Company's main headquarters, a business running inside a charmingly Japanese-style home that reminds Shouko a bit of her own in both fashion and the way it carries an air of dread for her. She's brought into a back room by an older woman with some kind of fox quirk, judging by the animal head and the tail, and Shouko finds it oddly fitting like a kitsune, all done up in her kimono. Attendants greet them at the door, fussing over Shouko as they dress her in a furosode, all reds and whites and floral patterns that are far too bright and sunny for what feels like her funeral procession. Shouko wants to laugh when the makeup is bought out. What a change in tone it was from the last time someone had put makeup on her. There's no little errors or smudges like what happened with Fayumi, and that makes it feel all too fake somehow. The face that stares back at her as the stylist moves onto her hair isn't Shouko's, even if they share the same scar and haunted look in their mismatched eyes. The real Shouko has a monolid, a freckle or old acne scar here and there, and her lips are cracked and thin. The imposter in the mirror has applied clear tape to achieve a double eyelid. Her skin is without a single flaw, and her lips are red and plump, close to the real girl in some aspects. But as her hair is pinned with a delicate red kanzashi, Shouko realizes she doesn't recognize her at all. A stranger, she's presented to her father, who walks her down to where she'll meet the man who may very well become her husband. The man hasn't said anything about removing her from the hero course yet. Shouko knows the more efficient option is for him to wrangle her back into submission and continue training her rather than setting her up with someone and waiting for her to eventually pop out of air with the right quirk. Even so, the mere possibility that she's going to have to go through with this is. Shouko forces the fear back, clenching her jaw and staring at Endeavor with ice in her eyes. I'll mess it up on purpose. I'll act rudely and be loud and obnoxious. Her father's gaze is cold as he examines his golden child-turned-bargaining chip. I don't think you want to learn what your third option is if you cannot either prove yourself capable of becoming my successor, or if you cannot bear one that will function as such. If you think this man is interested in you because of your actions rather than what you can give him, you don't understand how romance functions in the world you were made for. Shouko's stomach turns. He could be referring to so many things: her quirk, her wealth, her body, and none of them are good. She'd known on some level that a 27-year-old pursuing a child of 15 wouldn't truly care about a relationship as much as he would what he could get out of her. Not that Shouko ever expected herself to be in any relationship, much less a happy one. But the terrifying prospect of being married off might be somewhat more tolerable if the man cared about something past her father's bank account or some perceived youthful innocence. She says nothing more, and neither does her father. Part of the reason this matchmaking company was chosen was that their traditional building allowed for them to host the OMI itself. An attendant was waiting outside a door, bowing before ushering Shouko inside. The girl shot one last look of anger at her father, wondering for a brief moment whether any of this could be real or if it was just a drawn-out punishment in the name of humiliating her. If it was the latter, it was working. As she was ushered inside, the first thing Shouko notices is the interior design. The room is traditionally Japanese like the rest of the building, an aesthetic she would have normally appreciated had it not been under these circumstances. Tatami floors connect to Fusama walls, and a shoji-papered door is open to allow the mild air of spring inside. A garden is visible on the exterior, a snaking path leading through flowers and trees. It was exactly the type of room Shouko would expect a MNI to take place in. What draws her attention with a drop of her stomach, though, is the person seated at the chabudai in the center of the room. Hideyomi Ando is just as his image showed: average height, blue hair and a clean and professional cut, and a slightly shimmering appearance on his visible flesh, the iridescent second skin that serves as his temperature resistance quirk. He's dressed in a kimono less formal than Shouko's, red with a deep blue haori. Shouko is quietly thankful he didn't go for the more traditional route and wear black and white with hakama. She's not sure she could handle looking at him dressed up like it was a wedding. He looks up at her and smiles, a completely ordinary and well-meaning expression that still churns Shouko's stomach. Miss Todoroki, it's a pleasure to meet you. He sounds like an adult, and Shouko feels like she's a little girl playing dress-up in her mother's clothes again as she bows stiffly. A pleasure to meet you as well. The attendant reminds them that they have 20 minutes booked before making her exit, leaving Shouko to kneel on the other side of the chabudai. It's a moment before she notices the teapot in the center, belatedly remembering that it's traditional for the woman to pour the tea as she hurries to pour 2 cups with a swiftness that indicates she's not very good at delicate movement. She has to shift awkwardly to avoid the long sleeves of the furosode from getting in the way. Ando smiles as he accepts his cup, sipping from it and seeming pleased with the taste. Thank you. Is this your first omiai? It is, Shouko confirms, setting the teapot back down and silently wishing she had some kind of time quirk, anything that would let her zoom through 20 minutes as fast as she could. Ando seems to have expected that answer, nodding. Given your age, that makes sense. Even so, you're very mature for 15. His reply forces Shouko to focus hard so as not to grit her teeth. The snarky part of her wants to shoot back with thanks, it was the trauma, and is barely held in. Ando continues as much as she wants him to just shut up. You're in the UA Hero course, aren't you? That's very exciting. Was it your class that was involved in that awful incident with those villains? She shrugs, taking a sip of her tea. That was us. I'm glad you're fine. It would have been nothing short of a tragedy to lose a beauty like you before the world saw her. Shouko's hands tense around her cup, and Ando laughs gently. My apologies. I know I'm being direct. I was just fascinated by you the moment I was shown your profile. Mr. Ando, that's just Hideyomi is fine. Ando's reply thankfully cuts off the snappish response Shouko was about to give. It allows her to take a deep breath in and remember the etiquette briefing she'd been told about as her makeup was being done. Hideyomi, then. That's very flattering. She lies. Shouko's never been all that polite, even if her generally formal manner of speech hides it if you only talk to her briefly. So lying to keep the peace like this makes her teeth grind. Ando smiles in response, putting down his teacup. Maybe it's flattering to you, but to me, it's the truth. You're very charming, Shouko. Okay, he said she could use his first name, but when the hell did she say he could use her first name? Ignoring the breach of etiquette, Shouko just nods. Thank you. Her teeth are grinding, muscles tense, and she almost jumps when she feels a sudden hand on her knee underneath the chabudai, a gentle touch that makes Shouko want to throw up. Really, you are. It's unusual to get married so young, isn't it? It's traditional in the Todoroki lineage. That's not a complete lie. Her father was married at 20, the twins being born at 21, and her mother was just 18 for both events. That said, Shouko has no idea what Taoya is doing. Fayumi is single, and Natsuo is 19 with a girlfriend of his own choice. She's the only one being groomed to marry this young. And the thought plus the hand rubbing her knee through her furosode makes her want to puke. His hand is still on her knee, sliding upwards inch by inch with the minute, and Shouko wants nothing more than to encase him in ice. Her father's threat rings heavy in her ears, though, and all she can do is clench her jaw harder and avoid Ando's eyes as he speaks. It makes sense for a traditional family like yours. What was your quirk again? Half hot, half cold, replies Shouko, who is taking a sip of her tea to avoid spitting out anything that would induce Endeavor's rage should it get back to him. Oh, that's right. Your father is the number 2 hero, isn't he? Ando smiles as if he didn't already know such a thing, as if he wasn't rubbing Shouko's thigh through the thick furosode. The density of the material doesn't prevent her stomach from twisting as she confirms it with a nod. That's pretty amazing, Shouko. No wonder you're aiming for heroism. My quirk isn't much use for combat, so it was never a path for me. Shouko takes a longer sip than is necessary, counting backwards in her head to keep herself calm. I was told that your father owns a support item company. Do you work there? I do. Clement Support Company. Ando confirms. The rubbing does not stop, but it has at least remained localized to her lower thigh. Any higher, and Shouko doesn't think she could resist the urge to smack it off. I work high up in their human resources department, book clients' appointments with the designers, handle questions, all that stuff. We're major enough that I'm just too busy to try and find a good wife in a more modern way. Haha. My father suggested this route, so here I am. Shouko guesses that being busy isn't the reason the rich, decent-looking Ando isn't married yet. He's clearly an experienced creep, able to keep chatting with her even as he's feeling her up. No woman who wasn't being held at metaphorical gunpoint would last more than a date. I see. Regardless, I'm glad I got you before someone else did. Ando chuckles to himself as if they were two friends sharing a joke. A pretty girl like you would get snapped up in a heartbeat, and somehow you think you're not the one snapping me up. Shouko thinks, biting her tongue viciously to avoid saying her thoughts. Is this what it was like for her mother, dealing with Endeavor, constantly holding her true thoughts to her chest, nodding to placate someone they couldn't stand? Her gut twists as she realized this was the world faced by other women, a life marred by terms like glad I got you and hands that snuck up their legs. Shouko was a sheltered child, raised not by her gender but by her quirk, and she's starting to realize that it might be better to be controlled by someone aiming to make you his successor rather than controlled by someone aiming to make you his. How many other people have sat where Shouko is sitting, had their hearts break as they were forced by fate and finances and family to give themselves away to a stranger? Whose broken dream is she kneeling on? Whose broken dream is she kneeling on? Haha, the nerves are adorable. The hand moves from her thigh to where her hands are clasped in her lap, and Shouko makes an embarrassing yelping noise as the contact brings her back from her panicked train of thought. Ando is smiling, and she would like nothing more than to wipe it off his stupid face with a fist. You probably don't have any experience in romance, do you? There's a certain lasciviousness to his tone of voice, and that plus the way his hand has yet to leave Shouko's as they remain folded directly on her lap makes her heart stop. I have no experience. She savors the sound of no, even if it's not the way she wants to say it. Over the years, Shouko has gotten good at reading facial cues. It was a survival tactic growing up. Could she push her father's buttons now? Or did that little twitch of the eyebrow mean she'd be crawling to the healer with a broken leg? Was now a good time to tell him she accidentally broke her cell phone? Or would she be getting stitches instead of bruises? And now as Shouko watches Ando's smile grow ever so slightly, she knew it clear as day. He had made a decision on her, and it was one that would lead her down the path of Rei Todoroki. I see. So beautiful, and yet you've never had a boyfriend. It's not surprising that the number 2 hero would raise such a proper young lady. Shouko really thinks she's going to either hit him, scream, or hit him while screaming, so she thanks whatever deity has taken pity on her as there's a gentle knock on the door. Ando's hand retreats, the subtle predatory glaze in his smile replaced by a charming businesslike grin as the attendant slides open the door. Miss Todoroki, Mr. Ando. 20 minutes have concluded. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. Ando gets to his feet, moving around the table to offer Shouko a hand up. In the name of appearances, she accepts, even if the satisfaction of smacking it away would be earth-shattering. It was a pleasure to meet you, Shouko. I look forward to our next meeting. You as well, Hideyumi. Biting her tongue and tolerating the hand that holds her own for a little too long, Shouko can feel the tension leave her body as they're led in different directions down the hallway. She almost wants to hug the attendant, but that would be weird for more than one reason. Unfortunately, all released tension returns as they round a corner and are met with Endeavor in the waiting room, the man seated in a chair that seems too small for his massive form. Shouko allows herself to zone out, a common technique she utilizes whenever the stress becomes nigh unbearable. and enjoys the peace of the fuzz in her head and the lightness of her body. It was called dissociation. She thinks from the time she mentioned it in middle school and was given a confused stare and a mandatory counselor trip. And it's Shouko's comforting friend up until she's forced to snap out of it by a hand on her shoulder guiding her to the change room. Her hair is let down, the makeup washed off, and Shouko marvels at how much work was spent on her appearance for just 20 minutes in a tea room. Slowly, the real Shouko returns as the parts that made up that peculiar imposter are plucked away, and she's back in the white blouse and pleated red skirt Fayumi had lent her. Her father is waiting for her as she's led to the chauffeured car, looking at her expectantly. Well, he's a pervert, Shouko blurts out as she feels the rumble of the engine, pent-up anger in her chest threatening to burst through the seatbelt. He felt me up and got all excited when he figured out I've never had a boyfriend. You're not serious about this. It's a punishment. Is that what you think? Endeavor rolls his eyes from the front seat. Both members of the Todoroki clan know how much their driver is paid not to ask questions and to keep his mouth shut. No, there will be no consequences no matter what is discussed in his presence. If you really do believe this is an elaborate punishment, you're even more foolish than I previously believed. Hideyomi Ando comes from a wealthy family who run a famous support company, and his quirk mixed with yours would create a child worthy of being my successor. Akai, are you serious? Shouko slaps the side of the door, her generally emotionless face awash with wide-eyed disbelief. All Might will have retired long before I'm old enough to have a baby, even longer before any child I have would be old enough to take up heroism. This was why Shouko still believed it was a scare tactic. The 15 or so years it would take to raise a child to the age where they could enter a hero school. He was bluffing, right? Fixing her with a glare. Endeavor scowls at his youngest daughter. You had your little incident just last week. I could have a suitable heir by next September if you're married in January. What do? Shouko trails off, processing that. And though she will hate herself for the display of weakness later that night when she is alone and biting her wrists in rage, for now all she can do is let her jaw drop in horror. No, I'm not until I'm 18 at least. Your 16th birthday is in January. That's the marriage age for a woman. Why do you think you'll be exempt from motherhood? The car is slowing to a stop outside the Todoroki estate, and Shouko hysterically wonders how much the driver is going to have to drink tonight to forget this. I did a good thing for you, training you as my successor and trying to keep you from this life. But because of your ungrateful insolence, you'll create my heir instead. Dad, Shouko shouts, and she can't remember the last time she referred to the old man as anything but father or his hero name. And it speaks volumes as to how desperate this situation is. The car is off, parked, and Shouko launches herself forwards to grab at her father's arm in the front seat in a final display of humiliating desperation. Dad, no, you're lying, you're not really. Crunch. The arm grab wasn't her wisest move in hindsight. With a fiery glare, Endeavor sends his elbow back into Shouko's nose, the girl flying backwards and hitting her head off the bulletproof glass of the window. Do not think grabbing at me like a child having a tantrum will change a single thing. If you prove yourself worthy of being seen as my heir again, I will call the arrangement off. Until then, this is your fate. I'm being generous by offering this choice after the stunts you've pulled since starting high school. Do not make me regret it. Opening his car door, the man exits with a heated slam. Shouko takes a moment to partake in some hyperventilation in the back seat of the car, trying not to choke on the blood running down her nose as she finally throws her own door open and runs out, not even bothering to close it. When she bursts through the front doors, Fayumi is waiting anxiously in the front room beside the newly purchased replacement kotatsu, and her face blanches as she sees Shouko running in, eyes wide like a feral animal and blood dripping down the front of her face. Shouko, you're nosed. The younger girl cuts her off, looking at the blur that is her older sister. Shouko's vision always gets worse as she panics, the cloudiness of her damaged left eye almost feeling like it's spreading. She feels Fayumi hold her to her chest. Here's her start to hurriedly rush through the mindfulness techniques she usually used whenever things like this happened, but Shouko can't really process it. Her hands are clenched at her sides, shaking, and her nose burns even as Fayumi activates her quirk slightly to cool Shouko's body down. She doesn't do that unless the injury is bad. Some hysterical part of Shouko notes her body was suited for fire but can only use ice in a reversal of her twin brother's condition. Good God, how bad does her nose look? She's thankful for the pain in a way. Thankful for the way it draws her focus away from blurred vision and the terrifying mental image of herself with a swollen stomach. Shouko doesn't fight as she's guided down the hall and out the side door towards the healer's quarters, a mess of shaking breath and horror and a vicious battle to try and ice over her raw heart. It doesn't work. Now that she's seen firsthand what fate she's plummeting towards, Shouko trains even harder. She starts neglecting schoolwork. Her English marks won't matter if she's forced to drop out of school, after all, and tossing homework aside to spend the time excessively exercising. Recovery girl's warning rings once in her mind before she silences it. Perhaps damaged fertility would be a blessing at this point, at least that way. If the worst-case scenario came along, she wouldn't be able to be used as an incubator. Shouko obsessively watches every past sports festival, watching each event and doing her best to train her body for each one. She has no idea what will happen this year. It's part of the appeal of the festival. Not knowing what you'll be witnessing until the day itself, and the stakes are too high to take a chance by ignoring certain events. Though he hasn't said it out loud, it's unspoken that Endeavor wants nothing short of first place from her in order to withdraw his marriage threat. All that said, she's human and she has a limit. 3 days before the sports festival, she passes out coming home from an extended jog that was preceded by 2 hours of strength training and 3 hours of quirk usage after school. Fayumi, in the newly learned teenage slang Shouko is inadvertently picking up by nature of sitting within earshot of Hantasiro, flips her shit. So now her sister's pleading for her to take a break for the rest of the day has landed the bicolored girl in her bedroom. Fayumi's carefully prepared dinner of champon and shageaki sitting half-eaten beside her futon. So much has happened lately that Shouko can't even determine what she's supposed to be feeling right now. She's not good at emotions at the best of times. And this is objectively the worst of times. In the middle of considering whether or not she could get away with doing some push-ups in here, her phone buzzes with a text. Natsuo, yo lil sis. Natsuo, Nissan told me you weren't doing so hot. Natsuo, I wanted to check in and see if that's improved at all. Natsuo, improved. Natsuo, goddamn I have fat fingers. Natsuo, this was unexpected. Most things involving the middle Todoroki child were unexpected, honestly. He was never part of Shouko's life, not by choice but by necessity. If Fayumi hovering too close to her for too long would spur Endeavor's rage, God knows the anger that would erupt if a quirkless sibling risked influencing his precious creation. Their dinner a few weeks ago helped in humanizing the ghost that was Natsuo, so this doesn't feel as unnatural as it would otherwise. But it's still hard for Shouko to process. It takes her a minute to formulate her reply, tired mind not sure what to say. Shouko, I'm as well as I could be in this situation. Natsuo, that's good to hear. Natsuo, preppin' for the sports fest I assume. Me and my uni buddies are watching it together and my money's on you. Choosing to settle into bed despite it only being 8 p.m., Shouko pulls the blanket up to her chest as she settles into the futon, phone held above her face. Hopefully she wouldn't drop it. Her nose was still gradually healing from the Omiai incident. And the last thing she needed was an injury via cell phone. Shouko, father isn't training me right now, so I'm doing it myself. Natsuo, hell yeah kid, get that bread. Natsuo, also this is less fun but like. Natsuo, I just want to let you know that I don't know the whole story happened you and Endeavor RN, but Nissan told me enough and I'm sorry that are going through this. It's illegal, and if the resident flaming trash bag didn't have enough money and influence to silence it, I'd be sprinting to the cops. Natsuo, but please no worst comes to worst. I have a sleeping bag and some spare floor space in my dorm room. Natsuo, you can come if he tries to make you live with someone else. You and Nissan both. If that isn't the most tempting thing she's heard in months. Shouko notes that his last comment indicates Natsuo most likely knows about the marriage threat Fayumi probably told him, and Shouko doesn't blame her. The older girl likely needed someone to vent to after the Omiai incident. Shouko, I'll remember that. Natsuo, good. I know we didn't see each other much as kids, but I'm still your brother. Natsuo, brother. Natsuo, fucking fat fingers again. I'm trying to be sentimental and they're barging in like they own the place. Natsuo, but yes, I care about you and Jasik. I know dad's social media passwords, and if you want me to log into his Twitter and block Best Genus just to start drama, I will. That actually makes her smile, and Shouko ponders actually telling him to do it. Shouko, it might be funnier if you blocked someone like Hawks or Mirko. They would call him out on it. Shouko, but either way, no thank you for now. Natsuo, aw damn. Natsuo, for real though, anytime. In regards to both blocking the Pussycats or whoever and coming to stay with me. Putting her phone down for now, Shouko tries to settle down for sleep. She's bone tired, has been for the past 2 weeks, but her mind is so full of, well, everything. At least this time, the everythings are good. Natsuo's kindness, Fayumi's tenderness, and why. She'd been a specter in her siblings' lives, the golden child that was so far above both of them. So why do they even care about her? How can they be so kind when she herself turned out as this shadow of a girl? A part of Shouko suggests that it was because they were spared from the violence, and she wants to smack that part of herself because of how untrue it is. As if they weren't both constantly and subtly on edge to avoid getting in their father's way and evoking his anger. as if the bruises they bore when they failed to do so are fake. As if Shouko doesn't remember 4 months ago, hearing a sobbing Fayumi frantically trying to talk Natsuo down from something involving bleach over the phone. Hearing the "I already lost one brother, please Natsuo please I can't lose two," because that's completely normal behavior from functional adults who were never neglected and made to feel like they were nothing. Everything stopped being good. Shouko's entire body clenches as she hears the garage door open, and her eyes flitters to the window, then to her closet where her emergency bag was hidden. There's a moment of contemplation before she picks up her phone again. Shouko, can anytime be right now? Natsuo's dorm is small but thankfully private. It looks how she suspected a university boys' room to look: posters of sports stars and musicians on the walls, papers and a closed laptop strewn about on a small desk, and a mess of clothes on the floor. The pizza he'd ordered, despite her insistence that she'd had champon to eat already, it's fine. No, Fayumi is just exaggerating when she says I've only had a couple bites, arrived minutes before Shouko did. And she does have to admit it's pretty tasty right now. Though there's no kitchen in his dorm room. There's a mini fridge and a little foldable table set up in anticipation for her arrival, and she's seated across from Natsuo now as the two eat. Seriously, I'm glad you came, Natsuo says over munches of pepperoni that he picks off then eats. It's one of many strange habits she has witnessed either last dinner or tonight, like how he carefully separates different foods so that they don't touch and will eat all of one food at once then move on to its neighbor, never alternating bites. 9 p.m. pizza for no reason is, like, the classic university experience. It's good. I haven't had pizza in a long time, probably around 4 years, but Shouko doesn't count that closely. Natsuo grins, still holding his slice and talking as he gets up to check that the door is locked. He's done it about 5 times, not counting now, and Shouko's only been here 20 minutes, but whatever. She doesn't mind. See, I'm the coolest sibling. I feed you pizza. One-san feeds me zaru soba. Touche. Her brother sits back down, reaching for another slice, but his eyes are on Shouko. So did anything in particular make you have to come here? Or was it just kind of a fuck it, let's go moment? The latter. Shouko shrugs. I heard father coming home and just kind of stuffed my school uniform in my escape bag and jumped out the window. Natsuo laughs over his food. Goddamn, you're metal. But oh man, the escape bags. I still have mine even though I don't need it anymore. It's comforting. It was Fayumi's idea. Implemented when Shouko was still a first year in middle school. She'd insisted it would be fine. It was just a precaution in case of a villain attack and absolutely nothing else, but maybe they should put some food and money in a little secret bag so that they could grab it and go if they needed to. Shouko's was currently sitting on the floor by the door, the girl having grabbed it and then shimmied out her window and onto the ground. It wasn't that high of a drop, plus she'd tested the jump once before just in case of a situation exactly like this. One train ride and a phone call to let Fayumi know what was going on. And now she was in her brother's dorm room. Shouko chooses to parrot Fayumi's words from years ago. Well, if there's a villain attack or something, you can use it. Sure can. Villain attacks or something else. Natsuo rolls his eyes, sarcasm evident in his tone and half-smile, as he gets up to check the lock again. I think it's locked, Oniai-san. Shouko supplies. Her brother nods as he fiddles with the lock, grinning sheepishly. I know. I just like double-checking with this kind of stuff. Finding it unsurprisingly locked. Natsuo turns back around with a smile. Pizza was good, but you know what goes best with it? Seeing Shouko's cocked head, a silent indicator of her thoughts, Natsuo smiled wider and clapped his hands. Have you ever played Mario Kart? Natsuo groaned overdramatically as he rolled out the sleeping bag. Are you sure you haven't secretly been playing Mario Kart in your sleep or something? You kicked my ass. A small smile graces Shouko's lips as she crawls into bed. She'd argued with him when she realized his text didn't mean she'd be sleeping on the floor he fully intended to give her the bed. Shouko wasn't about to force poor Natsuo into a sleeping bag by imposing on him so suddenly. But his reminder that she needed the best sleep possible for the sports festival in a couple days finally meant she caved and agreed to take it. Maybe you're just terrible. It was easy to talk to Natsuo. He was so casual and carefree, though Shouko remembered a more sullen boy when he lived at home. Being free from Endeavor's clutches completely must have done wonders for him. Though Shouko still remembers that phone call she wasn't supposed to hear. Pressed up against the wall outside the kitchen to listen to Fayumi plead with him to not do whatever it is he was planning. And wonders how much of this is an act for her sake. Hopefully not very much, and she decides to interpret his stuck-out tongue and display of false anger as the jokes of a happy boy. I'm banning you from picking Rainbow Road ever again, you sadist. I'm only ever going to pick Rainbow Road next time. The concept of there being a next time warms Shouko's heart in the best possible way. She wants to do this again, have fun and talk to her brother and watch his strange little habits decrease as he adjusts to her presence. Natsuo hasn't stopped checking the lock on the door or window, but it's decreased a lot since they started the game. In fact, while he'd turned the console on 3 times in a row, he turned it off normally at the end. Shouko's not sure why, but she thinks that's good. Natsuo rolls his eyes, unzipping the bag and starting to get in. Ooh, and I let you borrow my shirt and everything. It's true. Shouko realized that she didn't actually have pajamas in her escape bag when she walked over to the public bathrooms down the hall to change. In turn, Natsuo lent her one of his old t-shirts. It was a bright orange and had a strange symbol on the front, black and shaped sort of like a pea with a feathered tail. When she'd asked, her brother had simply told her it was some foreign sports team he liked. It was way too big for her. Natsuo's naturally stockier body trained by American football and jogging, meaning that his top hung off her like a dress. Shouko loved it. The shorts were actually his girlfriend's, gray and made of comfy terracloth, and were vital to Shouko's playful retort. But your girlfriend gave me these shorts. I wonder how she mysteriously forgot her pants in your bedroom. Natsuo's cheeks go red before he laughs loudly, throwing a pillow at Shouko. Hey, don't you go insinuating gross stuff. Little shit. It's the first time she's heard that term used lovingly, and it makes Shouko's face heat up like Natsuo's, though it's out of a nearly embarrassing joy on her part. There's a pause from the boy before he speaks. I didn't know your blush did that. Did what? Shouko touches her face, not knowing what he's talking about. It's uneven. Like, your left cheek gets a lot redder than your right one. He tilts his head, examining it. Shouko has never heard or witnessed this, but she also almost never blushes. Shifting so she can see into the mirror on the other side of Natsuo's room, she's surprised to see that it's true. Where her left side is rosy red, spreading from her cheek to one side of her nose, the right is more subdued, looking more like she was just cold. I've never noticed that before. It's bizarre to say the least. And there's a pause before the metaphorical light bulb moment. Oh, my quirk. It must have to do with my heat distribution through the 2 sides. Oh, that explains why Nisen never blushes even when she's super flustered. Quirk biology. Natsuo smacks a fist into his closed palm. We're geniuses. Let's open a detective business. Shouko's lips curl in a small smile. Well, all we had to do was look at our biology. It's an aspect of our family. There's a beat, and Shouko quickly realizes her mistake. Natsuo raises a hand to silence her, looking more amused than anything. Save it. You don't gotta apologize. I'm pretty weak to hot weather anyways, so it's mostly true. Quirklessness is uncommon enough that it's easy to forget that there's nearly 1,600,000,000 people on the planet who don't have any sort of power. It's rare in East Asia. Shouko remembers from the rigorous studying for the entrance exam it's because the first quirk user was from China. Quirks spread out from that region, and her nation was just a small sea apart. Japan's real quirkless population is closer to 9% than 20%. Shouko does not know why she remembers these things, but then recalls the frantic way she'd studied to ensure she'd pass the exceptionally challenging UA recommendations written exam, and suddenly understands why the facts are so deeply burned into her brain. Natsuo never talked to her enough to really discuss his quirklessness, so she was worried he'd take offense by her forgetfulness. The boy didn't seem to care though, chuckling as he settled into his sleeping bag. People always treat it like some kind of rare disease or disability. I'm quirkless, not sick. There was a pause, Shouko trying to figure out how to phrase this in a way that wouldn't insult the brother who had given her kindness she did not deserve. She only knew one quirkless person, a boy in middle school, and she only knew of his status due to the immense bullying he underwent. She never knew his name, just knew that he was quirkless and had a haunted look in his eyes. He transferred out in second year, and Shouko never saw him again. Was this how life went for Natsuo? Were people cruel to you growing up? Yup. His laugh carries both the sadness of someone who has faced immense cruelty and the peace of someone who has escaped it to find their place in the world. Shouko doesn't know if it's because of the bullying or their father. Just normal kid bullying, but with an actual motive. Flowers on my desk, getting the crap kicked out of me in the bathroom, so on and so forth. It ended up slowing down a lot when I joined the football team in middle school. Turns out bullies don't want to try insulting you to your face when the quirkless kid's got a furious football team behind him. But it was bad for a while. I didn't know. Shouko admits. She's the furthest thing from quirkless, cursed by fire and blessed by ice, and she was never afforded the mental stamina to worry about others when she had her own hell at home to deal with. Natsuo shrugs. The old bastard kept us away from each other. Makes enough sense that you didn't know. It's the first time their years of isolation have been brought up all night, and Shouko knows it would be awkward if he didn't immediately follow up with even so, you're still my sister, you know. Nisan and I want you to be happy. At this point, Shouko's not certain that's an emotion she can process for longer than a happy hour or so before the guarded emptiness returns to fill her mind with static and thoughts that spiral. Even so, it's a nice statement, and she nods. Thank you. As an afterthought, the girl adds, I want you to be happy too. Now that I'm out, I think I'm pretty happy. Natsuo grins. And it only happened cause Endeavor was all pissy over his kid not having powers. Being quirkless might have been the best thing that happened to me. Shouko cocks her head. You don't want a quirk. As a kid, I did, says her brother. I just wanted to be like everyone else. Have some cool ice or fire to show off, you know. But now it's the reason I never have to see our garbage old man again. I'm happy with who I am now. Not to mention after the thing with Nyai-san. Well, a quirk that hurts your body is never good. I was kinda grateful I didn't get something like that. What was he like? Shouko asks before she can stop herself. Onyai-san. Taoya, I never saw much of him. Natsuo's smile turns a bit softer and subdued. He reminds her of Fayumi like this. He was nice, rough around the edges, maybe, but he was a really cool older brother. I bet he's out there traveling freely, you know, backpacking and stuff. Hell, he probably doesn't live in Japan anymore. He had a huge soft spot for you, even if you don't remember it. Hopefully one day we can all meet up. That would be nice. The four of them, hanging out somewhere and chatting like normal siblings over coffee or something. What a strange fantasy. Shouko's pondering was interrupted as she heard Natsuo yawn loudly. Wah, it's only 11 and I'm ready to sleep. I used to be up till 2 most nights last year. Natsuo stretches his arms, the audible crack in his shoulder making Shouko wince. I have an 8 a.m. class tomorrow, so if you want I'll wake you up by 6:30 or whatever, so you can get ready for school and hop on the train. Sure, this night will end. And Shouko will go back to her self-imposed routine, her heart frozen over once again. But as Natsuo gets up to turn off the lights, the bicolored girl is able to remind herself that she's sleeping somewhere safe, just a few feet away from someone who cares for her even if she doesn't understand why. It's peculiar, but Shouko decides it's a mystery she can leave unsolved as she closes her eyes and drifts off. One of the very few benefits of her father no longer training Shouko was that all she got when she saw him at home the evening after her abrupt sleepover at Natsuo's was a pointed glare before he went back to whatever it was he was working on. You'd think she could also add less sore and tired to that list of good things. But her own self-imposed routine ensured that this was not the case. Shouko knew the stakes of the sports festival were too high to slack off, that she needed to prove herself here to keep even the smallest semblance of freedom in her life. And as the day of the event proper starts off, she is ready, feeling the ice flow beneath her skin as she prepares herself for the fight ahead. The train ride is high tension. Multiple other students also making the commute full of nerves and determination. Shouko is content to just look out the window on the trip, serenity only broken when she gets a text. Natsuo, good luck Shouko lad. Me and the squad are rooting for you. Lonnie even used her quirk on her hair for spiritual support. Let the hair energy flow through you. Attached is a selfie of Natsuo grinning broadly as he and multiple other posing students sit around a TV in someone's dorm. To his right sits his girlfriend, a pretty dark-skinned girl with kinky curls puffed out around her chin. She's flashing a peace sign, hair colored half red, half white. Shouko smiles despite herself, and even if she's not able to afford to think about much but the competition, she does manage to provide a selfie of herself in return. It's just a straight shot of her with a small smile, but she hopes it at least makes Natsuo happy. Shouko, she wore it better. Natsuo, Lonnie said you take selfies from the angle of a middle-aged mom and also that she'd die for you. Shouko's moment of happiness is interrupted by a scoff and a humorless chuckle to her left. Turning her head, Shouko engages in a glaring match with the boy sitting beside her for a minute before he rolls his eyes, muttering something about the hero course and priorities as he turns away. Wasn't that the purple-haired kid who had challenged her class some time ago? Whatever, she'd be surprised if he made it past the first round. Turning back to the window, Shouko zoned out for the rest of the ride. The stadium is just as magnificent as it looks on TV, but the change rooms and class waiting rooms are a bit plain. Even so, the buzz of energy can be felt through the entirety of Class 1 as they partake in their own little rituals to prepare themselves for the trials ahead. Shouko has no doubt that they all have their spots on the coveted podium, but she knows she'll be the one taking first this time around. She has to. These lucky fools, living in a world where they had a choice. She'd show them. Speaking of, there was one person in particular Shouko needed to talk to. She'd thought of the power she'd seen during training at the USJ, and she knows exactly what's happening here. This is the person she needs to beat to prove herself. Eyes scanning around the room, her gaze settles on the bundle of nerves talking to Uraraka and Ida. Striding over, Shouko calls out a few feet from the target. Midoriya. Ho. The girl seems surprised, turning around with a swish of her long ponytail. The yellow ribbon holding it up had 2 loops that reminded Shouko of a certain hero's hairstyle. And she almost wants to laugh at how obvious her theory is. Yes, Todoroki, if we're looking at this objectively, I'm stronger than you. She folds her arms over her chest, ignoring the way the room has quieted down to listen to this strange exchange. Midoriya looks confused, face seeming almost apologetic for some reason. I guess so. And even so, All Might's interested in you, isn't he? Seeing the girl's eyes widen, Shouko cuts her off. It's obvious, so don't lie. The smaller girl gulps, and Shouko uses her height advantage, almost 7 inches taller, to loom over Midori. And no, I don't think he's particularly paying attention to me. Keep that act up if you want. I'm just letting you know that I'm going to beat you. Not caring about how impolite it is, Shouko stares Midoriya dead in the eyes before turning on her heels and starting to stride off. However, she's barely made it a few steps before a tiny, determined voice speaks up. Todoroki, I don't know what compelled you to do all that just now, because of course you're stronger than me right now. You're one of the most capable people in this class, if not the most capable. I'm so far behind you. Hey, no need to put yourself down like that, Midoriya. Kirishima pushes out his chair, getting in between the two, but Midoriya boldly steps aside to keep eye contact with the bicolored girl. No, Kirishima, it's okay. I need to let her know that even if I'm far behind her right now. Midoriya inhales deeply, fists clenching. For some reason, Shouko remembers a line from one of the books they had to study in literature last week. Though she be but little, she is fierce. I'm coming up faster than you're anticipating, and I'm going to give this everything I have. That all but confirms Shouko's theory. This girl in All Might. Well, that surge of determination from such an unassuming person has all but confirmed it. Todoroki simply raises a brow. We'll see. She can hear Bakugo make an angry noise to her side. But before the boy can start anything, there's a knock on the door and a muffled call that Class 1 needs to get moving towards the gates. No more time for her declarations of war. The battle is starting. An obstacle course. Good. Shouko practiced specifically for that one. And as everyone takes their positions, she knows what her opening move needs to be. In practiced form, she's sweeping through the bottleneck and weaving between running students with the grace of someone who has grown up learning how to dodge in the blink of an eye. As soon as she's near to the front of the pack, she inhales, allowing the familiar ice to fill her senses before whisking an arm back, freezing the ground up to everyone's ankles. The cries of confusion and anger confirm that Shouko got them, and the girl takes an easy lead. Present Mike yells something about her, but she's tuning him out. His voice is grating. The robots are no trouble, nor is passing the gorge. Shouko imagines the look on her father's face as she makes it to first with solely her ice, proving to him that she can be number one with half her quirk and showing him that she's worth holding on to. Her thoughts of victory are interrupted, however, by a screech of anger behind her. A quick look over her shoulder confirms her thoughts. Bakugo is catching up, propelling himself via his explosions. Grimacing, Shouko sped up, allowing ice to flood just in front of her as she skated forwards. She could beat him, she was sure of it, but that minefield up ahead seemed mildly problematic. Shouko started weaving through the field. The mines were slightly visible just as Present Mike's last yodeling announcement had said they'd be. It would just be a matter of making sure she didn't step on one. It was clever. Shouko mused those in the front were now at a disadvantage. Must make for good TV, seeing all the shakeups that would result from this. But as long as she watched her step, got him it, Bakugo was loud. Swiveling her head, Shouko was barely able to dodge a viciously grinning Bakugo as he allowed his explosions to propel himself forward. As he got directly next to her, he shot the girl a nasty smile. Your declaration of war was to the wrong goddamn person, Isahat. Isahat. Gritting her teeth, Shouko barely leapt out of the way of a close-range explosion, the heat singing her arm. She was lucky to avoid landing on a mine, but a quick retrace of her steps lead Shouko to grab Bakugo's arm, icing it over. He melted it quickly, and she went back again with a palm strike that turned into a normal slap as the furious boy dodged back and retaliated with an explosion to the stomach. Everything was moving fast. Ice countered by flame, but Shouko was used to this. Violence was something that ran through her veins, but it looked as if it ran through Bakugo's too if his attacks were anything to go by. She had no time to wonder what his home life might have consisted of as she flicked her gaze to the ground in front of her, to Bakugo and back to the ground, watching for mines while dodging attacks and landing hits of her own. Just as she was coating her fist in ice with the intention of delivering an uppercut, an explosion nearly sent both of the combatants stumbling to the ground. In fact, they'd both have fallen directly onto a mine had they not grabbed each other at the last minute, pulling and shoving to stay stabilized in the most bizarre case of accidental teamwork to date. Both heads swiveled back to see the cause of such a powerful explosion, and was that Midoriya? Shouko found herself agreeing with Mike on this one. What just happened? The girl went soaring by on what looked like a piece of scrap metal, surpassing them both, and Bakugo screeched in anger as he blasted himself upwards to try and catch her. Suddenly realizing she'd been left in third, Shouko slammed a foot down and sent forth an ice path to run over. She'd hesitated to do so beforehand, knowing how it would help the people behind her, but there was no time to worry about that now. She had to focus on the two in front of her. Running alongside Bakugo's flying blasts, she had no more intention to fight him for now, and it seemed like a shared opinion. Shouko moved as quickly as her legs would take her, going for the sprint as Midoriya tumbled down. She adjusted her ice path to ensure the girl wouldn't land on it and not set off a bomb as she fell. Down went the scrap metal, and there was a sudden tickle. Shouko blinked in shock as, for that brief moment in time, Midoriya's long ponytail brushed against her nose. The girl was falling headfirst in between her and Bakugo. One thought crossed Shouko's mind, and then there was a pain on her shoulder and a blinding light. Shouko and Bakugo's yelps harmonized in a way that might have been comical had she not just been blasted by at least 4 bombs. When her head stopped spinning and the smoke cleared, all she could see was Midoriya in the distance, a tiny body getting smaller as she rushed even closer to the exit. Darting forwards, Shouko's legs moved in a dead sprint. She had to win, had to. Aizawa's voice rang over the announcements. And for some reason, one phrase hit Shouko's heart. Each of them is driven by some desire to succeed. Oh, Eraserhead. It's not a desire anymore. It's a need. Shouko did what she wished she had done years ago. She ran. She pumped her arms back as a frenzy of emotion overtook her, running like her life depended on it. She was shorter than Bakugo, form leaner, and it gave her the speed advantage, passing him by. Midoriya was only 30 or so feet away. The girl stockier with muscle than Shouko, she could catch up. 25, 20, worthless legs, faster, 15, 10. Midoriya ripped through the gate 5 seconds before Shouko. She had lost to her, catching her breath as she almost stumbled through the gate. Shouko's thoughts were in a frenzy. It was okay, she could catch up. This was horrible, but her father would accept it as long as she won first overall, right? God, she hoped so. Watching Midoriya tear up as the cameras focused on her, clearly overjoyed with her own victory, Shouko clenched her fists. Of course, that girl was from the world where crying was acceptable, where comforting friends like Uraraka and Edo would join her side, where she was doing all of this because of her own free will. Nobody puppeteered Izumi Midoriya, and Shouko thought she might hate the other girl for it. And without even using her quirk. What kind of reckless confidence did this fool have? She had no right. And yet, she thought back to the moment when Midoriya's long hair hit her face, one thought that escaped before the explosions that nearly brought her to her knees. In that moment, Shouko had smelt plenty of fresh dirt, the foul burning sugar of nitroglycerin, and the ever-familiar salt of sweat. But for a moment, there had been peach-scented shampoo, soft and mild. It had smelt good. Shouko turned her back to Midoriya, walking away and silencing her head with the comforting static. At least in the context of the festival itself, second place was better than first in the long run. It didn't mean it would be good when Shouko encountered her father, but it was good when everyone was rushing to her side and begging to be on her team. She had the pick of the litter, and so far everything was going perfectly. The cavalry battle involved teamwork, yes, but so far her team had done an excellent job of listening to her orders. With a minute left, they had the 10 million points, leaving Team Midoriya in the literal and figurative dust thanks to Ida's recipro burst. That said, they were currently immobilized as a result. But even as Team Midoriya turned on their heels and rushed them, Shouko was confident they'd keep it. Uraraka would get her team disqualified if she tried to float any of Shouko's team members. The support girl didn't seem to have any combat-suited quirk. Midoriya herself would shatter herself if she tried using that oh-so-familiar quirk. And Takoyami was easy to repel via Kaminari. And yet, as they approached in a dead rush, Shouko's eyes widened. Midoriya's arm was lighting up in green, swinging back. What the hell was that idiot doing? It must have been a last, desperate choice for her. Shouko scolded herself for not seeing it coming. That would shatter her ice easy. And she was way too close, and Ida was yelling and she could feel Kaminari stumble and Yaoyorozu gasped. Shouko's left side lit up, a huge gust of wind blowing the flames away even as they coated her arm protectively. In the moment of shocked stillness, Midoriya yanked away a headband, Velcro scratching her neck as it was torn off. When her teammates yelling yanked her back to reality, Shouko scrambled to check around her neck. How'd they know? They hadn't grabbed the 10 million. Breathing a sound of relief, Shouko cranked her head around to see that Team Midoriya was figuring it out at the same time. Midoriya's panicked shout for them to rush Team Todoroki obvious. Shouko grit her teeth, a flurry of emotions hitting her like a truck, but still focused on the fight. Yaoyorozu, more insulation. Kaminari, get ready to discharge. The twinkling sound of creation started up. The hair on Shouko's arms rose with static electricity as Kaminari charged up. Oh, for fuck's sake, when did Bakugo get here? And there's so much going on at once that her head is spinning and the noise is okay. The match is over. Bakugo hits the ground inelegantly. Shouko takes a minute to catch her breath as her team chatters excitedly. Adrenaline slowly draining out as they realize they'd gotten first place. Thank goodness. Shouko ignores the world around her, eyes searching the crowd for her father. He's not hard to find, but he's also too far away to see clearly. His expression just isn't readable, but Shouko has a bad feeling about it anyways. Tearing her eyes off him, Shouko instead walks over to Midoriya. The girl drying her tears as Midnight announces a break. Midoriya, wet eyes flick to her, confused and slightly intimidated. We need to talk. Oh man, oh man, oh man, what's Izumi supposed to do? Todoroki had all but dragged her down this unused entrance instead of going to lunch. And the two of them have been standing here, the bicolored girl just staring. Izumi really hopes she doesn't look as nervous as she feels, but realizes with a gulp that she definitely looks like she's going to pass out. Todoroki was confusing. She was always so distant from everyone else, like there was some unspoken barrier between them. All her reactions were a little strange, randomly tensing up over movements or grabbing people who snuck up on her. And how did she not know what a period was until it happened? It was like Todoroki lived on another planet her whole life, an alien to human culture, not to mention that completely uncalled for challenge. She was just such a wild card in her reactions. And yet, Izumi often felt the uncomfortable gaze of eyes on her back, different from the waves of bad energy that she got when she knew Mineta was ogling her. A few glances confirmed that it was always Todoroki with her gaze fixed on her. It made Izumi really nervous. Well, a lot of things did, but this especially. It wasn't just that a super pretty girl kept looking at her well, that was a little bit of it. It felt like her stare was searching for something, itching to take her apart and find whatever she was looking for. And considering Izumi had All Might's quirk, someone searching for secrets was very anxiety-inducing. Hoping that it wasn't anything serious, Izumi willed her voice not to shake. You wanted to talk about something, Todoroki. The other girl fixed her with a stare, crossing her arms as she leant against the wall. Izumi flinched, bracing herself for some bombshell like I figured out your quirk or you're involved in a top-secret conspiracy. Or I'm actually an alien who can read minds and that alien thing back there insulted me so much that I'm going to eat you. Only to be met with something entirely different but no less troublesome. Are you All Might's secret love child or something? What? Even if the girl had denied the blood relation to All Might, her wording implied there was something there. Shouko narrowed her eyes, taking in the tiny girl before her. Well, no, tiny wasn't right. She'd been thinking of the other girl as small, but defined muscle and curvature spoke to a pint-sized powerhouse. So why is Izumi Midoriya such a nervous crybaby? For a moment, Shouko's mind flicks to the worst-case scenario. Is it possible that the current number 1 pro is just as sinister as the current number 2? But is quickly dismissed if only because Shouko doesn't think she could trust in the system she's aiming to join for even a second if All Might turned out like Endeavor. No, best to find more evidence before breaking your own heart. What's one way to find out someone's history? Tell them your story first. So Shouko tells. She tells of a man obsessed with power, a wife sold like a dog, a pair of twins pulled apart 2 different times, a quirkless brother becoming a phantom, of a little girl blessed and cursed, of bruises and stitches and a boiling tea kettle. Midoriya looks horrified, hands going to cover her mouth as the story goes on. Shouko vaguely wonders if she should feel ashamed to admit this. She never really has, but she also knows she has a habit of spilling everything after accidentally letting a drop out, and this has rarely made her feel awkward before. Maybe she's not supposed to feel embarrassed. Or maybe she is and she's simply horrendously emotionally stunted. Either way, she feels fine, so Shouko continues into possibly the riskiest prospect. After I started my period, I got into a fight with Endeavor. It culminated in him telling me that if I wanted to be treated like a woman so badly, that could be arranged. The next day, I found papers announcing that an omiai had been arranged for me with an older man who has a temperature resistance quirk. Midoriya gasps, eyes looking suspiciously damp. Todoroki, why you need to tell a teacher? That's against the law. So are quirk marriages, discriminating against the quirkless, and beating your children. But look at how well those laws have functioned when someone has money and power. Shouko narrows her eyes. The only way to ensure my father to call off the arrangement is to prove I can be a suitable successor rather than an incubator for one. You made me use my fire, but it won't happen again. I'll win with my ice to prove I'm strong enough without him, but that it would also be a waste to marry me off in my prime. But I've said all I need to say. Shouko speaks coolly as she interrupts Midoriya's stuttered plea, pushing off the wall she was leaning back against and turning to leave. It's only right to let you know why I'm declaring war against you. Like it or not, I know you're connected to All Might. Many people are aware of that. And I have a duty to fulfill. I'll beat you to prove myself. Shouko has stepped out of the hall and into the sunlight, strolling towards the cafeteria when Midoriya abruptly calls out. Wait. Pausing, Shouko turns her head slightly to see Midoriya standing there, fists clenched. Todoroki, we've had such different lives. To be honest, I still feel like I'm not worthy of being here. But so many people have supported me and given me this chance. I can't let them down. Shouko Todoroki, I'm going to show you my best no matter what. I'm going to win. There it is again on that girl, a fire that doesn't burn her up, a stark determination even as her fists shake. Shouko thinks of that quote again, resolves to try and find the source. We'll see. Don't you dare lose until I get the chance to fight you. With that, the conversation is over, and Shouko walks off in the direction of the cafeteria. For whatever reason, Midoriya heads the other way. Whatever. If she wants to be late to eat, that's on her. Todoroki. There's a call for her as soon as she opens the cafeteria door, sounding both relieved and panicky. It's Yaoyorozu, rushing forwards with an orange bundle in her arms. Thank goodness you're here. There's been a schedule change from Aizawa. We need to get changed into these for the recreational activity. Where's Midoriya? Last time I saw her, she was wandering back into the stadium. Shouko says as a bunch of orange and green is shoved into her hands. What? She'll miss lunch. Ugh, we really need to get the whole class to exchange numbers. Thank you, Todoroki. And with that, Yaoyorozu is off, seemingly hunting for the green-haired girl. Shouko takes a minute to examine what's been handed to her, eyebrows shooting up seriously. Why was this mandated? Whatever, she'd really rather not get in trouble for something as stupid as this, so Shouko vows to head off to the change room as soon as she's done eating. Looking back at it, Aizawa wouldn't make a weird, creepy change like mandatory cheerleader costumes. But hindsight is always 20/20 and does very little to help you and your 8 other gobsmacked classmates as you all realize you've been tricked on national TV. Shouko feels far too exposed in the costume, pompons shifting to cover her stomach awkwardly as she feels a rush of eyes on her for an unwanted reason. Kaminari. Minta. Was this you? Jiru snaps at the two offering thumbs-ups. Shouko hears Yaoyorozu make a miserable noise as she crouches into a ball. It's not funny. It's just a prank, Jiru. Sorry, we couldn't resist joking around with you guys a little. Kaminari, for his part, seems more playful and sheepish than the leering Minta. It's not a joke unless everyone's laughing. Uraraka speaks surprisingly sternly. Do we look like we're having fun? The playfulness is decreasing, leaving the electric boy seemingly unsure of himself. Shouko's got a bit of a theory about Kaminari just judging by his general behavior, but now's not really the time to give him some sympathy. Minta, on the other hand, waves them off with a smug smile. Shouko decides that she hates him a little. Oh ladies, don't you know it'll raise the replays of the festival? It's all for a good cause in the end. So I guess it'd be okay to fool you guys out in skimpy cheer costumes too, right? Ashido snaps, tone mocking as she continues. Plenty of people like that, it's for a good cause. Ugh, I thought these were cute uniforms, and knowing you're the reason they're here ruins them. Hagakure seems to be trying to make the best of the situation, waving her pom-poms around, and it sounds like she's smiling. It's okay, guys. Let's find the silver lining. What if we go cheer on some of the general studies kids while they do their recreational events? It'll improve our class's reputation. Shouko is tired of both this conversation and the way that multiple boys from the sports field aren't even trying to hide their gazes. It's somehow less irritating than the random girls from the field who are glaring at the 8 of them who pissed in their cereal. She sighs, rolling her eyes. I'm going to get changed. Not a huge loss. Minta shrugs. Todoroki's got a nice face even with the scar, but she's a total washing board otherwise. Don't talk about her that way. Much to her shock, it's Midoriya who stands up for her, stepping out in front and scowling. We'll tell Aizawa. Get a life, grape freak. Jiru rolls her eyes, turning and walking off with a miserable-looking Yaoyorozu. She tilts her head back. Todoroki, we're getting changed. You wanna come? Nodding, Shouko follows suit. Being put in a sexy costume on national television for no reason whatsoever was just pissing her off before the third event. She hears Kaminari try and stutter off something like an apology, but that's cut off by Asui telling him that you'll probably make it worse if you speak to them now, Ribbit, and boy is she right. Shouko stalks off, unsure if the fact that perverts found her body to be unappealing was good or bad. She thinks of Hideyomi. She thinks that it's good. Some of the girls had followed Hagakure's lead by staying behind and cheering for the other classes, which seemed to fluster them more than encourage them. Midoriya and Asui had almost seemed like they wanted to go back. But the triple threat of Hagakure, Ashido, and Uraraka lead to those two electing to stay and cheer. Shouko tuned it all out, newly changed into her gym uniform and standing with Jiru and Yaoyorozu against one of the walls. Was I too harsh on Kaminari? Jiru sighs, toying idly with one of her earphone jacks. I was pretty pissed off, but Yaoyorozu put a hand on her shoulder, smiling gently. I don't think you were in the wrong at all. I know you're better acquainted with him than the rest of us are, so maybe he'll realize he was out of line because the first protest came from you. Hopefully. It's not like I dislike him or anything, he's at least got a nice personality outside of all that nonsense, unlike the grape. I hope he's not mad or anything. Jiru rubbed the toe of her shoe into the grass. Thanks, Yamomo. Shouko blinked. Who's Yamomo? That's Jiru turned beet red, tensing up. Oh, it was just a little nickname I thought up for Yaoyorozu. Her eyes flickered nervously to the dark-haired girl. If you don't like it. Not at all. I love it. Yaoyorozu clapped her hands together, eyes sparkling. She must have been a bit of a sheltered rich girl, too. Yeah, Momo, it's terribly cute. Thank you. Jiro looked relieved beyond belief, exhaling deeply. Phew, thought I'd overstepped a boundary there. You can call me Kyoka. Both of you. Oh, right. Shouko still had to partake in this conversation. Please call me Shouko, then. Yeah, Momo, Kyoka, and Shouko. Yaoyorozu looked pleased as punch by this development. I'll remember that. Kyoka smiled and opened her mouth to say something else just as midnight called everyone back to the field. Exchanging smiles or nods, the three girls made their way to where the 18-plus only hero was currently hyping up the crowd before placements were announced. However, before she could pull up the results, there was a hand raised at the front. Ajiro was dropping out, it seemed. Something about not getting here on his own merits. Wasn't he on Team Shinsu? Shouko didn't even know who that was. A Class 1B kid or something. While she looks for this mysterious cryptid in the ground, a Class 1B she's never spoken to before drops out as well. Whatever. If they want to waste their chances, that's fine by her. Some other Class 1B kids are brought up. And as the results finally come on screen, it looks like Shouko isn't paired against either of them, so she's unbothered. Reading lazily, she examines the names for the first round. Round 1, Inasayarashi vs Hitoshi Shinsu. Mina Ashido vs Hanta Siro. Shouko Todoroki vs Mei Hatsum. Izumi Midoriya vs Yuuga Aoyama. Katsuki Bakugo vs Denki Kaminari. Achako Uraraka vs Ibara Shizaki. Ijiru Kirishima vs Momo Yaoyorozu. Fumikage Takoyami vs Tenya Ida. Mei Hatsum is an unknown, most likely 1B or possibly either the support or general studies students who made it through. Regardless, Shouko is confident in being able to defeat her. There's something she's far more interested in right now, and it's that provided Midoriya defeats Aoyama, they'll be able to face off. Her own strength, her value, it can be proven should she take down the girl who bested her so cleverly in the first round. Shouko's eyes fixate on the back of Midoriya's neck. The other student still in that cheerleader costume, and her gaze narrows. All Might's Special One, Little Hermia. She has to go down, and go down hard. Natsuo Hikawa is concerned. They're all crowded in Ryo's room, and it's slightly too humid. Natsuo knows the girl needs it because of how her lower body is entirely tentacles, but seriously, could they have held the viewing party in someone else's room? He feels Lonnie rest her head on his shoulder as the commercial break starts, some of his tension draining out as his girlfriend's kinky hair tickles his chin. Junya and Hiroyuki are chatting excitedly by the TV. Beers in hand, it turns out the two other boys he'd met at the quirkless support group on campus always searched for an excuse to day drink. Sasuke is rambling excitedly to Ryo about the purple-haired kid that made it onto the third round. It's his little cousin, and they actually have the exact same quirk. How exciting is that? Natsuo wonders if his human anatomy classmate is worried for his relative too, though he suspects it's not in the same way he worries for Shouko right now. Speaking of worrying for Shouko, Natsuo's phone lights up with a text. Pulling it out of his pocket, he opens the messaging app. Fayumi, did you see the second round too? Natsuo, yup. Fire. Fayumi, do you think that'll be better or worse for her? With dad and all. Natsuo, Ike. Depends on whether or not she uses it in the fighting portion. Fayumi, do you know much about her competitor? Sorry, I'm watching with my class and have to keep looking away to keep them in line. Natsuo, room full of third graders versus room full of tipsy college kids, annoyance battle start. Natsuo, but afar though, I'm pretty sure she's the pink-haired support kid. Fayumi, so we don't know her quirk or if it's dire enough for Shouko to use her fire. Her next competitor may be that green-haired girl who swiped at her though. That may affect things. Natsuo, I don't even know if it's good or bad for her to use it. Every part of it is worrying. Fayumi, welcome to being a big sibling, P. Fayumi, in any case, I may have to freeze those two boys who pulled that stunt with the cheerleading costumes. Natsuo, I don't have a quirk, but what I do have? Fists, come get some weirdos. Natsuo, protective big sibling mode activate. Fayumi, haha, we'll fight them together. Fayumi, anyways, I need to get back to the kids. Let's just hope it turns out okay. Natsuo sighed, dropping the phone to his lap and rubbing his forehead. Lonnie shifted, tilting her head up to look her boyfriend in the eyes. Her hair was still red and white, the girl having promised to keep it on like a good luck charm for the youngest Todoroki. You okay? I'm good. Just a little stressed over Shouko. Natsuo replied, Lonnie nodding sympathetically. While he hadn't told her much about his sister's situation, she knew enough about his to extrapolate that Shouko probably went through a similarly awful situation. She's one tough cookie. I'm sure it'll turn out all right in the end. After getting a smile and quick kiss out of her boyfriend, Lonnie sat back up straight, pointing towards the TV. Everyone, it's starting again. And so Natsuo shifted to a more comfortable position, anxiously glued to the screen as the first pair took to the stage. Sasuke roaring with glee that it's his cousin. That's Hitoshi. Don't we look alike? only to get promptly roasted by everyone who reminded the excitable student that his head was literally just a cat head, albeit a purple one. He couldn't look more different from the tired boy on screen. Natsuo couldn't help but wonder if, when Shouko became a woman rather than a girl, she'd look like Fayumi. He hoped so. He knew the pain of sharing their father's shape. The two competitors approached the ring, one a tired-looking boy named Hitoshi Shinsu, supposedly from General Studies. The other, a way too enthusiastic giant from 1B named Inasa Yurashi. Oh, weren't they both on the train this morning? She remembered having that stare-down with the Shinsu boy. Shouko's line of thought is interrupted as Momo gasps in surprise from her side. Oh, Yurashi. He was one of the other recommended students. I heard he came first overall. At her proclamation, Shouko bristles. So there was already someone stronger than her here. She hadn't even considered the two other recommended students that resided in 1B. Before she can think about that, though, a grating laugh rattles her eardrums like the world's shittiest maraca. Oh ho ho ho. So the high and mighty Class 1 didn't even think that there'd be a real powerhouse in the other class. A blonde boy pops his head over the barrier between both classes' seating sections, looking slightly deranged. Who the hell was this asshole? The strongest recommended student is ours, not yours. What a shame for poor little Yaoyorozu and Todoroki. We're both rich and taller than average. We're neither of those things. Also, I don't know you. Shouko deadpans, because it's true. Before the blonde can respond, there's a giant hand chopping at his neck from behind, and he slides out of view with a keening noise. A much friendlier face pops over the barrier, looking apologetic. Sorry about him. We try to keep Monoma in control, but he gets away from us sometimes. That is quite all right, Miss Kendo. Ada is on his feet, arms chopping around wildly enough that Takoyami has to duck to avoid getting smacked in the beak. From one class representative to another, I declare that all is well again thanks to your mediating. Kendo chuckles a little, though she's distracted by something to her side that's out of view for Class 1A. Tilting her head down to the obscured individual, Kendo looks pensive. What's up, Shouta? I wasn't able to find Yurashi before the match. The voice sounds frantic, and Shouko recognizes it thanks to the earlier dropout. That's Nyaranjaki Shouta, the boy from Team Shinsu who had stepped down. I needed to warn him about that creepy guy's quirk. Hiroshima's loud and enthusiastic voice prevents Shouko from being able to hear the rest of Class 1B's conversation. Oh, it's starting. It's starting. All gazes focus towards where Midnight is swinging her flog, announcing the official start. Winds start to pick up around Yurashi, the boy's fiery enthusiasm almost palpable in the air as dust devils begin forming. Midnight holds down her hair to keep it in place. Shinsu looks up, says something far too distant to be audible, and Yurashi freezes up, his quirk deactivating. Shinsu points past Yurashi, saying something else, and the entire arena watches in shocked silence as the hero course student turns and begins to walk away from his competitor. A sad keening noise in the Shouta boy's voice echoing out as Yurashi walks out of bounds. A flabbergasted-looking Midnight calls the match in Shinsu's favor, and things erupt. The audience is beyond confused, but roaring with cheers for whatever the hell just happened anyways. Class 1 is chattering excitedly, wondering what exactly just occurred down there as Yurashi seems to snap back to reality, looking around in shock. Class 1B, meanwhile, is total chaos. There's shouting, frantic unanswered questions, and a boy's voice yelling at someone named Komori to let her know that hey, you're growing mushrooms on me. Yeah, they're taking it a lot harder, and Shouko doesn't blame them, it's their classmate, after all. And who the hell was this general fucking studies kid who just took out the highest ranked recommended student in a matter of seconds? Ajiro groans behind her, face buried in his hands. Ugh, of course, that guy's quirk. Wait, you know his quirk? Midoriya manages to look up from where her nose is buried in her quirk analysis notebook. Ajiro nods grimly, pursing his lips. When you respond to whatever he's saying, he can take control of you. That's how he got us to join. A mind control quirk. Isn't it more suited to a villain? Oh well, Shouko's not here to question motivations. Hers aren't exactly the purest, either. The battle between Ashido and Shiro is favored towards the pink girl, but the other student puts up a valiant fight regardless. He's producing tape just slightly slower than she can melt it, and Ashido eventually wins out, escaping his grasp and managing to use raw physical strength to knock the boy down and pin him. Shiro yields as she pins his arms down and holds an acid-coated fist over his head, and the two get up together, smiling and laughing. They're clearly friends, the match ending with no hard feelings. That will be a nice, easy one for the replay channel's enemies on the battlefield, comrades right after. Shouko has learned how the festival functions and what reporters like to show off based on her obsessive viewings of it while training. Midoriya and Aoyama is, well, Shouko only gets to see about half of it, considering she's in the anteroom in preparation for her own match. Midoriya mostly just dodged the entire time, trying to get in close enough for a strike. And that's when Shouko had to leave the stands to go get ready. judging by the shuddering wind pressure that shakes her prep room table slightly. However, she'd used her quirk. Even without seeing the match, Shouko knows Midoriya has won. She's ushered out into the hallway, and she feels a sense of adrenaline run through her body as she steps into the sunlight to the roar of an adoring crowd. She's introduced as the youngest daughter of our own flame hero Endeavor. It's the burning cold Shouko Todoroki of Class 1A. And Shouko's jaw clenches. That's all she is to these people, isn't it? Just an extension of him. The other girl, Hatsum, is eager to go, hopping around from foot to foot and waving at the crowd. Is she aiming for some PR stunt? It would make sense with the way she was showboating with her inventions during the cavalry battle. Shouko gets into a fighting stance, allowing a moment of tranquility to overcome her, ice rushing through her veins and cooling any remaining nerves. As soon as Midnight swings her whip, Shouko releases the pent-up power of her cryokinesis in a wave of ice. For her part, Hatsum does decently. Most of her items are useful in dodging Shouko's initial barrages, darting out of the way of ice. Of course, the bicolored girl is agile enough to dodge things like fired nets or flashbangs, but she's silently impressed that Hatsum created all of this. Anyone who hadn't been raised to fight would likely have been caught. She's clearly in it to promote her support items, and Shouko allows her to finish her final sentence describing the capabilities of her jetpack before finally ending it via a burst of ice that encases the other girl up to her shoulders. Midnight calls the match, and Hatsum is grinning even while she shivers under the icy barrage as Shouko approaches to melt her out. Ooh, good moves, Frieza burn. I could tell you were holding back a little to let me present my beautiful babies, so I owe you one. Don't worry about it. Shouko isn't sure someone with the slightly unhinged air that Hatsum carries is someone she wants a favor from. Also, what's with the nicknames from people today? A word of advice for you as a support student from someone who grew up around a pro. Hatsum cocks her head, seeming interested. Stay away from Clement Support Company. Even if they're prestigious, their higher management are not to be trusted around girls our age. That's probably not true for all the executives. But frankly, they have a pervert who likely only got his position via nepotism on staff. Shouko doesn't feel bad preventing them from snatching up such a bright young talent. Hatsum nods, grinning. Oh, industry secrets from an insider. I owe you double the favors now. I'll keep it in mind, Frieza burn. Now could you hurry up the melting a little? Some of my babies aren't exactly weatherproofed yet. Shouko rolls her eyes, allowing more heat to seep through her skin. After the match, Shouko had been given a quick check for any injuries by one of Recovery Girl's assistant nurses and then sent on her way. She's just in time to catch the end of Bakugo vs. Kaminari, by which she means she's there for 20 out of the 30 seconds it took to conclude. She'd had a degree of hope for the electric boy, seeing the way he could competently take orders when he was on her team earlier. But it seems like he'd quickly blown his power in one shot. Bakugo propelling himself off the electrified earth with explosions and quickly landing one directly against Kaminari's defenseless face. The drooling boy had been knocked out cold instantly, ending it rather anticlimactically. Hopefully he was too out of it to understand the way the audience was shouting that it was a nice try and a sad attempt at comfort. Now, Uraraka vs. Shizaki was much more of a wild card. Shouko knew Uraraka's quirk, and it seemed like Shizaki could control those vines that made up her hair. She had a rough idea of what might happen as the two girls lined up on stage. But Midoriya's muttering a couple rows down confirmed what she herself was thinking. So Shizaki's quirk is good for distance and capture primarily, and Uraraka can only do close-range combat. That said, if Shizaki's vines count as part of her body, it's basically Uraraka's match. But even if she floats her, that leaves. Damn it, Deku. I can hear you from all the way over here. Bakugo shouts in anger, corralled back in by Kirishima, who wrangles him into his chair. Shut up already. For some reason, watching Midoriya's whole body clench in fear before she hid her face in her notebook, it was really irking Shouko more than it needed to after she saw the other girl's determined face and strong voice back in the hallway earlier. Why did this one boy manage to make her shrink into herself? Turning her head towards Bakugo, a few seats away, Shouko glares before she can think. It's strange to hear you telling someone to shut up. There's a chorus of ooh throughout the class and Bakugo suddenly looks like he's about to blow a fuse. The fuck did you say to me, Isahot? Guys, geez. Hagakure waves her arms. The match is starting. For now, all debate ceases as the class turns to watch Uraraka battle it out with the 1B girl. Determination on her face visible even from here. The girl rushes forwards. Shizaki clasps her hands, vines shooting out. One goes for Uraraka's ankle, but the zero-gravity user had tapped both her running shoes just before rushing her opponent, jumping with degravified shoes and avoiding the first attack. Is she going in for the body? Ashido questions, a finger pressed against her chin. If she can avoid her vines, that seems like it'll work, but Shizaki is pretty fast. No, that's not it at all. Midoriya murmurs, leaning forwards as Uraraka released her zero gravity on her shoes. It seems like Shizaki has better control of those shorter vines around her forehead in close range. That would be bad for Uraraka. But look at what she's doing with her shirt. As she bolted, Uraraka was unzipping her UA sports jacket at the same time. A strip show from a babe, shouted Minta before Asui smacked him with her tongue. Thank God. Uraraka wears a tank top under her sports jacket. Ribbit. Don't be gross. It was true. Uraraka yanked off the jacket, revealing a tank top underneath. Maybe 5 yards from Shizaki, the girl let out a battle cry and tossed the jacket. It was an easily predictable move, Shizaki catching it with a vine and tossing it out of bounds. However, it looked like Uraraka had another plan. Midoriya was out of her seat, having rushed to the front of the box seats to lean against the railing and all. I see she's doing it. She's going through with the plan she told me. What plan? Asked Shoji from behind the excitable green-haired girl. Midoriya turned with a blinding smile of excitement, and Shouko found herself shifting about in her seat. The jacket ruse. It was true, throwing the jacket had been a mild distraction for Shizaki. She'd easily be able to stop Uraraka from getting in close like that. But instead of continuing to run, Uraraka threw herself to the right, leaping on a vine that was resting idly on the ground while its owner focused on the thrown clothing. Shooting out her arms, Uraraka smacked the vine, and Shizaki yelped as she found herself freed from the pull of gravity. So they did work as an extension of her body. The girl tried to get a grasp on Uraraka, but the brunette was already throwing her back, vine in her hands used like a rope to hurl her opponent towards the white line. Uraraka grimaced as she avoided a vine by floating herself backwards, ending up near the very spot where she'd started just as a helpless Shizaki flew out of bounds. Shizaki is out of bounds. Midnight called, swinging her whip as Uraraka released both herself and the Class 1B student, looking even greener than her opponent's hair. Uraraka wins. Whoops and cheers erupt from one as Uraraka offers a thumbs up and shaky smile to the crowd, even as she looks like her lunch might resurface. Shouko offered a couple claps up. Uraraka had been nothing but pleasant to her, so it felt somewhat necessary. Midoriya, predictably, was tearing up as she cheered for her friend alongside Ida. Shouko's eyes lingered on the back of the girl's head. They'd be fighting next round, wouldn't they? She had 2 fingers wrapped in bandages, so she was already at a disadvantage. All Might's golden girl. Shouko narrowed her eyes as Midoriya stiffened for some reason. Kirishima and Momo were up next, weren't they? Should she stay for her friend, acquaintance? It's true she and Shouko were on a first-name basis now, but the bicolored girl had no real way to classify Momo, and Kyoka Beyond also had no time for cheerleading comrades. In any case, Shouko figured she should at least stay and watch. Sitting back, she turned her eyes to Momo as the whistle was blown. Yaoyorozu, against all odds, had lost. It didn't make sense, Izumi thought. She was objectively more powerful than Kirishima, even if she wasn't as physically strong. The girl was a genius, too. Why didn't she just make a net to catch him and then push him out of bounds? Or startle him with a flashbang and use the advantage to get him out of the ring? She'd just frozen up, Kirishima easily pushing past her shield and forcing her past the white line. It was a little disappointing. Yaoyorozu had so much potential for an amazing fight, and she'd gone down so easily. Deku. Hey, Deku. Izumi is only snapped from her thoughts as she receives a gentle poke to her freckled cheek. Startling a bit, she turns to see Uraraka regarding her curiously. Kirishima and Yaoyorozu's match had torn up a lot of the arena floor via Kirishima's hardening, so there was a small break while Cementos rebuilt it, giving the students time to chat among themselves. So with Ida in the anteroom in anticipation for his match, that left the 2 girls of their friendship group to talk. You were totally zoned out there, Uraraka exclaims, cocking her head. Hey, if you're nervous for your next match. And no, it's not that. Izumi waves her hands around with a stilted chuckle. I mean, I am nervous. It's Todoroki and she did challenge me, and obviously her quirk is super difficult to counter. She's cut off by another cheek poke, making an embarrassing noise as Uraraka giggles. You're like one of those rubber charms, squeaking when I poke you. But seriously, you were doing the rambling again. Izumi's cheeks flush, and she meeps in nervousness. Was I? Sorry. I guess I just learned something earlier that upset me. Uraraka purses her lips. Oh, Deku, are you okay? I'm fine, please don't worry. The last thing Izumi wants is to distract her friend from her next match by making her too concerned. It's just, well, Uraraka, can I ask you something? Always. Uraraka shifts towards her a little, like they're 2 friends sharing gossip. The thought is almost upsetting to Izumi. She hopes Todoroki doesn't think that's what she's doing. All those rows behind her in the stands. Trying to figure out how to phrase this, Izumi gives it her best shot and lowers her volume. If you learn someone respected and powerful was committing a super serious crime from one of the victims, but both of you know all the people he's hurting don't have enough influence to even scratch him. If telling the truth could seriously disrupt public safety, what would you do? For a moment, Uraraka looked shocked, but it quickly morphed into a mix of sympathy and concern. That sounds like a pretty big problem. How bad are they being hurt? Izumi thinks of a girl with an empty gaze, thinks of deep red scarring over aquamarine, thinks of the way her own heart clenched when she heard how casually Shouko had told her about an impending marriage she was being strong-armed in, thinking of her in a wedding dress with a veil that didn't disguise the dead-eyed stare she'd had when she mentioned her future. It makes Izumi's stomach flip. Pretty bad. Really bad, actually. Then you need to tell someone, at least. Uraraka decides after a moment of thinking. Even if they can't stop the bad person, maybe they can help the victims a little. It's the heroic thing to do. There's another pause before she sputters, waving her arms around in an Ada-like fashion and almost clocking a Jiro in front of them. I mean that's just my opinion. It's silly of someone like me to preach heroism to someone like you, but, don't put yourself down. Izumi quickly reddens, her own arms fluttering about in a matching fashion. They actually did hit on Jiro this time, who let out an exhausted sigh and changed seats, knowing better than to get between those two in a flustered conversation. I think you're really heroic. Uraraka, thank you for the help, I just didn't know what to do. Thank you, Deku. I, don't really know if it's the right answer, or if there is one. She sighs, shrugging. But in any case, I'd try and get some super good evidence against the person doing the bad stuff. If they're that strong, you'd need a good case for them to get punished. That was true. If someone like Endeavor was going to be prosecuted, she would need plenty of evidence. Even so, the effect that might have on Hero Society plus Todoroki's reaction. Izumi slouched into her seat, sighing. That's probably true. It's just a difficult situation. I'm sure you'll pick the right option. Uraraka beamed, offering a supportive pat on the shoulder. You're you, after all. I'm not all that smart. Izumi's cheeks reddened, hands flying up to cover her face. I'm just gonna hide in here until the next match starts. You better come out soon, then. They're walking out. Uraraka points as Izumi lowered her hands to see Ida and Takoyami march onto the field to the sound of cheering. Her brunette friend joined in, cupping her hands around her mouth and shouting. Kuo Ida, embarrassment forgotten as the desire to support her friend riled her up. Izumi grinned and yelled alongside Uraraka. You can do it, Ida. Leaning forwards, she subconsciously popped out her notebook, pen tapping against the page as she waited for midnight to start the match. Even so, her mind was heavy with thoughts Todoroki needed help that Izumi couldn't give her, even though realizing that tore her up. Who could help? Could anyone help? She couldn't possibly bring this up to All Might, the #1 hero, accusing the #2 of being a serial abuser. Hero Society would be in shambles, and they couldn't afford that after all the recent news with the hero killer. Maybe there was one other person who could help her, though. After Yaoyorozu's loss, Shouko had gone for a walk. She wasn't that interested in how Takoyami versus Ida would play out, so she decided to leave at that point. Walking down the hallways, she briefly contemplated getting another one of those delicious nashi pear tarts from concessions until she remembered that she had a match to win and didn't have any money on her anyways. Besides, sticking around in this area seemed like it wouldn't settle the discomfort in her stomach. This weird guy with black hair and scarred-up eyes kept staring at her from the corner. She was willing to bet he had even more under that flu mask. Glaring at him, she made her way to the restricted hallways. To access them, you'd either need to be a student, Shouko, or a pro. Shouko turned to scowl at Endeavor, his arms crossed as he stared down his youngest child. What do you want? You're acting disgracefully. The man spat out, taking a step towards her. You would have taken first unquestionably in every event if you'd quit this childish rebellion and used your full power. Do you have any idea what the consequences for failure will be for you? I know damn well what they are. Shouko's hand subconsciously moved to the thigh Ando had been feeling up last week. And I'm still going to win. I'll just do it without you. You're weak without me, he responded curtly. That Bakugo boy will make a fool out of you if all you do is use your eyes. Shouko's lip curled in a sneer. I wasn't aware your real quirk was telling the future. There's no guarantee he'll make it to the finals with me. Do not get an attitude with me, Shouko. Endeavor took another step forwards, and Shouko heard something over the intercoms about Takoyami emerging victorious, but she was more focused on the way her muscles tensed, ready to fight or flee if she had to. He wouldn't hit her here, would he? No, it was unlikely. Her father was a horrible person, but Shouko could begrudgingly admit he was smart. That said, she had learned over time not to underestimate her father's anger, and she needed to be careful. Even if it's him I fight, I'll overwhelm him with no trouble. I've been training by myself. I'm still determined to win. I won't be a brood bitch you can sell off to suit your imperious pipe dreams. That was a bit too far, and Shouko prepared to raise her arms in defense as her father's eyes flashed. Shouko Todoroki, how dare. T. Todoroki, a pitched voice called out. And father and daughter both turned to see a trembling Izumi Midoriya on the other side of the hallway. Mr. Aizawa sent me to get you. He, needs to talk to everyone going on to the second round. So, here I am. There was a crushingly awkward moment of silence. Midoriya standing there like an anxious, trembling statue as Shouko and Endeavor just stared. Eventually, Shouko sighed, flipping her hair over her shoulder as she marched towards the anxious girl. You heard her. Mr. Aizawa needs us. This isn't over, Shouko. Her father warns before turning his gaze to Midoriya. And you, don't you dare shame this brat by holding back. You hear me? You don't call her that. Small and quiet, Midoriya's voice still somehow radiated enough determination to fight the overwhelming heat of the hallway. And there she is again, little Hermia. Endeavor raises a fiery brow. Care to repeat that? The foolish girl raises her gaze to meet the flame heroes, and her childish features harden as her voice raises. I said, Midoriya, we're going. Come on. Shouko was hit by a wave of panic as she realized the foolish choice Midoriya was about to make, grabbing the girl by the arm and dragging her around the corner despite the green-haired girl's hiss of pain. Once she'd all but yanked her a suitable distance away, Shouko turned to grab her by the shoulder, expression incredulous. What the hell were you thinking? Midoriya's expression is guilt-ridden, but she doesn't lose the determination in her tone. He was being mean to you. I wanted him to stop. Shouko rolled her eyes, releasing Midoriya and pinching the bridge of her own nose in irritation. Whatever. What did Aizawa want? Oh, he actually didn't want anything. The smaller girl looked sheepish as she rubbed the back of her neck. I just came looking for you because I was worried when Endeavor wasn't in the heroes section. Okay, look, I'm putting the brakes on this before it starts. Shouko scowled at Midoriya, who seemed to shrink into herself. Maybe I should have known this before I told you why I have to beat you, but I'm not looking for some hero to whisk me away from him. I've handled him my whole life, and I still can. Don't stick your nose where you don't belong. But he's hurting you, Midoriya exclaimed, shrinking further as Shouko's angry stare grew deeper. You said all that stuff before about the Omii, and I want to help you before it gets really bad, or the man you're supposed to get married to decides to. If he ever tries. Shouko realizes what she's getting at. Until he what? Rapes me. Watching Midoriya blanch at the word, Shouko scoffs, crossing her arms. Tell me, how do you think my siblings and I were conceived? Do you think my mother was truly willing to lie down with my father? Of course not. I have full reason to believe that my father is a marital rapist, and I have no doubt Ando will be as well. But until we're married, he's too smart to try and pull something so drastic. That would violate the terms. And believe me, I will not allow myself to be married off. I'll win this tournament. How can you talk about it so casually? Midoriya is clenching her fists, looking up in bewilderment and sadness. Todoroki, this isn't how normal people live. I'm not a normal person. The world I'm made for and the one you live in are very different. Shouko glares one last time before turning on her heels, leaving the stuttering girl alone. Don't interfere in my life. There's nothing that can be done to help me, so stop it before you make it worse than you already have. Go back to playing friends with Ida and Uraraka, and be thankful for what you have. Todoroki. There's a keening tone in Midoriya's fading voice as Shouko walks away, and she ignores the way it stirs something in her chest. This didn't clear her mind at all, and judging by the loudspeakers in the hallway, the fight between Ashido and Shinsu was about to begin. Both of them would need to head to their respective anterooms. She ices her heart over one last time, letting emptiness overtake her like an old friend. She can't afford to go into this match angry. Izumi bit at her lip as she tries to hold back tears. She wishes she wasn't such a crybaby, but the conversation with Todoroki, well, it was nothing short of horrifying seeing how casually the girl treated her abusive life. Izumi swore she'd never forgive Endeavor for raising a child to believe she didn't belong in a world of happiness, leaving the empty-eyed and delusional Shouko Todoroki instead of the fully alive girl she could have been in another life. And speaking of the flame hero, what on earth was she thinking talking back to him like that? Izumi wanted to punch herself 1,000,000 times for something so stupid. But her fingers were still a little bit busted, so maybe that wasn't the smartest. Mixed with the anger and regret was some guilt over what she had just done without Todoroki's knowledge. Sighing, Izumi stared down at her jacket, unzipped a little further than she normally wore the sports uniform, unzipping it far enough that her sports bra was slightly visible, along with the small rectangle tucked just into the top. Removing the object, Izumi pursed her lips as she touched the screen. It was her cell phone, and she had just shut off the recording application. Truth be told, she had been standing behind the corner since Endeavor had told Todoroki to lose the attitude, recording everything afterwards. She felt horrible about this breach of trust. Was it really a breach if Todoroki clearly trusted her about as far as she could throw her? But Uraraka had been right. Leaving this alone would be unheroic, and going in without evidence would only make things worse for the bicolored girl. Izumi wasn't sure this would be admissible in court, being recorded without consent and all that. But it may just convince one important person who she had already seen put everything on the line for his students to help her. Opening her notes, Izumi made a reminder to herself. Show recording to Mr. Aizawa after festival. Fayumi. Todoroki is on the edge of her seat literally. There's a non-zero chance she's going to fall right off her rolling chair in front of all her third graders, and God knows how poorly that would go. The Ashido girl, for all the strength she showed last match, loses within a minute of her fight against the Shinsu boy apparently related to one of Natsuo's friends. It's obvious to just about everyone watching how Shinsu's quirk is activated, so either nobody from her class warned Ashido about it, or the girl made a very foolish mistake and let him push her buttons. She hopes it's the latter. She doesn't want to think Shouko's classmates are that heartless when it comes to one of their own. There's a 5-minute break in between this fight and the next due to the acid burning holes in the cement ring, which leaves Fayumi with some time to internally freak out over the next match. There's a tug on her slacks. Miss Todoroki, is your sister up next? Fayumi looks down to see little Heizuki, his gold eyes wide as he asks the question. His quirk eyes off allowed him to force people to look away from him, and had been a significant issue at the start of the year when he would use it to get her to avoid him copying his neighbor's paper. He'd gotten significantly better since then, though, and has so far turned out to be just a delight. Another student approaches, Kachiya this time. There are bows where her hair would normally be, stuck down with tape with a quirk as body-altering as skeleton. The little girl has to make do with sticking them to the bone of her skull. Fayumi remembers her high school history classes where she recalls that years ago, mutant quirks were called monster quirks until it was changed, monster seeming far too cruel and dehumanizing. Kachiya is cheerful and bright, laughing and presenting her teacher with drawings nearly every day. Despite sunken dark eye sockets bearing impossible eyeballs and an ever-present eerie smile, she is no monster. She's class president Kachiya Bonkohara, and she's currently nodding at Heizuki happily. Yeah, it's Miss Todoroki's sister. She's pretty itty. I'll be sure to tell her, Kachiya. Fayumi smiles and reaches down to pat Kachiya's head, remarking internally about how smooth and cold it is. She can hardly panic internally when her students are involved. They need her there, present and able to lend a caring hand. I'm gonna be a hero too and be in the sports festival. Barbara shouts from the back of her class. The Australian girl's Japanese has been improving leaps and bounds since moving to Japan, and her stingray tail is wagging about excitedly behind her. Fayumi almost reminds her to keep it tucked under her chair before another voice joins. Me too, me too. It's Kaiko this time, and Fayumi has to stand up before anyone says anything with a quirk volatile enough to be called mass destruction. The eldest Todoroki daughter knows the general reactions of the students when Kaiko mentions her heroic dreams. I'm sure you can all make it there. She smiles out at her students, who grin happily at the praise, any thoughts of taunting Kaiko far from their minds. Look, the break is ending. Why don't we watch and see what the students now are doing? You can learn from them when it's your turn at the festival. That quiets the class, and the ones standing up rush back to their seats and keep their eyes glued on the smartboard. Fayumi sighs contentedly, leaning back in her seat. It was hard to keep her rascals organized sometimes, but they were quiet as mice during the matches. A little movement catches her eye from the far corner of the room, and she notices that it's Nito, the boy's eyes almost concealed behind shaggy red hair. He's signing at her, and Fayumi understands thanks to the Skype lessons Natsuo has been giving her on the topic of sign language. She'd asked him to tutor her when she learned the little deaf boy would be joining her class. Severe bullying at his previous school, apparently. It twisted Fayumi's gut to think how other children would have treated Nito deaf and quirkless. What an easy target. His message stirs her heart, reminding her of a certain white-haired brother. Can I be a hero too, Miss Todoroki? In all honesty, Fayumi didn't know. It was a cutthroat business, and superpowers were hard to contend when you were a genetic relic from over a century ago. But she'd seen Natsuo's spunky attitude, his fierce determination, and the willingness to always get back up when he was knocked down. If he had desired it, Fayumi had no doubt the youngest Todoroki son could have become a hero. She smiles gently at her student as she signs back, clumsy and slow but still clear. You can, Nito. She sees his bright smile and remembers why she became a teacher in the first place. Smiling back at him, Fayumi turns her chair around to watch her little sister as she walks into the arena. Shouko feels nothing. This is what she tells herself as she approaches the arena. She feels nothing as President Mike introduces her as the Ice Queen with a burning spark. It's Shouko Todoroki of Class 1A. She feels nothing as she watches Midoriya climb the steps in pace with her. And she absolutely feels nothing as her opponent looks into her eyes, conflict burning behind forest green. It will be worse for me if you hold back, Shouko informs her, watches Midoriya flinch. Don't think going easy on me will make it better in the long run. My old man knows when someone isn't giving it their all, so forget any sort of hero complex you have right now. I wouldn't hold back anyways, Todoroki. Midoriya's stutter takes away from the attempt to be intimidating that her words seem to imply. I have something to prove to everyone. I'm not going down easily. Whatever. Rolling her eyes, Shouko lines up on her side of the arena as Midoriya lines up on hers. Even from the stands, she can feel Endeavor's burning gaze. It's something she's intimately aware of, an itch she can't scratch. He's watching. Her future lies in this ring. Shouko cannot lose. As soon as Present Mike shouts out, her foot is slammed on the ground, a tower of ice whipping towards Midoriya. If she could finish this one quickly. Smash. Well, Shouko's never been that lucky. Forming a small ice wall behind herself, she has to raise her hands to protect her face from the shards of ice that come flying as Midoriya fires off a shot. What was the name of her quirk again? Superpower. Fitting. The audience shouts as blasts of cold air hit them and Present Mike is yelling something. But Shouko's not focused on either of those things. She's focused on Midoriya, holding her right wrist and panting as she stares Shouko down with an adrenaline-fueled tenseness in her eyes. Heterochromic eyes flick to the hand being cradled, one finger is bent back, bruising rapidly. So she was willing to injure herself to fight her, was she? Well, Shouko thought as she released another wall of ice. Let's see how long you can handle the pain. Midoriya's eyes were wide in shock for the split second before they were obscured by the ice. But there was nonetheless another scream just before Shouko's ice split down the center. Bracing again, Shouko could feel the ice wall behind her start to crack. Frosting it over with one hand in an attempt to seal them up for now, she faced Midoriya once more, the girl biting her lip as she held up 2 more broken fingers. 6 more fingers, Midoriya. Shouko spoke coolly, watching the other girl's eyes widen like dinner plates. Slamming down her foot, she released another wave, bracing it advance as Midoriya shattered it. An ice shard bounced off her blocking forearm, and she hissed as she felt it cut through her skin. Ignoring that for now, the bicolored girl glared down her trembling opponent. And now it's 5. You want an endurance match? Well, this ends now. Shouko stomped on the ground, firing a more precise wave of ice at Midoriya, sacrificing width for speed. Midoriya would no doubt be in a weaker position after this one, having to react quicker, so the second her ice broke into pieces, Shouko took off on a ramp of ice in the name of rushing for the green-haired girl. She wasn't as fast as she would be normally. She knew this. The ice was starting to affect her, muscles on her right side groaning in protest as she bolted up and over the ramp. Feeling the ice below her feet crack and the wind whip her hair around, Shouko took a leap of faith, and it was a good thing she did, a panicked Midoriya having snapped a bandaged finger to break it. The other girl looked up with a grimace, barely dodging as Shouko punched where her head had been seconds before, ice encasing her fist and embedding in the concrete of the arena. The temperature in the arena had dropped several degrees, and Shouko was in her element. Winter winds in late May. The way her opponent's breath was showing in Shouko's sub-zero aura, the sensation of frost crackling up her arm as she stood back up. She was made for this. Her fire itched and ached to be used, but she forced down the feeling. Adrenaline pumping, Shouko spun on her feet, shooting out a wave of ice to encase Midoriya's ankle as the girl leapt, creating another barrier behind herself just in case. This would be over soon. No thank you. Bad. No, non-mercy, antelope nope. Ochako was biting her fingernails in the stands, a nasty habit that only rose its head in periods of high stress. Deku had just broken her entire arm escaping Todoroki's hold on her ankle, so she could be forgiven for feeling a little worried about her closest friend here. Todoroki had almost been pushed from the ring by that one attack, and Ochako and Ida had gasped in sync as the dust and frost cleared the air to reveal that Shouko Todoroki was merely slouched against her barrier on the other side of the ring, pushing aside large pieces of ice as she got to her feet. Todoroki is seriously crazy. Ashido gasped from behind her, the pink girl seemingly over having completely flubbed against Shinsu. She doesn't have any weak points. Seriously, raccoon eyes. Bakugo snapped from a few rows back. Look at her. Ice-Hat's all frosted over on one side. Quirks are physical abilities, everyone's got a limit, and she's reaching hers. As much as Ochako loathed agreeing with Bakugo on, well, anything, he was right this time around. Bits of frost coated Todoroki's side, half of her mussed hair frozen at the tips. In fact, as Ochako's gaze darted to the screens around the arena showing the fight up close for those in the nosebleeds to see, even the girl's eyelashes were dotted with little pieces of snow. Slowly but surely, Todoroki's quirk was starting to freeze the girl alive. Ada spoke from beside her, the boy's brow furrowed. She can use fire, can't she? I don't understand why she isn't thawing herself out. Come to think of it, she never uses that aspect of her quirk. Now, Ochako is the first to admit that she's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but she is not stupid. In fact, she'd argue that her social smarts outshine her academic smarts by a long shot. Deku had mentioned earlier that she'd learned someone was being hurt by a powerful person pretty badly, and Ochako knows from Yaoyorozu's comment while handing her that cheerleading costume that Todoroki had apparently been talking to Deku just before the green-haired girl appeared looking crestfallen. The bicolored student's father also happens to be the number 2 hero known for his abrasive attitude and sudden vanishing of his wife from all social events. Ochako makes it a point to avoid looking around in the change room, but the bruises and bandages Todoroki sports are obvious even when she mistakenly raises her eyes from the ground. And that's not even getting into the scar on her face. The person who needs help is Shouko Todoroki, And Ochako sighs sadly. I'm not sure, Ida. I guess she just doesn't like to. Ochako finishes gnawing on her nails to dig into her pants pocket. Pulling out a cell phone with a predictably All Might-themed case, she sighs. Hitting the center button and opening to a lock screen of Deku and herself posing in a Purikura booth. They'd taken this photo last weekend on a mall outing together. Neither one of them had been in a Purikura booth before. Ochako being from the countryside and Deku admitting to not having any friends to take pictures with. Their skin was way paler than it was in real life, and Ochako knows her eyes are not that big. But they'd spent more time adding glitter and flowers and drawn on cat ears in the editor than focusing on how they'd looked. Between both girls' peace signs sits the glittery text, OCHAKO plus Izumi. Deku had made it her phone background, had she? Ochako couldn't help but smile, though she'd frown when she remembered why she was holding the phone in the first place. Deku had trusted her with this, and she had a good idea of what might be so important to her green-haired friend. Sighing, she slipped it back into her pocket, looking back up to the match. Whether Deku liked it or not, she was a part of this too. She'd do whatever she had to help. Izumi is in so much pain. Her fingers send what feels like electric shocks up her arm whenever she twitches, and she is twitching a lot. It's freezing in here, not even counting the numbness of the toes she'd just broken free from that wave of ice. Izumi thinks she's too hyped up on adrenaline to feel much of her left arm, hanging loosely to the side, and she's immensely grateful for that small mercy. That said, the more she thinks about it, the more it hurts, so she's going to stop doing that and instead whips her head forwards to stare at Todoroki, somehow still not out of the ring. The bicolored girl pushes aside chunks of ice as she gets to her feet, not even stumbling. That attack was a lot stronger than your previous ones, Midoriya. And it cost you a full arm, didn't it? I wonder how much longer you'll last. Izumi's stomach jumps as Todoroki stands. And it's for more than one reason. Combat-wise, Todoroki was a total monster. Not only was her quirk extremely strong, but she had awareness, reasoning, and fast judgment capabilities on a level that some pros didn't reach. But that's not even the only grounds on which her heart finds itself pounding fast. As Todoroki stands up, frost coming out in a puff as she exhales slowly, she looks dead. Izumi had thought her eyes were dead before, but now she sees that was Todoroki at her most alive, challenging her. Now, smack down and in the heat of battle, she looks like a zombie. There's no light behind blue and gray. And Izumi wants nothing more than to skin Endeavor alive for what he's done to this girl. What's the matter? She says, and God, Izumi almost jumps out of her skin. It's like a dead body started to talk to her. Too worn out after defending against my attacks. Don't pity her. Izumi's mind scolds. Did you forget what she said? Find a weak spot and fight her like anyone else. The green-haired girl's eyes dart over her opponent. The ice could seemingly go in any direction, though she had a small casting range before she could create huge shapes, maybe only 3 feet. Not enough. Not nearly enough for Izumi to get in there before being hit by a glacier. Physically stronger than her, less bulk than Izumi but full of lean muscle and height, more agile. Defrost. Todoroki was shivering. Thanks for drawing it out. Todoroki speaks casually even as her body trembles. She tilts her head upwards, Izumi's gaze following to see a glaring Endeavor watching from the heroes section. Look at him. He's furious I'm not using his power. Your hands are too destroyed for you to keep going, so let's end this. Without even moving, Todoroki sends a blast of ice her way. In a way, the half-hot, half-cold user is right. Izumi knows her arm is a mess. Her fingers still screeching in pain whenever her hand moves. It would be easy, wouldn't it? Giving up, that is. Todoroki would get her victory. The pain would stop. Why shouldn't Izumi just let this happen? No, this won't be a victory for anyone. Todoroki would remain a prisoner to her arranged marriage. Endeavor wouldn't be satisfied, and Izumi's classmate would continue to live in hell. Beautiful eyes would remain dull and dead. She's the Deku who never gives up. Izumi Midoriya is not done yet. Shouko thought Midoriya was reckless once, but that assumption was incorrect. She realizes as she gets back using her ice barrier as support. This girl is borderline suicidal. She'd released a blast so powerful from an already broken finger that it had very nearly knocked Shouko out of the ring. A drop of blood hits her cheek, and she realizes in numbed horror that it's not hers. Midoriya's right index is broken so badly that it's bleeding. Shouko is speaking before she can think. With your broken finger, why are you going this far? Midoriya's voice is small and monotone yet fierce, and Shouko thinks of that play again. You're trembling, Todoroki. There's a limit to the cold your body can take, right? Shouko's heart nearly stops. She's right. Midoriya knows about her limit. The green-haired girl continues even as Shouko feels her face contort into a snarl. Normally you'd fix the problem by heating yourself up with your left side, but you're not doing that now. You refuse to in front of him. Midoriya, shut up. The girl shouts, head flying up. And in her determined and furious expression, Izumi Midoriya has never looked more beautiful to Shouko. Look at me, Todoroki. All of us are giving it our all. We're all fighting for number 1. Get off your high horse. You don't get to win only giving it half of your power. You think you can beat me not giving it everything? You haven't put a single scratch on me yet, so come at me with all you've got. She's right, she's right, she's right, and Shouko hates it. Her heart begs to be free, and she ices it over. No, she can't break. Not now. Midoriya, what the hell are you trying to do here? You want my fire. Now you're just pissing me off. Shouko takes off, bolting towards Midoriya even as her exhausted muscles scream for heat. She was slower, and she knew Midoriya knew, that twitch in the girl's eyes indicating how closely she was being watched. Even so, the way the green-haired girl took off the second Shouko lifted her foot to leap. The bicolored girl heard something strange about eggs and microwaves just as she was punched directly in the stomach with the force of a semi-truck. It takes everything Shouko has to keep her lunch of Kaizenden from resurfacing on national television as she slides backwards. She didn't even have the energy to form an ice barrier. It was nothing short of a miracle that she didn't slide out of the ring. Shouko heaved and coughed, leaping to her feet despite the scream of something deep within her gut and slamming her foot down to send off a wave of ice. It's slow, too slow, and Midoriya is able to leap out of the way with ease. Why was she doing all this? Shouko loathes to even think it, but if she'd wanted to, Midoriya could have won by now. So why the hell was she putting herself through all this pain? Shouko grits her teeth and runs in, trading punches with a grimacing Midoriya until the force of another finger being rebroken sends them both backward. The bicolored girl holding in a shriek of pain as she smashes into her ice wall. They're getting clumsier, more jagged, and she knows she can't keep going like this. Midoriya braces her thumb in her cheek to fire off one more hit, and Todoroki cries out with pain as she barely manages to bring up an ice wall to stop herself from flying out of the arena. Collapsing against it, it takes everything she has to struggle to her feet. Endeavor's gaze is burning her up even as her body slowly freezes. Why are you putting yourself through this? Midoriya, why aren't you just beating me already? Because I want to live up to people's expectations. Midoriya is wheezing, and her arms are flailing as she runs towards Todoroki, head still held high. She's gritting her teeth, eyes filled with tears. I want to show thanks to those who helped me get here, to save people with a smile on my face. I want to be a pro. I'll do whatever it takes to be a hero. And to be a pro, to show everyone who believes in me that I can do it. I have to save you first, Todoroki. Shouko is a few months shy of 4, nestled up to her mother on the couch and watching All Might on TV while her mother does her hair for the day. Her mother's body is natural cool, but nothing feels cozier than being tucked next to her, safe and sound. Her hair is in pigtails, her mother finishing tying up the last ribbon as she speaks. Shouko, Midoriya punches her in the stomach, sending her flying backwards and nearly out of bound. Shouko almost throws up, swallowing it back as Midoriya screams out. That's why I'm giving it my all, just like you should be doing. TGH. Shouko scrambles to her feet, rushing to the middle of the arena, but she pauses when she notices that Midoriya isn't moving, standing still in the center. Her long ponytail blows in the frigid wind, almost like a cape behind her. I know your story, but now how it's affected you. I can put 2 and 2 together with the girl standing in front of me, but I can never truly comprehend what that man did to your mind. We've had such different lives. Midoriya is wheezing, her legs shaking, but she stands with an aura of strength that almost makes Shouko want to drop to her knees. If you want to reject your father, you can. There are so many ways you can do that, but you have no right to be here today if you aren't going to use your full power. Shouko is still. She's been on the border of dissociating this entire match, and the sudden memory of being held to her mother's chest as her tears are dried yanks her away from the roaring crowd, from Midoriya, from her own pain. Mama, she cries, burns on her arms still fresh. I hate him. I don't ever want to be a person like him. Frost is creeping up her body, covering her right side, and it barely pulls Shouko out of her blank state in time to register Midoriya's voice. That's why I'm going to win this. There's a pain in her stomach, and Shouko can't believe she can still hear Midoriya's voice over the sound of her own cry of pain as she flies back from the punch. I'll surpass you. Her brother and sister playing while she was pulled away. Tauya never being mentioned again. Her mother putting on burn salve and teaching Fayumi how to cover bruises. A crying mother. A daughter in the wrong place at the wrong time. A kettle. A house somehow becoming colder as it becomes hotter. A child crawling back to her room covered in vomit. Nobody else there to help her. In these moments, Shouko learned to hate her father. She hated red, the color of her hair, of her burn. She swore to herself she'd reject him no matter what the cost. She hated him. Would she rather be sold off like a dog to be bred until she produced a proper heir? Would she rather run off to any possible fate like Tauya? Would she rather jump off the school roof? If the option was to be like him in even the smallest way, the answer to all those questions was a resounding yes. Shouko gritted her teeth, left hand over her stomach. I won't use my left side. It's yours. Your quirk, not his. Several decades from this point of time, Shouko will recall the many ways of Midoriya. The way her eyes lit up the moment she smelled fresh katsudon. the way she never really lost her rambling habit, the way one of her dimples was a little higher set than the other. But most of all, Shouko will remember the way her scream sounded like a song to her ears, the way her ponytail whipped around her head like a halo in the cold winds, and the way one sentence broke down a decade of hatred and suffering. It was like the world had stopped turning, everything deathly still except for the heaving chest and exhausted breath of the girl in front of her. It was Shouko and Midoriya, the rest of the world not present for the revelation of a lifetime. Her left side erupts in flames. Shouko Todoroki thinks she may be a little in love with Izumi Midoriya. Fayumi is crying. Kachiya and Heizuki running up to see if she's okay. She's more than okay. She's overjoyed. The baby of the family did it. She put their father behind her and embraced who she was. Shouko is lit up in ice and flame, looking every bit as beautiful as their mother, and Fayumi realizes her little sister is growing more and more into a woman every day. Natsuo whoops in excitement, Lonnie shaking his arm and cheering just as loud. The room is awash with shouts of "Oh my God!" and "Is that fire?" And Natsuo, since when could your sister do that? He has never been so proud to be a big brother. Watching his little sister wield the power he'd envied for years as a little boy, Shouko was taking her next steps, and Natsuo makes a silent promise to her that he will never be a shadow in her life again. Rei Todoroki weeps in joy as she watches the event in the ward common room. Her beautiful baby girl. A man watches from the stands. His scarred face is hidden behind a flu mask, a baseball cap granting his bright blue eyes and black hair some privacy as he watches Shouko erupt into the flames. HMPH. And wasn't she dead set on denying Endeavor last time he heard anything from the Todoroki family? He speaks over the roar of the crowd, a voice heard only to himself. Tisk. And here I thought you were something special, sis. She's beautiful, and Izumi finds herself smiling despite the pain. Gorgeous, Todoroki. The girl mumbles, and she knows she isn't talking about the flame. A grin that has crept onto her opponent's face, the wild expression of a caged animal tasting freedom for the first time. It's the most beautiful thing Izumi has ever seen in her life. Hellfire be damned. Todoroki is heaven sent, an angel flanked by wings of ice and fire that illuminate pale skin and mismatched hair. Her power is breathtaking, but more so is the girl who wields it. Izumi thinks of the shyness that overcame her when she realized she was being stared at, so different from the stares of middle school classmates, recognizes the flutter in her chest whenever that gaze fell on her for what it really was. Izumi Midoriya thinks she may be a little in love with Shouko Todoroki. Shouko is alive, power pouring through her skin with a scream of joy over finally being freed. Endeavor is shouting something from the sidelines, and Shouko finds that she doesn't care. This is not his story. This is hers, and it's her quirk. Her power. She is not defined by him. Shouko will become her own person separate from her father, find who she wants to be, before she knows what's happening. There's tears running down her face. Is it sadness for the years she's wasted without her flame? Is it joy at the realization that she is free, that her cage has been opened and she can run in any direction she wants, that she can build a personality from the ashes she will leave behind on this battleground? Shouko doesn't know, but it's okay. She looks at Midoriya, bruised and heavenly. You're crazy, you know that. Midoriya smiles shakily, hair whipping in the wind. Maybe you have to have a crazy streak to be a hero. You might be right. Shouko activates her ice, and it's like being released from a vice grip over her entire body. Flames and ice form a cone, light flashing and exploding around her body. And this is who she is. Half hot, half cold is Shouko's and nobody else's. Her power to harness. Midoriya is staring, eyes wide in wonder. Her bruised lips curl into an even more joyful smile. Beautiful. Shouko knows she's talking about the quirk, but it doesn't stop her heart from soaring anyways. Midoriya, I see now. Thank you. Shouko begins to move her arms, flame and ice dancing in preparation for the entropic explosion about to be unleashed. Power rips through Midoriya's form, tearing the calves of her pants as she rockets into the air over Shouko's ice. Broken arm thrown back as rainbow lines ripple through it, composing the attack of a lifetime. There's concrete, pink gas, green and white and red, and iridescent beauty that Shouko prays she never forgets. And then an impact that nearly throws her off her feet. Her head feels like it's spinning, and she stumbles on her feet, panting as she feels the heat and ice temper out around her to the expected warmth of a May afternoon. Eyes adjusting to the world around her, Shouko notices two things. One, that her shirt is half burned off, her hand flying up instinctively to cover the right side of her chest upon seeing that her sports bra was almost completely torched. Two, that she's standing in the ring only feet where she was before the attack. Mismatched eyes dart around the arena. And that's when she sees her. Midoriya has collapsed, completely unconscious, against the far wall. Midoriya is out of bounds. Todoroki wins. Oh. Midnight runs over, removing her leather jacket and covering Shouko up with it while whispering a congratulation. Shouko nods silently as she hears the crowd go wild. All those things she'd thought about Midoriya just then. Were they true? Was it the flame, the adrenaline, the pressure? Or did she really Was she actually a could she be a less? Nope, nah, impossible. Shouko couldn't even think of the word right now. She'd had 2 major realizations in the matter of minutes, and she could not bear a sexuality crisis right now alongside it. As she leaves the ring and walks into the hallway, Endeavor is waiting, grinning in a pleased manner. Shouko, I'm thrilled to see you've realized your wrongdoings. Move. I'm indecent. Shouko attempts to get around him, but his imposing figure blocks her path. That woman lent you her jacket. You're fine. Not even bothering with Midnight's name, Endeavor continues. You've gone past your childish rebellion. Now that you've accepted my power, we can. Just shut up. Shouko takes the man's shocked stillness as an opportunity to slip past him. Midoriya told me something important just now. This quirk is mine, not a single part of it is yours. And you know what? When I was using my flame, for once, I wasn't thinking about you in the slightest. Walking away, Shouko speaks before he gets the chance. This is my story, not yours. You've had your shot already. I'm looking forwards to becoming a hero separate from you. Shouko takes a deep breath before knocking on the infirmary door. She'd waited for Ida to clear out in the name of not getting in the way of her friends. But she needed to say this sooner rather than later. A nurse with large horns like a ram opened the door. Yes, I'm here to see Midoriya. Pausing, Shouko remembers she should clarify something. Tell her it's Todoroki. Nodding, the young man trots away on cloven hooves before returning a couple minutes later. You're clear to see her. Just follow me. Staying closely behind the man, she thanks him as he holds open the door to Midoriya's room for her. The other girl is shifting nervously in her bed, bandages on both arms and legs, and, oh, her hair. Midoriya's long ponytail is gone. No more yellow ribbon holding up hip-length hair. Instead, her mussed hair is scorched around her chin, looking like a longer version of Ashido's. Small green curls frame her face, and she chuckles nervously. Hi Todoroki. Fire, hair, you know. Oh no, Shouko burned her hair off. She feels a bit queasy as she recalls a threat her father made to her years ago. I'm sorry, Midoriya. No, it's okay. The girl moves to wave her arms frantically before cringing, keeping the bandaged limbs close to her chest instead. I was due for a haircut anyways. I'm gonna clean it up a little when I get home. Please don't feel bad. I kinda think it's cute short. Even so, I'm still sorry. Shouko remembers how long it took to grow her hair to her ribs, and realizes how many years of growth she just carelessly destroyed from Midoriya's long locks. That said, she didn't come here to apologize over burnt hair. I wanted to thank you for what you said out there. It meant more to me than you'd think. Midoriya's freckled cheeks pinken. Oh, it's no problem at all, Todoroki. I'm just, sorry if I was annoying or anything. I just really thought you needed to hear it, and I knew you wouldn't listen if I didn't prove it was your quirk first, and I didn't know how You ramble, don't you? Shouko sits down in a chair next to the side table, watching Midoriya squeak, and cuts in before she can respond. And don't apologize for that. You say a lot of good things when you're mumbling. Oh man, that came out way more intimate than she'd anticipated. She wonders if she's imagining Midoriya's blush. If you say so. It's just, I don't know. I guess you looked like you needed help, Todoroki. Shouko, you helped me overcome a weakness and hurt yourself doing it. You didn't have to, but you did. Shouko allows her lips to curve into the slightest hint of a smile. So please call me Shouko. It's the least I can do. Midoriya looks surprised before she breaks into a tiny smile in return. Oh, then, Shouko, please call me Izumi. Izumi. Shouko pretends like her heart doesn't jump a bit hearing her first name from the other girl's lips. Shifting a bit, she thinks over her next question. Is she being presumptuous by asking what she wants to? She's not at all familiar with this process, not familiar with anything in relation to girls her own age. Was there a special code word? A secret handshake? A blood ritual? Anything was posse. So, friends, or Izumi could ask it first. That worked too. Shouko paused for a moment in surprise before slowly nodding. Yeah, friends. Izumi smiled brightly, and Shouko felt the ice around her heart melt a bit. Maybe she could let one person in. Just for now. Yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. Shouko ended up wandering the halls for some time after her match, not in much of a mood to go back to the stands right away after her talk with Izumi. It was more a matter of just reflecting over everything that had happened just now. The entire match and conversation afterwards were only 15 minutes combined, but it was enough to prompt an irreversible change. That said, Shouko still had hesitations. She was breaking a promise she'd kept up for years and years, a vow made when she was a beaten and bruised 11-year-old. For her entire life, fire had been pain. Shouko believed Izumi, she did. It was just a lot. Rome wasn't built in a day. As she approached the end of the hallway, just a door between her and her class's box seating section, she paused, holding up her left hand and letting a little flame flicker in her palm. Pursing her lips tightly, Shouko made a fist to extinguish it. She'd get used to it in time. Right, Uraraka had lost. Izumi hadn't been able to leave the infirmary for the entirety of the match, but there was a TV showing the event live inside. It was an absolutely heartbreaking loss, Izumi having shed a few tears for her friend when Ochako had finally collapsed unconscious on the arena floor. She'd tried so hard, fought so smart, but in the end, well, Kaken didn't have to fight nearly as hard against Kaminari as she had against Shizaki. He was better rested than her, increased reflexes, physically stronger. Uraraka had gotten close enough to victory that Izumi could see the discomfort in Kaken's eyes as he walked out of the ring. Even from the somewhat distant camera angle, she'd known the boy long enough to recognize the little things, but it hadn't changed the fact that she had lost. She'd talked to Uraraka after the other girl woke up in the infirmary bed right next to Izumi, and, well, she was glad she was released minutes later. Hearing her friend cry into her phone from the other side of the door was hard enough without having to see her. Making her way back to the stands, the first thing to greet her was Ashido's shout. "Oh my god, your hair. I told you it was burned off," Kaminari yelled triumphantly. "I saw them pick the ponytail off the ground when they were cleaning up. It looked like a snake with a bow on one end." Izumi turned beet red as all attention was focused on both the hair she no longer had and what remained. Wait, they threw out my hair. We're not sure where it went. Provided you don't dye it. You could donate it somewhere if they give it back to you. Ribbit. Asui, she means Sue offered up. Also, everyone should be a little more sensitive. It's upsetting for a girl to lose a lot of hair suddenly. It's okay, Sue," Izumi quickly replied, seeing the unmoving Shouko flinch from the front row. "I actually was considering getting a short haircut anyways, so it's not too bad. I'll just need to tidy up the ends so they aren't, scorched." Shaoji raised one of his many hands from the back row. "I've always cut all three of my younger sister's hair. If you want, I could clean it up." Izumi raised a hand to shyly play with her bangs, feeling the ends crunch where the heat had blackened them. "I mean, if you don't mind." She was more than a little embarrassed at the prospect of being visible on TV again with her hair looking like she'd been on the wrong end of a flamethrower. Nodding, Shaoji got up from his seat. "All I need is something to cut them with." Kirishima enthusiastically raised his hand, hardening it. "You can use my arm if you want." No, it was a little amazing how Izumi and Shaoji spoke in perfect synchronization like that. But Kirishima's proposal deserved nothing less. She'd thought about how she looked like she'd been caught by a flamethrower already. The last thing she needed was to have Kirishima use his quirk and make her look like she'd also been in a terrible lawnmower accident. Chin length was short enough, thanks. Yaoyorozu rolled her eyes from next to Shaoji, holding out her forearm and creating a pair of stylus scissors and silently handing them off to the tall boy. Offering a nod and thanks, the Dupli arms user motioned for Izumi to sit down and got to work as soon as she was properly seated in the back row. He was surprisingly efficient, and within a few minutes, Izumi was staring into the compact mirror Hagakure offered up at her newly trimmed locks. They still sat around her chin, must as always, but it looked like more of an intentional choice rather than an unfortunate side effect of a battle. "Well, this looks really good, Shaoji." "Thank you. It's not a problem." Shaoji nodded. "Looks like the next match is starting shortly. You might want to get back to your seat." "Yes, Midoriya." Ada waved from their row, second from the front. "Join us in cheering on our classmates." Smiling, Izumi nodded at Shaoji before heading down to Ada, sliding in next to him. I should probably text a few thoughts popped up. Izumi letting the gears grind and put it together before her eyes widened with a gasp. "Oh crap. Language." Ada sounded scandalized. "Yo, is that really a swear word?" Zero whispered to Kota beside him, who just shrugged. "And my cell phone." Izumi's heart had just about stopped when she'd realized she'd never gotten it back from Uraraka before the match. It was in Uraraka's pocket, and, "I have it." The croaking voice behind her was like a melody to Izumi's ears, given the context. Sue extended a big hand to offer the phone to its owner. "Ochako gave it to me before her match." Izumi almost started tearing up as she grabbed it out of Sue's hand, holding it with all the care of a newborn. Crying over everything was sort of her brand, whether she wanted to or not. "I was so scared." "Thank you so much, Sue. Never really pegged you as the phone crazy type," said Kaminari from a few rows back. Shrugging, Izumi went to play with her ponytail, blinking a few times before she remembered it wasn't there anymore. Shaking that surprise off, she managed to actually respond. "I'm not usually like this. There's just something important on it." Without thinking about it, Izumi's eyes flickered up to see that Shouko was staring right at her. There was an exchange of confused blinks before mismatched irises flickered to the chair next to Izumi, then to the green-haired girl, then to the chair, and back to her again. This was a request to sit beside her. Maybe Shouko had some difficulty with asking for things normally or basic teenage conduct, something Izumi had found moderately endearing until she learned it was ignorance formed from a lifetime of isolation and abuse. Now it just twisted her heart to watch the girl clumsily navigate the social sphere where the rest of her classmates flourished. Offering a hopeful smile, Izumi waved at her. Shouko, want to come sit with Ida and I? Sure. Almost looking surprised that her message got through, Shouko stood up, scooting out of the front row to make her way to Izumi's row. Since when were you two on a first-name basis, Ribbit? Sue asked, placing a large finger on her chin. Comrades by battle, are you? Despite their vastly different appearances and approaches to life, Ida still reminded Izumi a lot of Kirishima in his enthusiasm and traditional opinion on combat. At least Ida never offered to cut her hair with his hands, though he probably could, given how fast they moved sometimes. The freckled girl chuckled, rubbing the back of her head. Well, something like that. We chatted a little after the match. Izumi smiled at Shouko as she entered their row, noting the faint scar on one arm was that the cut from those ice shards. Recovery girl's healing was something else. Taking a seat next to her, Shouko offered a shallow bow to everyone involved in the conversation. Izumi, Asui, Eda. Sue tilted her head. Just call me Sue. Shouko looked slightly taken aback before nodding. Sue, then. All of you can call me Shouko. This time, it was Ida's turn to look surprised. Are you sure? I'm fine if you all wish to refer to me as Tenya, but I don't wish to impose on you so informally. Oh, Ida, ever respectful. Izumi took the chance to pipe in, leaning forwards in her seat slightly. It's okay, Tenya. And, everyone can call me Izumi. There was a hand on her head from behind, Izumi almost jumping out of her skin as she turned rapidly to see a grinning Ashido behind her. Call me Mina. I don't think you were included in this conversation, Ribbit, but I'll call you that if you want. Before Izumi could address the cheerfully oblivious Ashido behind her, there was someone familiar walking down the stairs. The group's eyes turned to see a frighteningly puffy-eyed Uraraka. Tenya was the first to react, a panicked urgency in his voice. Uraraka, your eyes. You need to see Recovery Girl at once. Uraraka chuckled softly, rubbing at her puffed-up eyes. It's fine, Ida. They're, from something else. Izumi said nothing, already intimately familiar with how raw eyes could look after a lot of crying. Moving to sit next to Izumi, it took Uraraka a moment to notice Shouko on the other side of her freckled friend. Todoroki, good match back there. Thank you. And it's just Shouko. Shouko was also squinting suspiciously at Uraraka's eyes. Was Izumi the only person in the stands who understood post-crying peepers? You fought well, too. Uraraka smiled brightly. Thank you too. And in that case, just call me Ochako. That goes for all of you, really. I say we're close enough for first names at this point. We did almost die together. That tends to bring people closer, Ribbit. Chitsu, don't put it like that. But it's what happened. Izumi smiled as she watched her two friends fire back and forth at each other, sparing a glance at Shouko. The mismatched girl was watching the conversation, the slightest hint of a smile on her lips. She was never the most expressive person even in happier moments like this one, but the smile had to be a good sign. Maybe Izumi was being too optimistic, but it seemed like Shouko might be able to become just one of the girls eventually. Her heart soared at the idea of the half-hot, half-cold user joining her and Ochako on cafe outings, coming to the mall with the rest of the girls, maybe even doing something like going out for dinner just with her. Shouko turned her head, and Izumi meeped as she quickly swiveled hers around to stare at the arena. Okay, so she was definitely attracted to this girl to a certain degree. Maybe it was romantic. Maybe it was because she was easily the best-looking person in class, but it was definitely a thing that was happening right now. Izumi knew she was one of the lucky few who not only came to terms with being bisexual in middle school but also had full parental support when she told her mother, so her new crush being female was no dramatic twist. The only issue, she had a track record of falling hard for straight girls, and there was no evidence to indicate that the mismatched beauty was anything but that. Izumi was screwed. Shouko was screwed. She wasn't familiar with romance in the slightest. She recalls her father saying weeks ago that romance belonged to a world she did not live in. However, the dam had broken today, the realization that Shouko could grow past him and into whoever she wanted flowing through like a wave. There are no different worlds. Shouko also lived in the one where friends got ice cream after school and bought matching earrings and talked about internet jokes. She shouldn't act out of spite. She didn't need to consider his feelings in the slightest as she acted, free to her own whims without even thinking of endeavor. All that said, it didn't change the fact that Shouko never had a crush on anyone with a deeply numbed heart. It was nigh impossible to even consider a relationship. Not to mention, if this was a crush, it was on a girl. One realization after another today, wasn't there? Was she gay? Well, it was possible. There was also a chance that Shouko found her heart beating for Izumi simply because she was the person to drag her out of hell, her little savior. Girls were supposed to fall for people who saved their lives. If Shouko's very minimal exposure to princess content as a child was any indication. Could this be like that? Would it pass? This would probably piss her father off, so no, stop. She wasn't thinking of him or his opinions of her anymore. Besides, the arena was cleared up. The next match would be starting soon. Rising from her seat, she gave a nod to her newfound Acquaintances, friends, Izumi waved as Shouko left for the anteroom, and the mismatched girl pushed her feelings aside for the time being. She needed to focus on the tournament and her next fight. Shouko would hold this secret close to her chest for now. Hiroshima versus Takoyami was very clearly a match with an advantage for the bird-headed boy, so Shouko was not surprised to hear that Takoyami had emerged victorious. Next up for the Dark Shadow user would be Bakugo, and she was quite certain that would be the end of the road for the boy in the seat in front of her own. As she walked onto the stage, the roar of the crowd still exhilarating, Hitoshi Shinsu approached in the other direction, and Hajiro's glare from the stand felt stronger on Shouko's neck than Endeavor's did. She knew the tailed boy was just about tearing his hair out after Ashido had flubbed her match against the general studies boy. Well, Shouko wouldn't disappoint. The competitors stand across from each other, Shinsu cocking an eyebrow at her. "How'd your little selfie go this morning? Does your daddy know you think you can just slack off before the sports festival?" Pretty typical hero course. This guy knew how to shit-talk. It's kind of impressive, really, and Shouko probably would have responded had she not been raised to know exactly when it was too risky to open her mouth. With a quirk like his and a knowledge on how to use it, Shinsu seemed like he'd make a decent hero, and Shouko hoped third place would be enough to satisfy him. Midnight swung her flog to start the match, and Shouko stomped her foot, firing out a wall of ice. Without a physical quirk and what seems like no physical training, Shinsu was caught in an instant, Shouko freezing him up to his shoulders like how she'd captured Hatsume. After a moment of deliberation, she pushes her ice up to cover his mouth, ensuring his nose was still uncovered. Couldn't be too careful. There's an awkward silence as Midnight stares at Shinsu, whose eyes seem to indicate that he is royally done with this shit. Sighing, the 18+ only hero runs a hand through her hair. "Shinsu, blink 3 times if you're unable to move." When the boy did just that, she swings her flog. Shinsu is immobilized. Todoroki wins. There was no pep in her voice, and Shouko couldn't blame her. She looked cold without her leather jacket, black strappy leotard not doing much for her bare arms and shoulders. Shouko was fairly sure she'd left it in the infirmary when she'd been given a new sports jacket, and made a mental note to return that sooner rather than later as she walked forwards to unfreeze Shinsu. The boy sighed as soon as she melted the ice around his mouth. "Figured you wouldn't fall for it. You'd better not lose next round. Canadian flag. What is it with today?" And the Nickna Shouko's angry mutter was cut off as she felt a fuzz overcome her mind. Quirk deactivating as every part of her body drifted out of her control. And just like that, it was back to normal, Shinsu grinning in a way that reminded her of a certain Erasure hero. "Well, I can say I brainwashed Endeavor's kid now. Little victories." Biting her lip at the comment, Shouko went back to unfreezing the boy, eager to get this over with. Natsuo wants to say he was surprised to hear that Sasuke didn't think his cousin would beat Shouko. Well, her quirk was pretty overwhelming, and it wasn't shocking to anyone when his little sister emerged victorious with just her ice. Natsuo also wants to say that he was sure she'd only used her ice because fire was unsuited to the situation, but that didn't stop his feeling of unease. He could hardly focus on the Bakugo kid's utter beatdown of that Takoyami guy. Seemed like his quirk was basically a hard counter to the bird-headed boy when he was wondering how the upcoming match was going to play out for his sister. He had always been disconnected from Shouko since her quirk activated. Anyways, Natsuo had been more present in the life of the family's baby when she was Shouko, smiley and cheerful with ribbons in her pigtails. He wasn't much older than she was, but still remembered crowding the hospital bed with his siblings, staring in awe at the tiny little face swaddled in pink blankets and cradled in their mother's arms. That was also the first day he got to hold her, flanked on both sides by Fayumi and Taoya, who were concerned that his 4-year-old hands may not handle their new sister with the gentlest touch. They didn't need to be worried. Natsuo had been smitten the second he laid eyes on her. His own little sister. He remembered pointing out the beauty mark under her left eye, how Taoya had a matching one, and all of the Todoroki children had marveled at this simple occurrence. Their mother picked her name while Natsuo cradled her. They'd all offered suggestions when they found out Rei would be having a girl. Fayumi's choice had been Sango as far as he recalled, and Rei had seemed like that one charmed her quite a bit, while Natsuo had offered up the ever-usable Natsuo too. Listen, he was 4 or whatever. In the end, Taoya's was the one they went with. Shouko. She's the littlest, his reasoning had been, so she needs the character for child in her name. Of course, there was always the chance there would be another Todoroki baby, but looking back at it, the thought of this one being the last exhausting pregnancy she was forced to go through most likely a part of why their mother selected it. Holding the newly dubbed Shouko in his arms, Natsuo whispered to her that he would take care of her like his own big brother took care of him. Well, he didn't end up lying. Taoya left them when Natsuo was only 7, and Natsuo was a phantom to Shouko. "Hon, you alright?" There's a gentle touch to his hand, and Natsuo jolts. Lonnie is looking up at him, concern in her big brown eyes. "You were doing the thing again." Whenever he gets lost in his thoughts, Natsuo has a habit of shaking. He's not sure why, exactly, but his current theory is that thinking too deeply always brings him to his upbringing, something he doesn't exactly regard with the highest of opinions. Maybe there's another reason, but his psychology classes have yet to provide any insight. Sorry, just thinking. Lonnie purses her lips, eyes flickering to the rest of the room. Their other friends are all distracted by the impromptu arm wrestling match between Junya and Hiroyuki, Sasuke and Ryo cheering them on. It gives the couple a moment of privacy as Lonnie looks back to her boyfriend. You know, the campus therapists are free. Natsuo groans as his kneecaps crack while he gets to his feet. Yeah, I know. He goes to check the door. And he's usually able to restrain himself when it's other people's rooms, but he thinks he's entitled to double-check this time given how stressed the situation has him. Even so, Lonnie sighs. All right, you can talk to me if you need to, okay. Lonnie's accent slips in for a moment. The bizarre mix of Kyushu dialect from her hometown and Hausa from her mother being quickly pushed away as she switches back to the Chubu dialect she'd picked up quickly from him. Natsuo hates seeing her sad, so he swoops in to pick her up, relishing in her surprised squeak. It'll be fine, okay. Scout's honor. He winks at Lonnie, currently held in his arms bridal style, as he goes in for a kiss. She giggles against his lips, kissing back. There's a wolf whistle from the front of the room. Ah, young love, snickers Hiroyuki as if he wasn't the youngest in the group. Reminds me of my boyhood. Sasuke joins in, voices sing-song. Use protection. Lonnie laughs, the sound like music to Natsuo's ears, and throws the scrunchie around her wrist at the cat-headed boy. You're the worst, she says despite the clear amusement in her voice, and Natsuo allows his heart to relax as the laughter of the room pulls him away from the darkness. He sets Lonnie down, planting a kiss on her forehead for good measure. The past was the past, and all you can do is be part of Shouko's life now. Be a good big brother. Natsuo thinks of Taoya, thinks of collecting bugs together and teaming up for pranks on Fayumi and trying to cook eggs with his fire. Natsuo thinks he can be a proper big brother too. The third place match comes and goes, and Shouko is actually surprised by the outcome. From what she knows of Takoyami, he is stoic and unflappable, a very reserved and aware boy. And yet, whatever Shinsu says manages to rile Dark Shadow up, the quirk roaring and rising to great heights as it moved into a striking position. Takoyami had looked terrified for some reason, instantly turning to Midnight and announcing that he yielded. Even then, it looked like it had taken a minute or two to coax Dark Shadow back into its wielder. Shouko has seen quirks that damage the user and ones that are a bit hard to control, but Dark Shadow had looked dangerous. Very, very dangerous, despite having landed third place without even using his quirk in the final match. Shinsu looks uncharacteristically shaken up as he exits the ring. Shouko doesn't blame him. Really, she's not sure how well she'd handle being in the warpath of Takoyami's quirk either. But it is not the bird-headed boy Shouko needs to be concerned about right now. That honor goes to one Katsuki Bakugo. She feels uneasy. Izumi had prompted an awakening. Opened the cage door, but there was still a collar around her neck that yanked her back. There was the tangible consequence. First and foremost, Shouko was still on the path to an arranged marriage unless she pleased her father, a problem with a deceptively difficult solution. As free as Shouko had felt, as free as her revelation made her, there was still a very real hand holding her back from her own life. And then there was the topic of the flame. After the adrenaline had died down, the bicolored girl genuinely didn't know how she felt about her actions fighting Izumi. It was her quirk, that much was established, but, well, Shouko had been denying this power for years. Her fear, her hate, her misery, it did not all vanish after a single match. Once the rush was gone, she was simply unsettled as flame flickers under her skin, begging to be released again. Her quirk, but one she feared all the same. That's a very bad feeling to have as Shouko walks into the ring, the roar of the crowd deafening. It's the finale, the moment that just might save her from becoming a wife and mother at just 16 winters, and she's too damn conflicted for this. Bakugo, on the other hand, looks more than ready. His smile is feral, and Shouko notes that he was built to fight just as she was. Taller, larger muscles, but not as fast as you. Use your fire. Can you use that to your advantage? Don't use your fire. Izumi mumbled something about his right hook. Use your fire. Watch the eyes, not the body. Don't use your fire. Don't even think about holding back. Ice hot. Bakugo sneers from across the ring. I'll show everyone that even your full power isn't enough to even scratch me. Everyone was just lining up around the damn block to see Shouko use her flames, weren't they? Flipping her hair over her shoulder, Shouko got into position, cracking her knuckles. I'll fight how I want to. I'll steamroll you and your ice, and you know it. Bakugo sneered. You'd be stupid not to use your fire. Or was all that shit you dumped on Deku just to get her to go easy on you? Okay, that got her attention. Was he talking about? What the hell do you? Let the final match begin. Midnight swings her flog, and Shouko shoved that feeling back. She would not have survived as long as she did in the Todoroki household if she didn't know how to swallow her emotions in a heartbeat, how to switch directly into the swath of knowledge held through years of training. Ice shoots out in a glacier, the roars of her quirk briefly drowning out those of the crowd. Bakugo would break through this opening attack easily, Shouko knew that. But it would take plenty of explosions. The next glacier would take more out of him, and the next, and the next. He was a burst fighter, perhaps the only thing he and Izumi had in common. Despite what she'd said to her father, Shouko knew deep down that it would be Bakugo in the finals. As such, she'd watched him closely for a weakness, and she'd found one. He had taken Takoyami down in 2 minutes, Kaminari in less than 40 seconds. However, Uraraka had taken almost 9 minutes. He'd had to cause multiple explosions in a very small period of time. The brunette girl refusing to stay down for even a second when she was forced back by a blast. And that move he had to pull to destroy that debris. Well, Shouko knows what quirk overuse looks like, and Bakugo had been suffering from it by the end of that match. Shouko, meanwhile, was an endurance fighter. It's natural that you would develop an unnatural stamina and will to continue when you've been forced to train until your body physically gives out. Where your sister has to carry you back to your bedroom because your legs are ignoring your brain's plea for them to move. Where you were injured on purpose to teach you how to keep fighting through it. She'd wear him down with barrage after barrage. And when he was at the breaking point, she could force him out of the ring. It would be difficult, yes, but Shouko had to do this. Her life was on the line. Maybe her body would continue to move and speak, but she knows deep down that every part of her would die as soon as a ring was slipped onto her finger. The thing who married Hideyomi Ando might be named Shouko, but the real person would be gone forever. Bakugo's explosions crack the ice, and Shouko readies herself for a second wall. She's going to lose. Shouko's going to lose. And Izumi is terrified for her. This isn't about their pride anymore, not some way to get your foot in the door of hero society. Izumi knows precisely what's going to happen to her new friend if she loses, and she's growing fearful of the prospect as Shouko starts getting sluggish. She's clearly going for an endurance match, but the mismatched girl hasn't truly seen Kaken's power or how far he's willing to go if it means he wins. While the half-hot, half-cold user indeed had more stamina than the explosion wielder, Kaken wasn't holding back anything. Shouko's movements were sometimes hesitant, and the only thing she was using her fire for was to thaw herself out not offensively. Would that be enough for Endeavor? Izumi has thought, at first, to go to All Might with her illegally obtained audio recording. Obviously, the #1 hero had enough clout to really get the gears turning, and he'd obviously do whatever he could to help Shouko. But Izumi thinks of the backlash of the #1 accusing the #2 of being a serial abuser, of both partaking in a quirk marriage and facilitating one against the wishes of his underage daughter. She thinks of the news surrounding Stain, the way there are people who agree with his decree that hero society is corrupt. She thinks of the League, how bold villains were getting and attacking children. She thinks of All Might's ever-shrinking time limit, the rising crime rate, her own helplessness as a successor who is not nearly prepared. It would increase the chances of a conviction, yes, and it would also rip hero society completely in half during a very dark hour. Izumi thinks of the unnecessary deaths the safest choice would inadvertently cause. She can't go to him first. She will not keep her beloved mentor in the dark. She'll absolutely make sure he knows. But he can't be the one she talks to first. The symbol of peace can't be the one doing the accusing. Then how about an underground pro? The Erasure hero Eraserhead is unknown to the vast majority of the public. He holds neither public trust or distrust. They don't even know who he is. That said, Izumi is a hero fangirl through and through, and could happily prattle off all the minimal facts she's learned about underground pros over the years. She knows several things about Shouta Aizawa that the general public or even a less obsessive fan wouldn't. He is known for having a passable relationship with several vigilantes and a couple legally questionable individuals. He'd fostered 5 UA students temporarily before to get them out of abusive homes. And the most vital piece of information, he's a registered social worker under Shizuoka jurisdiction. One of the few heroes who end up going to university for a degree in the profession. At the time, Izumi had mostly just been baffled as to how this grouchy caterpillar of a man was still alive with 3 time-consuming, people-oriented careers at once. But now these facts meant he may just be the best candidate for going after Endeavor. He was Shouko's teacher, apparently had some connections All Might wouldn't have as the symbol of peace, an occasional foster father, and has a degree and a career that had a heavy hand in the welfare of children. Pair all that with his non-existent social standing, and Aizawa being the one to publicly point a finger meant that the chaos would be halved. Now it wasn't one beloved figure possibly alienating thousands of supporters by calling another A-list hero a monster, but someone who most have never even heard of. Was this going to make the conviction harder to get? Absolutely. Would it risk Aizawa's entire career? Absolutely. And Izumi felt horrible about that thought. But not telling someone and leaving Shouko to suffer like this, allowing an abuser to remain in the good graces of the adoring public. Izumi didn't know Aizawa as well as All Might. but given the praise her mentor had offered her teacher when the man came up. But she knew in her heart that this man would do anything he had to save Shouko. A hand on her shoulder jolts her out of her thoughts, and it's like a replay of earlier that day, Achako's concerned face making Izumi stutter. "Hey, are you okay? You looked kinda upset." I am okay," Izumi squeaked out, eyes flicking from Achako to the match, Shouko and Kaken exchanging blows. "I'm worried about Ida. That's all." The class president had received a call right before the start of the match, stepping out to take it, and he'd rushed back to the stands to grab his jacket with a haunted look in his eyes, saying he had to leave right away without providing any further details. Achako nodded sympathetically. "Yeah, how about we text him after this?" "That sounds good." Turning her head fully to the battle, Izumi cringed as Shouko took the brunt of an explosion to the stomach, being flung backwards and stopping herself with an ice wall. Poor Shouko. Can she win without her fire? It's Bakugo, after all. A concerned murmur from the back of the stands that sounded like Sato mirrored Izumi's own thoughts perfectly. "I don't get why she's not using it." Another explosion, and Izumi's eyes widened as Bakugo blasted himself in the air, higher and higher. No, she knew this move. She'd seen him during training, seen exactly what this one did. He was going for a howitzer impact. That was going to absolutely decimate Shouko if she didn't do something right away. Before she could stop herself, Izumi was on her feet, rushing to the front of the box seats and leaning far against the railing despite her bandaged arms not allowing her to properly grip it. Yaoyorozu making a gasping sound from the seat behind her, grabbing the back of her sports jacket. Izumi didn't even notice, mind racing in fear. Her thoughts were garbled. Frightened. "Shouko, you've been through so much today. Don't let your dream die so young. Please, please, I want to save you. It's yours, yours. Shouko. Please do your best." Is what leaves her mouth instead, screamed so loud that her voice cracks. Shouko freezes for a split second, and Izumi waits with bated breath as her friend slowly starts flickering with fire. It hurts. Explosions fucking hurt, and Shouko hates heat, hates fire, hates those flickering sparks. It hurt her before and it's hurting her now. A phantom pain howling from her eyes, smoke clouds her vision. She's heating herself up. Is it enough? Will it be enough? Will he let her go? She can't use her fire. Izumi was wrong, and everything is spinning. Maybe it's just the explosion seconds ago that felt like it blew out her eardrum. And she thinks she understands why Bakugo wears hearing aids now. Her ice is pushing him back. Retaliation, but the boy was so fast with his quirk, she wasn't able to use her original plan of ice wall after ice wall. There's so much noise. The explosion's going off as Shouko dodges and hits and tries to ignore the trickle of blood down her forehead. Her mind is screaming with adrenaline, thoughts panicked and rushed. For a moment, the booms stop. Her ears stop ringing, and the smoke she's choking on starts to lessen. Did she do it? There's a pause. No, they're high above her again. Shouko looks up, eyes widening as she sees Bakugo descending, spinning. So fast, this is it. She's about to lose the match, lose her life, lose her freedom right after her first taste of it. Shouko. Please do your best. She'd lose her first friend. Without thinking, Shouko's arm lights up, and it's pointing upwards as if possessed. Shouko grits her teeth, watches Bakugo grin as he descends with his palms extended. She'll push him back with the flame, allow the burning fire to throw him out of bounds or knock him unconscious from the bout of pain. She can do this. It's her quirk. Everything is on the line. Fight. Endeavor is watching from the stands. She sees him smiling. Without thinking, Shouko's flames extinguish. I'm bad. I'm making him happy. Bad. He deserves to be unhappy. Frown. Why can't I see you? Why can't I see you right now? The smoke and heat again, hot on her face, burning, peeling. No, please, mama, it hurts. Everything is black. A sister made to grow up too fast is silent, still as a mouse. Her nails have dug bruises into her wrists as she grips them. She will hide them as she always does. A brother abandoned holds his girlfriend's hand. His friends are saying something, but he's counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 as he stares at the TV. A mother locked away covers her mouth with her hand. Her baby is hurt. It was not her this time. It still kills her to see. The scarred man watches. His thoughts are his alone. Izumi freezes. Shouko is slumped on a broken pile of ice that failed to stop the attack, out of bounds. Kaken looks furious. He's grabbing her unconscious body and holding his hand out in anger until a pink mist floats over the scene. He stumbles, slumping onto Shouko. Two children pushed to their limits passed out on broken defenses. Todoroki is out of bounds. The winner of the annual UA Sports Festival first-year stage is Katsuki Bakugo. Though she is not a religious girl, Izumi pleads with whatever is out there to protect her friend. Please, you can't end her story this soon.